games have always served as a wonderful solace for me throughout a lot of my lifetime cooped up in a small town in the middle of the desert. Despite that, I've always been a social butterfly whenever an opportunity arose. When I first heard about Persona in early 2018 with Persona 5 and how it combined my love for video games and intricate human relations, I really wanted to get into it. Plus, it was a spin-off of Shin Megami Tensei, a series that I never tried but always wanted to whenever I browsed the 3DS eShop. Tragically though, my PS4 was stolen just about a month off of my birthday, so I never got to get into the series. Ever since I started garnering more of a community around my streams, lots of people asked me about my thoughts on the Persona series. In March of 2019, I took an enormous leap of faith and moved to Japan on my own at 16 years old. I was an exchange student in Tokyo, and the time I spent there was absolutely unforgettable. I diaried every single day of my experience on a separate Instagram account where I always had positive feedback. It is an experience I can never get back, and it's an excerpt of my youth that I'm fortunate enough to be able to look back to. Persona 4 Golden does a very similar thing. A game where I got to live out a year as someone else about my age, the exact age that I want to exchange, the cool idea of mixing my beloved RPGs with a more modern setting, and once again the fact that it's something very similar to something that I've experienced, which is a rarity in the realm of fiction. Sounded like a blast to me. One day, not too long ago, I caved into the suggestions of my Twitch viewers and bought Persona 4 Golden on Steam. I put about 80 hours in over the course of 9 days and beat the game. The last 4 days of my playthrough amassed 41 hours. Every second of that was extremely precious to me. Relating to a story or a character never mattered much to me. I was always just along for the ride, until now. I can confidently say that the experience I had getting closer to the characters, solving the mysteries, and taking in everything has impacted me on a level much deeper than any piece of media, more so than a series like Pokemon that I've been playing since I was 4 years old. And with how strongly I feel about everything to do with this game, I think that this is a better opportunity than ever to make my return to YouTube in this video. I'll be doing my best to recount the story, analyze some things, talk about my feelings, and try and make it fun along the way. This is Persona 4 Golden, the game that hit too close to home. Persona 4 opens up with the grooviest, most upbeat, beautifully stunning, and adorable intro I've ever seen in a video game. Courtesy of Madhouse, the studio behind some of the anime that I like, including Hunter x Hunter and Parasite, with the amazing theme Shadow World sung by Shihoko Hirata to give you just a taste of this game's splendid music that you will not get a break from throughout your experience. As gorgeous as the sequence is, if you manage to stop your dancing, singing, and clapping unlike me, then you'll notice that the lyrical content is pretty mirrored to the visuals, which eventually shows off some dead bodies dangling upside down. That's exactly what we're getting into. To carry this mysterious air forward, an eerie cutscene starts off our game after entering our character's name, where a limousine pulls up on you with a big-nosed, bald old man and his well-put-together, secretary-looking chick. This cutscene has one line of dialogue from the old man. "Welcome to the Velvet Room." You end up in the cabin of the limo with the both of them, where they reveal their names to you, Igor and Margaret. Igor explains that you being drawn into the Velvet Room is a turn in your fate, and that there's a catastrophe awaiting you. If you're to fail in solving this mystery, then your future is doomed. Directly after this, in quite the oxymoronic twist, you're greeted by a TV commercial, a cute girl in a swimsuit drinking some sort of drink. I promise this matters later. Once the ad break concludes, an anchorman talks about the Mayumi Yamano scandal. This is where we get our first shot of our main character, Yu Narukami. His name is Yu Narukami, but since our character is a nameable one, you get free reign over this. I just decided to give him my real name since I just prefer to do things that way. We're waiting for our train and overhear a couple gossiping about the news of Mayumi Yamano, Mitsuo Hiragi, and Taro Namatame, a love triangle that is somehow flooding national media coverage. The couple we overhear is criticizing those involved, with the man asking if girls are even into politicians, in which his girlfriend replies,
"Isn't it just stuff like money and connections? When you get down to it, financial and political clout is what matters."
A short flashback then plays of our homeroom teacher sending us off at our school, saying we're transferring to another school. Our class's reactions are generally pretty sad or disappointed. Transferring schools is a generally taboo thing in Japan. They only really happen if you move. Any reason other than that or an expulsion is just not really feasible. Some shots portraying us doing just that then go underway. We're on a cabin train out and the ride goes pretty smoothly. We get a text saying to meet someone outside of the station at 4 p.m. and the overhead lets us know that we're nearing our destination. Yaso Inaba Station in Inaba, Japan, a made-up small town in an ambiguously countryside Japanese prefecture. We meet Ryotaro and Nanako Dojima, our uncle and cousin here. Our uncle is pretty much always just going to be referred to by his last name from here on out, but Nanako is going to say Nanako. On our way to the family car, you bump into an edgy looking girl who hands you a paper you dropped with Dojima's address on it. Initially, I thought this was going to be our first villain. I thought she'd do something crazy like stalker or something, but that's not true at all. You'll see more from her later. On our way home, we hit a gas station and the clerk there proclaims that we'll probably be bored in Inaba since we're from the city and we'll probably just be hanging out with friends or working part-time. While this is true, these are some of the more fun things to do in this game, so I don't know why she downplayed it so much. After shaking her hand, our protagonist gets a jolt to her head and becomes overtaken with dizziness. Nanako checks up on us, and this is the first display of her true character, since up to now she's just been a little agitated or shy. I personally think this is because she wanted to gauge you herself instead of being in front of her dad. I was much like this as a kid as well. This is when we get our first sense of freedom in the game. We get to walk around and talk to others around the shopping district. Immediately upon walking around, you can notice one of my favorite things about Persona 4, the flavor. Every single NPC in the game has a flavorful name. Lazy student and aging housewife, for example. There's so much little detail in this game that doesn't need to be there, but it is, and for that I really have to commend the team at Atlas. Every little thing in this game has so much love and care into it. It doesn't even feel like a project being pushed out for profit. It feels like a genuine piece of art filled to the brim with love. After our little excursion at the shopping district, we finally move into the Dojima residence. Our dinner is quickly interrupted by Dojima's incoming work call. He skedaddles out, and we start to slowly bond with little Miss Nanako as we begin to learn of her strong independence. Yasugami High School. This school, surprisingly big for Inaba's size if you ask me, is where we will spend our year. We see a goofball crash into a pole and hit his crotch as we tiredly walk in, and from this alone we know what type of year we're in for. Come homeroom and we're in the same class as him. Yosuke Hanamura, a fellow city boy who is forced out into the boonies for his dad's job. He's voiced by Yuri Lowenthal, this extremely iconic and diverse English VA who I respect a ton, especially for his roles as Marth and Sasuke Uchiha. He also voices Makoto Yuki, the main character from Persona 3, which I have not played yet, but they brought him back aboard for this game and I think that's sweet. We're introduced to the class by Morooka Sensei, a douchey teacher with a punchable face. We learn of his extremely fitting nickname, King Moron, from Chie Satanaka, a fiery young girl who volunteered to have us sit next to her. Chie's English voice actress is Erin Fitzgerald. She's got some notable TV roles like Mia Naz from Ed, Edd n Eddy, but I know her from video games. She voices Emerald from Fire Emblem Awakening and Anya So Bleach from Bravely Default. Both are games I played and love a ton, so learning this and doing research for this video was pretty awesome. After class, Chie introduces us to Yukiko Amagi, a seemingly perfect girl who excels at everything and whose family runs a famous inn in town, the only real tourist attraction in Inaba. Yukiko's voice actress is Amanda Wynn Lee, only really known outside of this role for Rei Ayanami from Evangelion, but I knew her as Magnolia Arc from Bravely Second. Chie and Yukiko invite us to go and walk with them, and Yosuke is kinda jealous. This is our first real interaction with him. He returns an accidentally broken Kung Fu DVD to Chie, which results in him getting kicked in the nads again and forced to pay for lunch at Junes, a local megaball that Yosuke works at. His dad is also the manager of this Junes location, which leads Yosuke to be frequently used by a lot of his coworkers. Seemingly so is Saki Konishi, a third year at your school you run into on your outing. Saki ends up discovering Mayumi Yamano, the missing announcer from the news, dead and hung upside down on a television pole after school the next day, which causes a lot of buzz. You stumble across the crime scene with your friends on your way home from school and see Dojima on the scene with Adachi, his chipper and somewhat awkward right-hand man on the police force. From here on out, you start to get used to your school life at Yasugami, learning of the Midnight Channel, a local legend stating that if you watch the TV alone at midnight when it rains, you'll see your soulmate. People also mention that they saw Mayumi Yamano on the Midnight Channel, which makes this sound a bit fishy. Chie leads the idea that it would be a fun idea to try it out, so you, her, and Yosuke all tap in. Yukiko's busy with the aforementioned inn, so she's out on this one. To your surprise, it actually works. Not as expected, however. You see a shadowy figure of a girl on the TV, Saki Konishi. Alarmed by this, you freak out and part of your body is under the TV. Completely flabbergasted, you sit in confusion until Yosuke hits your line and confirms what you saw. You both saw the exact same thing. The next day at school, you discuss about what happened with Chie and Yosuke, not knowing that you all saw the same thing. You hope your new friends would believe you and that you were able to go inside the TV. Not fully, however, due to the size of the one in your room. They obviously doubt you, so they agree to believe you if they can see it after school at Junes, where there's a lot of big TVs in the electronics section. Circling back to the Saki thing, this coupled with noticing Saki wasn't at school today is really weird. Everyone's perplexed by the matter. What exactly is going on? Is the Midnight Channel really as the legend says? It can't be. And the reason for that being that Saki Konishi is no one's soulmate. Her body is found, dead, upside down on a satellite dish. A school assembly is held to disclose this information to the entire student body, and no one is more distraught about it than Yosuke, which isn't surprising considering how head over heels he was for her during your one interaction at Junes. After school, a beady-eyed and bulbous brat comes on to Yukiko. He tries to get with her, something that the locals call the Amagi challenge, seeing if anyone can succeed in getting with Yukiko Amagi. Our friends get this weird bastard off of her, and then we go to Junes. You show them that you can enter the TV. Chie freaks out a lot, as any normal person would in this situation, and Yosuke grabs her to try not to gain any attention. This just leads into everyone falling into the TV together. The crew ends up on a platform around the size of a boxing ring with a lot of TV equipment set up around them. The area is covered in a murky, yellowish fog with no exit in sight. The flabbergasted trio presses onward in a single direction. Astonishingly, you come across an apartment with a flurry of familiar posters hung up around you. Their faces are cut from them though. And that isn't the only thing hung up. There's a noose tied with a scarf in the center of the bloody room. Yosuke, shocked by all this, needs to pee, but he can't do so because he's too scared of Chie peeping. With all the commotion you're causing, naturally, the only sentient being in this area would pull up on you. This is when the goofy little bear man with a funny little voice and a lack of self-concept comes in. His name isn't revealed to you until a bit later, but I think it's better that I just tell you now. It's Teddie, which if that alone wouldn't let you know, his entire existence is littered with bear puns that I found really charming. They're great for controlling the mood later on. Thank you, Teddie. He's voiced by Sam Riegel, known for Phoenix Wright, Shino Abrame, and Donatello. The little mascot fellow is accusing us of being the people who throw other people into the TV and assumes we are responsible for the fog in here as well. This is news to us, since we now know that there are people being sent into the TV against their will. He tells us that we're being unbearably noisy and that the shadows are going to run up on us soon. Not really knowing what shadows are or what that means presents the writers with the perfect opportunity to throw some on us. We fight some weird black and white ball things with weird mouths alone. Since Yosuke and Chie are powerless, we summon Izanagi, the persona of the Fool Arcana. Using your Zio spell, you zap them all down pretty much instantly as the most beautifully short battle tutorial I've ever seen in an RPG. So bonus points for the team at Atlas for that one as well. Everyone involved, including yourself, is at a loss for what happened, and Teddie holds you in such high regard for your persona-wielding skills that from here on out, he calls you Sensei. Teddie then anxiously leads you to where you originally fell from and expunges you and your friends back into your own world. When you get home that night, your sleep is instantly disrupted by a visit from Igor, Margaret, and Marie. Marie is the edgy girl from the Yasuinaba station that bumped into you. Yeah, she's also a Velvet Room attendant in Golden, which means she wasn't in the original Persona 4. You get a quick rundown of what the Velvet Room is and what it does for you. Essentially, you can log your personas and skill cards, buy them, do fusions, and do all sorts of good stuff, which allows you, Narukami, to be an extremely flexible party member. Speaking of party members, your friends don't have a persona yet. Luckily for us, Yosuke is certain that the TV world must have some clues about what happened to Saki, but you were only able to make it home safe because Tay kicked you out. Without knowing how this next expedition would go, Yosuke comes up with a foolproof plan. Swing weapons in the air at the Junes food court and get arrested. That actually happened. And afterward, Chie introduces us to the weapon store of this game, Daidara. Now for Yosuke's real foolproof plan. Chie holds a rope while you both deep dive in. The classic "we'll signal for you" kind of deal. As soon as you fall in though, the rope rips on your end. Chie notices on the other side and freaks out. This is meant to build up a sense of urgency, but knowing how JRPGs work and how they're never this short, I knew not to worry. Teddie promises to come out and help us if we promise to figure out who's sending people into the TV and causing chaos in his world. You let him know that that was your plan from the first place, so he should just help you anyways because our goals align. Teddie leads you to an alternate version of the shopping district with dimmed lighting, crazy red and black streaks in the sky, and a little portal to enter one of the buildings. This building isn't one that you can enter normally in the real world. It's Konishi Liquors, Saki's family business. Remnants of her voice are heard echoing about, proclaiming her true hatred for Yosuke, how he took everything the wrong way and she was only being nice to him because of his father's position. Yosuke refuses to believe this, keeping his happy-go-lucky front firm in place. Questioning him, a shadow Yosuke appears and leaks the truth of Yosuke's inner thoughts and feelings. He hates Inaba. He only wanted to tag along with us to have something new and exciting to do. He really just hungered for a thrill again, and was hating the life that he'd been stuck in for the last 6 months. Not wanting to show that side of himself to anyone, Yosuke says, "You're not me," which are the magic words that give the shadow free reign to transform into pure malice, which gives us our first boss fight of the game. Being the shadow in a one-on-one, Yosuke regains consciousness and confronts everything. He's far from proud of it, but he accepts everything that's wrong about himself that the shadow brought to his attention, and tells the shadow that he is a part of him. This shows the normal, jokey Yosuke's first glimpse of maturity. Something that I can relate with a lot. You always want to have that outward push of good energy, but when things get down to the nitty-gritty, it does not feel good to confront the deep-seated insecurities and gripes that you may have with yourself. It was at this moment that I knew that this game would be a fulfilling one, but I didn't know to what extent just yet. Teddie thanks us and gives us a way out of the TV, which leads us straight to greeting a hysteric Chie, who thought we were really goners. She forces Yosuke into buying her a steak to repent, then we go home. We're greeted in our dreams by the Velvet Room once again. We're informed about social links, one of my many favorite parts of this game. Essentially, the closer you bond with someone, you're rewarded with events to get to know them better, boosts for persona fusions, and other different things depending on who and what you're bonding with. And we've got our first with Yosuke. To spare you from random information that isn't super important and would just interrupt the flow of the story, I'll be dropping occasional social link progress updates as I meet someone or bonded with them a lot, since this is about my experience. I'll also recap every social link character near the end of the video with my thoughts on them. The following day at school, Yukiko's still nowhere to be found, so you agree to check the Midnight Channel once more. At dinner, you watch the news as usual with Nanako and Dojima. Yukiko's getting interviewed about her family and that's about that. Midnight Channel time. Once you get up to your room and begin watching the Midnight Channel, you see a female figure with a kimono, but that's about it. The next day at school, Chie is adamant that the girl shown is Yukiko. She's so certain that she wants to ditch school and rush over to the Amagi Inn just to make sure. Since Yukiko hasn't answered any texts and her phone just hits voicemail instantly. Right as she's about to rush out though, Yukiko gives her a call saying that everything is fine, she's just being overworked at the inn. But then, what was the deal with the Midnight Channel? That night, it's projected to rain again, and you scope out the Midnight Channel once more just to keep testing your theory. Boom, it's Yukiko. She goes on a tangent about fighting her Prince Charming and runs into a big castle. Yosuke calls you to confirm that what you saw lined up and you hit Juness again in the morning. Yukiko's castle. Teddie takes you there lickety-split, and this is where we have our first real dungeon of the game. Every floor is randomly generated unless there's some story stuff going on that particular floor. This goes for every dungeon, and even after clearing them, some of the set floors will stay the same. And the random ones will be re-randomized, even if you just walk down the stairs and back up again. Now I'm going to take a second to talk about the combat. More or less, think of it like Pokemon combat, but dumbed down, but simultaneously a little cooler. Everyone, enemies, and your party members have your own strengths and weaknesses. Sometimes though, you can drain or reflect elements as well. Speaking of elements, we have fire, ice, electricity, wind, light, darkness, and physical, if you want to count that. All of these can either be drained, reflected, resisted, or they can be weakness. If you hit an enemy with something that they're weak to, then in most cases they'll fall down. If you manage to topple every single enemy, then you can go for an all-out attack. If you finish a battle with an all-out attack, or if you finish under some other niche conditions, then you'll enter a shuffle time. A shuffle time is when a bunch of cards flutter around you and you can pick some. You can get things like personas, XP boosts, HP restores, things like that. Typically, you'll only be able to pick one card. However, if you get lucky enough, you might get another card that will let you draw 2 more, 1 more, or 3 more. These come at varying costs though. It might cost some money, some XP, a card that you've already drawn being taken away. If you're able to pull every single card, then you'll get a sweep bonus, which means that every battle from here on out, you will initiate a shuffle time, but now with 3 base cards to pull instead. This chain will continue to go on until you don't pull every single card again. It really makes longevity in dungeons so much more manageable, and this is an amazing mechanic that keeps every single normal battle fun and interesting. On the second floor, Chie's shadow comes out, which expresses Chie's jealousy of Yukiko, being seen as more talented and beautiful than her, for example. There's one prime example later on that I can think of later in the game that calls back to this, but Chie finds it very painful to be seen as just a girl, especially when put side by side with others. Comparisons are something that can hurt, and I feel that I noticed it affecting people a lot in Japanese society during my time there. I was always being compared to other people for one reason or another, and while it never really made me feel down, it never felt like it accomplished anything either. So we're 2 for 2 with very valid problems in our teenage cast here, which I think is a very good selling point for Atlas. But it doubles down as one of the most charming and engaging conflicts I've ever seen in any video game. The boss fight was pretty easy and a simple one, and I really appreciate that it was only on the second floor because this dungeon has 8 of them. Having that third party member for the remaining floors is honestly so huge. I found myself being overwhelmed a lot in dungeons earlier on in the game. This first one was probably especially rough for me because I didn't know a few little things like that the chest would regenerate or healing with personas is more efficient for long-term sustainability compared to items. Now at the top of the castle, Yukiko Amagi herself is there, screaming at the shadow version of herself. This shadow seems to have Yukiko more figured out than the past we've seen, at least in my opinion. And yes, I know the shadows are all manifestations of the part of the person in question, but Yukiko's felt much more realistic to me. She doesn't want to inherit the inn, and her search for her Prince Charming was symbolic of that. Were someone to come to Inaba and sweep her away from everything she's ever known, then she could escape everything that's been set up for her. I really think this whole narrative was extremely clever because Yukiko is treated as some sort of local royalty. When boys go for her, it's deemed the Amagi challenge, and she's an heiress to the most iconic thing in town. Lots is expected of her, and her dungeon is even a castle. Despite living the closest thing that she can to a fairy tale life in 2011, she wants a different ending. That's something that I can respect a lot. Not being able to pave your own path must be something that really stings deep. Once again, something I can get behind. Doing cool stuff such as making videos like these on the internet and voice acting are things I really want to work hard at and accomplish in my life. Sure, it isn't as heavy a weight compared to Yukiko's, but feeling like you're denied the path of your choice doesn't feel too good. So after beating the shadow, Yukiko acknowledges that these too are also her true feelings, and thus she gets her persona. So now, we've hit the point where I think you've finished the intro to the game and you're now in the true Persona 4 experience. While that was a long intro, it never felt like a slog at any point, and you did have some taste of the free roam to hold you off until now. But now you can do all sorts of cool stuff. Part-time jobs, hang out with people, join clubs. One thing that I love about Persona's pacing is that there's deadlines, and if you don't want to feel rushed, then simply just rush yourself. It sounds counterintuitive, I know, but day oneing a dungeon instead of just waiting for the last few days is honestly what I did for every single dungeon except for one of them. This lets you roam around and do as you please, just waiting for your next plot point to come up and instead of feeling urged to do so by your friends every day until then. Another thing that I think just fits this video better now instead of earlier when it actually happened is the testing. Tests are composed of questions that you get asked in class at the game. Usually they're just asked like in the month before the actual test, so it's easy to remember. But if you space out your playthrough by limiting yourself to only about an hour a day in real life, then this will be kinda hard. I think my shortest session of the game was 4.5 hours, my first day playing, and because of that, I barely missed any questions throughout my entire playthrough. I really felt nostalgic when the teachers would call it, "All good, kun," to ask for my answer. Yet another detail that takes me back to my study abroad days in Japan. So now that we have a bit of free roam, what exactly did I do? Well, I joined the basketball club with Ko Ichijo. Spoiler alert, I didn't talk to him, at all. I liked him, but I prefer doing things that would either boost my stats, get me money, or build a social link with either a party member or someone that I just liked more. One of those people that I liked more was Yumi Ozawa of the Drama Club. Yes, that's right, you could join 2 clubs in Persona 4 Golden, one sports club and one culture club. And since these 2 that I chose are side characters and are far from a mandatory point in the game, I'll be delving into Yumi's full social link in a second. I'll be doing this for every side character for their social link statuses, as well as a grand evaluation and speed round analysis at the end of the video. The other options I had were Daisuke Nagase of the soccer club and Ayane Matsunaga of the band club. After watching the Persona 4 anime, I definitely want to try doing Ayane's social link. I won't get into her though, since I didn't interact with her even once in my entire playthrough. So back to Yumi. Yumi is a talented actress, but she has a lot going on in the background of her family life. I did max out her social link, and by doing so I, 1, raised my expression stat, and 2, felt so extremely terrible for her. Her mother worked so unbelievably hard, and her father left her and her mother about a decade ago, just for him to come back into her life as he's dying, begging to see her again. Yumi wants to hate her dad so much, but over time she realizes that she can't bring herself to. She decides to quit the drama club as soon as you get situated in it, and she gets the star role in the upcoming play as well. Her father's condition just stopped everything in her life in its tracks. She slowly gained empathy for her father, visiting him, feeling bad for him. Yumi's development is a really beautiful thing, and it got me thinking. My relationship with my dad is something that can never be repaired, and seeing Yumi stepping up a lot really got me thinking. I understood her feelings a lot, so it was sad to see her go through everything, and in the last bits of her social link, her father dies. And before he does, he lets her know that he named her Yumi as in to bear fruit, although the characters for her name are usually read as Ketsujitsu, and it's an actual word in Japanese. And he uses his dying breath to tell her that she was the fruit born by him and her mother. When her father dies, she just becomes more conflicted. Through our guidance, though, she slowly realizes her passion for acting was ultimately rooted in her own sorrow and want for self-change, and through this, she decides to drop the drama club for good, giving you an annotated script, a trophy item of sorts to show that you completed her social link. Lastly, she confesses that for her newfound love for you, but at the point of the game when I maxed her out, I already had a girlfriend, so I denied her in the stone-cold fashion that she requested, leaving without even looking at her or saying a word, and I never saw her around at school again after this. Around the time of joining the drama club, my expression stat was my lowest, same with understanding. I mentioned these stats a bit earlier, but I'll delve into them all now. We have 5 stats that we as a protagonist can work on, separate from any other stat that any other party member can get. Courage, diligence, understanding, expression, and knowledge. The way they're all applied and earned is self-explanatory. You do things like study to build knowledge, go to drama club to gain expression, things like that. and you apply them in ways such as using your courage stat to allow you to make more brash dialogue choices in certain situations, like asking a girl for her number outright. Maxing out your understanding unlocks a tutoring job for you that I didn't get into much later in the game. It's really nice playing at your own pace and getting the stats that you, the player, would get. It feels super satisfying too, since some of the cooler early game dialogue choices are locked behind these stats, which adds a bit more merit to playing New Game Plus, which I plan on doing at some point after putting this video out. Speaking of new, it's just about that time where we get to meet our newest important character. There's been news of a local biker gang causing trouble in Inaba, and a local news station went on the scene to report on it. You've seen this program while eating dinner with Nanako and Dojima, a young man shown screaming and attacking the crew. This is Kanji Tatsumi, a first year at our school who Dojima knows from work due to his past kerfuffles that he's caused around town. Voiced by Troy Baker, who I know for Pain, Yamato, and Espio, and in all installments after Golden, the VA changes to Matthew Mercer, which is pretty interesting to me, since Mercer takes all three of the aforementioned roles in separate installments of the series as well. And I also really like Matthew Mercer for his work as Crom. I just wanted to shout him out for that real quick. His silhouette then appears on the Midnight Channel, and with a bit of sleuthing, you figure out that it's him. This is a game changer. You now know what it means for someone to show up on the Midnight Channel, and you also know who the next target is. This is a bit perplexing though still, since a bit prior Yosuke theorized that targets for the murderers were all women with a connection to Miss Yamano, Saki Konishi being the one who discovered the body, Yukiko Amagi housing her then just before her death. Yukiko reveals to us that she knew Kanji as a kid, which is a shock to everyone since they seem to be polar opposites. Kanji's family runs a local textile shop, which the Amagi Inn frequently purchases from, so their connection seems reasonable. Nonetheless, it's time to get to work. You try to talk to Kanji about things up front at school, but they don't work at all. He's extremely on edge, won't answer any questions, and just charges at you with basically every interaction. He even denies being involved with the biker gangs aside from beating them all up, because they kept his mom up at night. And while it's great to know how good of a son he is, we aren't really getting anywhere with our investigation at this rate. Another day of studying Kanji begins, and you split into two pairs. You and Yukiko have a sweet little talk at the shrine next to his house/family's textile shop, which finally initiates your social link with her. Meanwhile, Chie and Yosuke play Mission Impossible trying to stake out Kanji and a weird kid clad in blue. I'm calling it Mission Impossible because they're quite possibly the worst at execution here. Chie tries to space it out so they don't seem like an awkward group on Kanji's tail. Yosuke complains too much about that, they communicate over the phone, then Kanji catches them, is reasonably mad, and Yosuke pisses Chie off by trying to play it off as them just being a couple. Absolutely catastrophic. You all regroup at the shrine and confirm that basically no progress has been made at all. Kanji confronts you since you're at his house, and Yosuke asks him if anything strange has happened to him lately. The word choice of strange puts Kanji on even more edge than before, and he has an explosive outburst on everyone, and we see that it makes all too much sense when he's kidnapped and finally appears on the Midnight Channel. He dons only a skimpy bath towel, lets out his excitement to get steamy, and uses an overly tuned voice that's really meant to cement the idea that Kanji's hidden feelings are about his sexuality, which, for a story originally released in 2008, is pretty impressive and commendable, honestly. However, we learn that after defeating his shadow, which I might add was supported by two swole shadows named Tough Guy and Nice Guy, that this isn't his issue at all. All he yearns for is acceptance from others. Being raised around things like knitting and craft making, he was always seen as the weird kid for liking things that were conceived as more feminine. Kanji just wants to be accepted by everyone around him for who he is, but his rugged outward energy typically prevents that. He reluctantly mans up to his shadow, accepting everything that the shadow said. But he doesn't do that without reiterating that it isn't a matter of men or women, it's truly just about acceptance. Kanji gains his persona and we take him home. He joins the investigation team and now we have some downtime before our next major event. Kanji's situation, like every other party member so far, surprise surprise, struck a chord with me on a personal level as well. Growing up, I always had longer hair, I liked stuffed animals, and I liked cute things. Even today, I still do. But I remember getting criticized for it a lot. And I feel very lucky being as resilient as I was back then and now. Lots of people were questioning my sexuality for a long time, and every time I had to let them know that what they were getting it wasn't true. I love Kanji a lot for owning up to everything the way that he did, challenging gender roles even if only partially because of how he portrays himself on the outside. Aside from that, he just makes for a great character in both a comedic sense and when it comes to getting down and dirty as well. For the remainder of the time from Kanji's dungeon being cleared, I didn't really do anything too important. Worked some jobs, read some books, caught up on some social links, of which includes a fox which gives us Emma that have written down wishes on it that we have to grant, Saki Konishi's younger brother, Naoki, who I completely ignored, and Kanji's. By now it's been about a month since we saved Kanji, and now that everything's settled down, the killer decided that he was done giving us a rest. Remember that cute girl in a swimsuit from the opening sequence? I told you she'd be important. Rise Kujikawa, teen idol extraordinaire, professionally known as Rosette. voiced by the extremely talented Laura Bailey, known for her various roles in the Dragon Ball series, Kushina Uzumaki, and one of my favorite characters, Lucina, and now my all-time favorite character hands down, Rise Kujikawa. Rise is quitting showbiz. This abrupt decision shocked publications across Japan, and while watching an interview with her family in Golden, she cites stress as her reason for going on hiatus. She drops the news that she's moving to Inaba, her hometown, until further notice. Dojima is disgruntled by this, saying that the best thing about Inaba was always the peace and quiet that you had around, but this year was shaping up to be completely different. Nanako, however, was really excited about having her come to town in hopes that she could meet her. The next day at school, everyone's pumped up about Rosette moving to town, especially Yosuke, who thirsts a bit too hard for her, in front of Yukiko and Chie as well. Not a good look for our man Yosuke. He just keeps coming off as a weirdo again, which he kinda is, but he's the best kind of weirdo that I've ever met. King Morin is the complete opposite though. He expresses his distaste in her coming to Inaba and everyone's interest in it. Yosuke raves on about wanting to pick up chicks with motorcycles, something that he pulls you and Kanji into the idea of. Kanji's only 15 though, so he can't get a motorcycle license. You and Yosuke study hard for Operation Up Close and Personal, the plan that should let a girl ride close behind you on your sweet rides. You approach Dojima about the license and he said he'll talk to you about it more when you pass, which you do pretty much right away. Astounded by this, he lends you his old scooter, which leads you to head to Okina City, a minor city near Inaba. Right after school with the boys, and you guys go and try and pick up some girls. I remember doing pretty terribly at this, only really scoring with a pair of girls by pretending to be a pig. I did end up making some silly dialogue choices with a slightly older woman, which led to me giving her her man's number. It was honestly a bit scary when I called him in front of everyone though. Kanji failed completely at getting any digits, but Yosuke did nab one. He called her right away, only to be revealed that it was none other than Hanako Otani, a previously unmentioned character who is also a second year at your school. When Yosuke calls her a bit too eagerly, she doesn't let herself acknowledge that he was given the wrong number. She adamantly gives Yosuke a chance and sits on his motorcycle, breaking it right after sitting on it, just once. The screams of horror coming from Yosuke are forever burned into my mind. I felt terribly bad for him here, but there wasn't any time to waste. You have important business coming up. The school campout, one of my favorite events in the whole game, mainly because it carries that confusing air and awkwardness that you would expect from a real-life school campout. The school campout puts up this facade that the goal of the program is to get teenagers to appreciate the local area more, when in actuality, you just pick up trash all day. Not really the fun campout that you anticipated, huh? Your group consists of you, Yosuke, Chie, and Yukiko. The girls were in charge of cooking, and the purple, murky curry, dubbed by Yosuke as Mystery Food X, is actually inedible. He gags, he can't do anything about it, and it just won't go down. The girls give you such a look that you can't not try it, but doing so makes you fall on your side instantly. You'll be going tonight without dinner. Hanako, however, is chowing down on an extra large plate of curry, which she isn't sharing with anyone. In fact, she takes all of her Mystery Food X and chows down on that in addition to her own plate. What a beast. When everyone's back in their own tents, you gossip with Yosuke for a bit in your uncomfortably set up tent. Kanji barges in after a bit, promising he won't get you in trouble by being there. After a bit of chit-chat, you and the guys lay down, but Yosuke becomes less and less comfortable, eventually popping the question to Kanji, but without really saying it. Are you really like that? And if you recall Kanji's dungeon, you know exactly what he means by this. Kanji gets ticked off by this and asks Yosuke to drop it, but then gets too ahead of himself and says he's going to prove that he's a man by going into a girl's tent. Simultaneously, we get a view of the girl's tent. Yukiko and Chie are in a living hell with Hanako. She just won't stop snoring, making it impossible for them to go to sleep. The girls head on over to your tent for some solace, but not before running into Kanji and knocking him out. He spends his night in the girls' tent alright, but not in the way he wanted to prove. Chie and Yukiko pop up into our tent, promising that they won't get us expelled by sleeping under the same roof as us. As they say that though, King Morin himself brings his drunken self over and questions Yosuke through the walls for a bit, but he luckily doesn't check up on us or notice the girls' presence. We luckily only have one night to deal with for the campout, but we do have another day to get through. Yosuke brings our whole little squad to the nearby riverbank after dispersing from the school. He's very adamant about swimming with everyone. Our player and Yosuke get into our trunks, and the girls are obviously uncomfortable with the situation. Yosuke, being Yosuke, doesn't care even slightly about how they feel, and he just says that the girls owe us for their terrible cooking. They admit that they do owe us for royally screwing up, but they don't have any swimsuits. That's when Yosuke pulls out his trap card. 2 bikinis. He bought them at Juness when we were shopping for ingredients for our Mystery Food X. The girls get really pissed about this, but comply with Yosuke. No matter what, the spot you're in here is tight. I tried to be as respectful and not creepy as the dialogue choices would allow me to, but they all ended up with the same thing. Our comments piss off the girls, they brutally push us into the river. Kanji gets a nosebleed, which weirds the girls out even more. Then Muraoka is spotted upstream vomiting into the river. Quite literally the worst possible outcome. I'd have my Twitch chat reassure me that I didn't blunder anything at all with this scene here, just one of the inevitable awkwardnesses of high school, it seems. School's back in session and Rosette's all the buzz around town. It seems like she's finally moved in. You and your buds talk about it and they end up seeing her on the Midnight Channel. Here we go again. Finding a window to approach Rise is a bit tricky since she's a mainstream celeb. With enough camping outside of her grandma's tofu shop, you're able to slide in and question her a bit, as well as warn her about the Midnight Channel. She denies it being her on the screen, with the main deterring factor being something a bit risque. You're caught in the act by Dojima and Adachi though. You try and play it cool and leave under the excuse that you came by just to greet your new schoolmate, and you leave her shop with a little bit of food, but Rise tells the cops of your warning, which makes Dojima kinda pissed off at you. He doesn't understand how you guys know anything, or why you're involving yourself. Dojima sticks Adachi on you and your friends, but in typical Adachi fashion, he leaks everything by accident and just ends up helping you guys. Due to this, you catch a peeping Tom who, within reason, is assumed to be the murderer. We chase him down to the gas station, where he threatens to jump into moving traffic if we don't leave him alone. He's too chicken for it though, and the super awesome based investigation team boys capture him for Adachi. When walking back past Marukyou Tofu, Rise's grandmother explains that Rise has gone missing. It's too late, you got the wrong guy. A bit later, we see her shadow is trying to get all down and dirty, exposing Rise, both literally and figuratively on the Midnight Channel. To protect both her life and public image, we gather some clues around town by talking to anyone of interest, which, honestly, if you paid any attention, you would already know these things. Regardless, we make our way to Juness right after school the next day to retrieve her. Her dungeon is called Marukyou Striptease, a strip club with the same name as her grandma's tofu joint, and at this point in the game is when I made one of the best decisions I made in my entire run. I've used Pyrojack, a variation of the Jack Frost personas, the general mascot of the SMT franchise. He's a jack-o'-lantern in a mage getup on a broomstick. Not much else to say about him design-wise. However, I didn't use any other personas my entire run from this point on because of how cracked he ended up getting. The perfect combination of elemental magic attacks, resistances, as well as buff and debuff spells that would be a staple in all my future boss battle strategies, which is perfect because this is the first dungeon where the boss plays some tricks on us, leading us around some weird paths to get keys, more set floor layouts than before as well. Pyrojack's longevity and clutch factor really helped me along the way. Reaching the top of the dungeon brings us to another emotional confrontation. Shadow Rise aggravates the real Rise by talking about how deeply she yearned for her idol status, which Rise denies. This initiates our boss fight. It then went pretty steadily for me until she started doing some crazy charge-up attacks and analyzing everything we could do, rendering our entire party useless. I took this as a cue to just start guarding at everything, which was a smart choice because that's what you have to do. You withstand a few attacks and no progress is made. You're taken out of the fight into a dialogue where the investigation team is torn out to continue. Teddie doesn't like feeling helpless, so while confiding in himself out loud, his instincts take over and he jumps in front of everyone, releasing a crazy unknown attack out onto Shadow Rise, knocking her down. Teddie becomes all raggedy and flattened after this, kinda like a plushie that you'd see getting vacuumed on one of those satisfying TikTok videos. Everyone is shocked by Teddie's bravery, but in this confusion, a really creepy Shadow Teddie emerges, telling Teddie that he is nothing. The truth isn't worth searching for, because all it'll do is hurt him in the end. You'd think that Teddie, having been around for all these other shadow confrontations, would have just been able to accept this fact and move on right away. But no, he's adamant that searching for the truth is what he wants, and the battle with Shadow Teddie begins. Rise comes to and says that she thinks she can help the investigation team out in this fight, quickly accepting herself in the act. She comes to the terms that the idol Rosette and what she thinks is the real Rise Fujikawa are both the real Rise, and that there's more to her than just one of them. I originally thought this meant that she'd replace one of my active party members, but instead she took on the role of the navigator, like what Teddie's been doing this whole time, letting us know of weaknesses, resistances, and chiming in with information that you already knew. Stuff like that, but in a much more appealing way. Shadow Teddie's fight was purely formulaic, and I perceived it as more of a way to convey how Teddie feels than an actual boss fight, especially since Teddie's existence is still entirely an enigma to us at this point. Anyways, you get through some insta-kills by blocking, pound him for about 20 minutes, and boom, you're done. Teddie gets his persona, Rise is safe, we're all good. Rise does however mention that she sensed a particularly powerful presence from the Shadow Teddie. Maybe there's something more at play here than just some inner loss. So after I got Teddie and Rise into my group in the real world, it was about midnight and I was streaming everything. I was leaving the next morning for Las Vegas to visit some family for a few days. I was so in love with everything going on in the game at this point that I didn't want to leave. I decided to make the most of my time before departing and focus on getting as many social links up as possible. I started off by trying out Risei's for 2 reasons. 1, Teddie's goes up through story progression, and 2, Risei's role as a party member was entirely different from everyone else's, and I was curious because for normal party members you unlock some perks as you raise their social links, such as being able to perform follow-up attacks or cure status ailments, and since Risei is a navigator, I needed to know what would happen if I got closer with her. I started Risei's social link and instantly loved her character. I went from not having a social link to maxing her out and romancing her before going to bed that night. This is largely in part to quickly noticing that the perks I was getting by bonding with Risei were beyond useful. Both of these aspects enticed me so much that I kept going. And keep in mind that she was my first maxed out social link. I just covered Yumi earlier because she's a side character and I met her earlier. Her social link is started by her asking to have a show her around town since she doesn't want to be alone. And with her celebrity status, it makes enough sense. She's very open about her feelings, not only in the social links but in front of the party too. In her first actual social link event, she begins to talk about how lonely she was in the past, but she quickly realizes what she's doing and decides to lighten the mood instead. I really like that they showed Risei's rationality with this decision. In the next social link event, she deals with lots of fan encounters, and while a bit agitated when telling them she isn't Rosette, she's satisfied to be normal now, which I think ties in with her stopping herself in her tracks earlier. She doesn't want to mess things up and lose that shot at a normal life that she has now, despite, solving a serial murder case and having a persona. When walking her home after eating out, we ran into a man posted up outside of her house. It was her manager, Naoto Inoue. He begs for her to return to the agency so she can fill the role that he so strongly believes is meant for her. Risei wants him off her back, so she says that her initial hiatus is now an indefinite stop because she plans on marrying me after high school. The ploy seems to work and Inoue skedaddles. Risei apologizes for using me in that way, to which I reply that I didn't mind. She's appreciative, but acknowledges that it's a bad thing if she becomes too dependent on my character. At our next hangout, she asks us about if I feel like I'm pushing up a front sometimes. She then talks about how her grandma says that she's like tofu, because Risei looks fragile, but is resilient. Risei feels that in a sense, tofu's incredible, and that she's the opposite. She only became an idol when a family member submitted her into a competition and she won in a way that Risei felt like was left entirely up to chance. Learning about how she was viewed as insignificant and not having any expectations because of her shyness as a kid was really heartbreaking. She thought that she'd finally be able to make some friends if she became the most popular around, but all those relationships weren't real to her. They felt fabricated because she was just a character made to be sold by her agency. She asked if her idol status is why I hang out with her, and when I denied it, she looked shocked. She talks about how after her idol debut, the bullying at school stopped, but people only cared about Rosette, not Risei Kujikawa, because at least when she was being bullied, she enjoyed her time when she was left alone. She stops herself in her tracks again, realizing that now she can help people with her powers and working towards being a Risei that everyone can like. Inoue caught me alone on the way home from an outing with Risei and gave me a fan letter with her. Risei comes back and is annoyed that he still won't give in about her returning. The letter is from a girl who adored Rosette because of an anti-bullying campaign that truly resonated with her. This girl's letters were always a good thing for Risei when she was down in the dumps about the rigorous idol work schedule. Risei asked if I could accompany her while she read the letter at Tatsuhime's shrine because she was scared, but the girl only asked that Risei get well soon and return to showbiz. This makes Risei ponder everything again, and then she acknowledges how great it feels to be freed from the shackles of being a public figure. She prompts that maybe getting married like she suggested before might not be too bad of an idea, to which I thought, god damn, I'm only now just getting to rank 6. When hanging out with Risei in Okina City, she planned a day out that honestly sounds like something I would love to do. Outfit shopping. Having a fashionista style you isn't exactly every opportunity, so reading that was our next move was exciting. Unfortunately though, 2 passersby were gossiping about Kanami Mashita, or Kanamin, an idol who was a junior to Risei. She's essentially nabbing every opportunity that Risei dropped, and the boys' bad-mouthing of Risei sullies her mood. So we go back to Inaba where we run into Nanako. Risei asks Nanako some questions about if she really likes Risei. Isn't she different from TV? Things of that sort. Nanako lets her know that she's just Risei, and she'll like her regardless of if she's an idol or not, even when compared to Kanami. Nanako runs off and Risei is frustrated with herself. She doesn't know why she would ever want to sacrifice her real self when she can just be accepted by those who care about her like the investigation team. The stark confusion turns her into talking about her lonesomeness in the industry again, and she reiterates that she doesn't want to be alone. So I stuck around until dark to satiate that for her. The last 3 social link events are fully voiced. The mayor barges into a conversation I'm having with Risei outside of Sozai Daigaku, and as he lets up, Inoue steps up to us. No breathing room per usual. Risei denies his request to return for showbiz for a final time. Inoue starts gassing up Kanamin and says that she'll be even more popular than Rosette, but simultaneously talks about all of Risei's good points and natural talents for acting. Risei becomes extremely emotional after Inoue eggs her on just to get a denial out of her. Her unstable mental state makes her feel like she's lost everything. Fear and melancholy overtake her. While bawling, she asks for me to stay here by her side. Even if I was already in a relationship with someone else, this scene was too hard for me to say anything other than okay to. This is when the game told me that my relationship with Rise had become intimate, meaning that there would be a few special events with her so long as I didn't change that. When we met atop the hill again, we talked about how Rosette is Rise too, and that there's also the homicide detective self. She doesn't want to run away from any part of herself anymore. She finally accepts that Rosette wasn't a fabrication, but an integral part of who she is. She expresses her gratitude for meeting us and goes home for the day. The final social link event starts off in my bedroom, where she parallels her role as a navigator, reporting to herself about the status of our room. She asks me about the goods in question, and when I tell her that I don't have any risque magazines, she says that she'll bring her own cute swimsuit one for me. I mean, that's a unique opportunity for a teenager to have, I guess. Rise then goes off on a tangent about how she's going to return to showbiz for everyone. Herself, Inoue-san, and everyone else too. Which is awesome for Inoue, because that inspired the plot and creation of Persona 4 Dancing All Night, a spin-off based off of Persona 4. She hands me a signed photo of her and I that I really wish I could see, because that just sounds too cute. I was also a bit bummed to know that this was a trophy item of sorts to show that I maxed out her social link and not a decoration I could put up in my room like the Jack Frost doll. She's not going to try and run from anything anymore, and she's proud of all the Riseis inside of her. And something else is going on inside of her too. Her persona Himiko evolves into Kanzeon. Every member of the investigation team undergoes this type of transformation at social link rank 10. She then turns beet red, struggling to confess for me, talking to herself again about how she's done it countless times on television. She eventually gets a little bit out about how I'm special to her and says she's going to definitively be herself and that I found that for her, and that she's going to begin to like herself because I found the good in her. She then awkwardly talks to herself about wrapping it up like a TV set and not knowing what to do next. Then the screen goes dark and the day passes by. As the social link went on, discovering who Rise was and picking her apart was something I enjoyed more with her than any other video game character. It felt so real and feasible, listening to a friend about problems, sticking it out with them, adding a few words throughout here and there. I had thoroughly enjoyed it, as I did with everyone, but Risa Kuchikawa was a character that really just hit different for me, which is why I went into so much more detail with her than I will with anyone else to save everyone their precious time. Before I get to their social links that I maxed out, since I did kind of go crazy here, I'm going to cover those that I initiated but didn't max out during this time. Working at the local daycare got us a social link with Eri Minami. She's the stepmom of Yuta, a kid that we watch over at the daycare. I didn't get far with her because I didn't feel any real reason to allocate time to her over anyone else. She's in the same boat with my man Ko, but Ko's a lot cooler. Eri's main conflict is that she's a stepmom and her husband is always gone for work, so she feels very distant from Yuta and wants to change it. An inspiring motive honestly, but less interesting in comparison to other people. I'll probably grab her social link in New Game Plus. Margaret from the Velvet Room. She's got the Empress Arcana. I honestly was really interested in doing her social link. The only reason I didn't actually follow through with it though is because she requires a lot of specific conditions to move forward in her social link. Most of, if not all of them, I'm not really sure, because I don't want to look and spoil myself, require having specific personas with specific skills, which is why I never even got to level 2 with her. I didn't really want to go spend some of my free time going into the TV world if I didn't have to, which is also why I didn't do every side quest in the game. If I went into the TV, I was going to get a lot done. I was also really tight on money for most of my playthrough, so I didn't want to buy personas just to fuse them, just to get a social link that I wasn't even sure would be worth the investment in comparison to other people like members of the investigation team or ones that would go up while also raising my stats and giving me money via work. It's unfortunate that my time was as limited as it was, because I feel like I definitely struck out by not getting closer with Margaret. Now for the social links that I did max out during this phase of downtime. Miss Yukiko Amagi was my second level 10, mainly because Yosuke was too hard to get a hold of at this time. At least, it always felt like he was busy. Yukiko's social link starts off with her wanting to get better at cooking. Pretty basic. I offered to try out her cooking if she wanted me to which she was delighted. I learned, though, through getting to know her, that this is because she wants to be prepared to be independent. Yukiko is still very on the fence about her inheritance of the Amagi Inn, despite having a great community there and a very secure future in doing so. She wants to get out and spread her wings, kind of like her winged persona, Konohana Sakuya, which, by the way, will evolve into Amaterasu at the end of the social link, her shadow's boss, and her pet bird that you learn about in the Persona 4 anime. A good chunk of these social link events are composed of Yukiko trying to decide if she's going to leave or not. By getting to know my character more, Yukiko realizes that I've been helping her a great deal, and so have the others at the inn, and leaving them behind in bad blood just doesn't sit right with her. In the end, what makes her fully realize her love for the Amagi Inn is how vehemently she defends the establishment when being pestered by sleazy reporters. She soft confessed to me, which was the hardest part of it all. I really like Yukiko. I really like everyone, honestly. But I was already with Rise, and I preferred Rise, and cheating would make me feel bad, even in a video game, so I just had to friend zone her. Next social link that I maxed out this period was Chie Satanaka. We started out helping Chie train for fights in the TV world since her weapon type is shoes. She just kicks stuff. Not as cool as Kanji using a chair, but kicking is still pretty cool. We train a few times at Samegawa Riverbank and are occasionally approached by Takeshi, a faceless NPC who is acquainted with Yukiko and Chie in the past. Takeshi is basically just being a weirdo over time, asking questions about Yukiko, and then he talks to himself about how he wants to get with her. A bit later, while celebrating a successful training session with some meat, we heard from some police that some teenage delinquents have been harassing others in the area lately. Enraged by this, Chie presses some of the bullies who are actually messing with Takeshi and saves the day. Next time we see them, they verbally threaten to jump Chie, but end up chickening out. This is my opening to get with Chie. But exactly like Yukiko, I friend-zoned her, but I didn't need the power of love to make Tomo evolve into Suzuka Gongen. Well, platonic love, yes, but romantic feelings aren't necessary for that big power-up. Chie's social link really reminded me that you don't have to do anything crazy to have a genuine bond with people. I literally spent most of the social link events at the riverbank standing next to her as she kicked around. A lot of what makes a good friendship is the chemistry you have with people. I see people overlooking this a lot nowadays. People not wanting to keep a relationship going because they don't see value in it or something like that. If that's how you roll, that's how you roll, but I don't think I can ever shun out someone that I like to be around without any reason. And I don't need a reason to keep them around either. If you make me happy, then you make me happy. Yosuke's social link is largely composed of bromance and reminiscing. The main thing I picked out of it, though, were his feelings that he brought up about Saki. Even if her kindness was just a charade, he still felt like he wanted to make her smile. Yosuke also confides in us about his jealousy of everything. Our powers, abilities in combat, leadership, everything that seems to line up for us as the main character. He then declares that we need to punch him so that way we can get even for his jealousy. We duke it out like Naruto and Sasuke at the end of Shippuden, which ends in a tie. Also, like the end of Shippuden. I find this even funnier because Yosuke's persona Jiraiya, who shares the name with the pervy sage who is Naruto's mentor, becomes the persona Susanoo, one of Sasuke's later abilities. Yosuke and Sasuke also have very similar hairstyles and similar names, and Yuri Lowenthal voices them both in English. Really coincidental, but really cool. Yosuke's social link events weren't particularly interesting to me, but I love a good guy character. Just a guy who does guy stuff. Yosuke confiding in me was just a bonus to get a little background knowledge on his selfless guyness. I really admire Yosuke's unwavering willpower when it comes to helping people, even if some of his takes are really dated and he can be really weird at times. The final social link I did in this period was Sayoko Uehara, the nurse who's of the Devil Arcana. You do all your social linking with her while you're working your part-time job at a hospital as the janitor at night, which requires level 3 diligence. I ended up doing this a lot because I wanted money, plus it raises courage. I didn't really care about Sayoko's social link until about rank 5 or 6. Even when we were introduced to the Death Arcana character, I just didn't care. I really was just about my bucks for the first chunk of this social link, and I'm glad to say that I stuck it all out. Sayoko's approach with our character changes a bit. She starts out being very seductive and pushy, which I found pretty uncomfortable, but as time went on, she kind of just began to vent to me about getting transferred to this hospital because she got too close with a married doctor at her last job. Later on, she gives us some actual interesting information which helped me understand her more. A child that she harbored a deep and genuine care for her last hospital had passed away. Not knowing how to take it, she overworked herself to distract herself from the grief. She eventually passes out during one of the social league events because of this. She realizes that her overworking was a form of escapism that she inflicted upon herself because she couldn't face her truth, and she thanks our character for helping her realize this. She tells us that she will soon be transferring hospitals, and that's the last that we ever see of her. Now that I'm done with social links for a bit, Teddie officially moves in with Yosuke, which, when further elaborated on in Persona 4 Arena and Persona Q, it's confirmed that he lives in Yosuke's closet. The deal is that he gets to stay at Yosuke's house if he works as a mascot at Junes, which works out really well, honestly. My only question is, what does everyone in Inaba think when a random white guy just spawns there? Does no one find that strange? The only time that I know of it being questioned is in Persona 4 Arena, where Junpei from Persona 3 goes, "Whoa, a white guy!" Remember that stalker guy who was poking around Risei's crib? Yeah, he wasn't the real killer. It was obvious enough to me because of two main facts. He didn't have a character portrait, which every important character has. You'd know that the killer would have that for sure. And the other being that there was no mystery surrounding him. He was just a guy. If we were trying to solve a case, why would a nameless NPC be the culprit? It made no sense to me right away, and my very to easy make hunch was confirmed when a cutscene played showing off another body hung upside down on a water tower. This really caught me off guard. The man wasn't on the Midnight Channel, there was no warning at all. This sent our friends into a tizzy as it broke many holes in the theories that we had to catch the killer so far. Things spiraled out so much when we found out that the victim was King Moron himself, our homeroom teacher. Chie calls us up and we have a meeting at Junes where Yosuke lays it all out for us. Asking Teddie about what's happened on the other side, it confirms us that no one went into the TV world recently. We have some serious investigation to get down to, and so does Naoto Shirogane, the detective prince that we saw during Kanji's case. Naoto's appearance startles everyone, as he interjects into our brainstorming, calling what we do a game. Risei gets TO'd and tells Naoto that it isn't a game to us. This obviously rustles Naoto's jimmies as he starts moping about how detectives are just tools that get pushed aside when there's no need for them to solve cases anymore. Kinda rough, but I kinda just sat through that scene with a confused look. Naoto looked down on us and got retaliation right away, but he was the one who started moping. I don't really get that. Said investigation has to wait though, because we have school. There's an assembly where the school announces King Moron's death officially, and out of this whole grim situation, there's one slight glimmer of hope. Your new homeroom teacher could be someone better, but we have Yosuke Hanamura in our class, and I'm convinced that he's the unluckiest guy in Inaba because he never catches a single dub. Our replacement teacher is the arrogant, voluptuous, and admittedly washed up Noriko Kashiwagi. It's safe to say that her personality aligns with Hanako's. They're both very full of themselves without really having much to flaunt, and Kashiwagi's presence immediately gets all of 2-2 even more bummed out.
Boy, what the hell, boy?
After a bit of investigating, we catch wind that the police have apprehended a suspect in the case. Everyone simmers down a bit and decides to leave things to the police for a bit. But that gets the conversation going. Wasn't this too big for the police in the first place? I mean, we're the only ones who could go into the TV, we're the only ones who have personas, and we're the only ones who knew what was really happening. Becoming dissatisfied with what happened, everyone prepares to make our next move. But first, we have finals. I 100% this set of tests, which got me a lot of clout at school and some allowance from Dojima, so I really recommend remembering what comes up during the classroom sequences. After finals is summer vacation. It's finally here. We have summer, festivals, beaches, and fireworks. But they all have to wait. There's something going on in the Midnight Channel. The beady-eyed boy with barely any boundaries is there, and he's taunting everyone to catch him if they can. Obviously, we rally the troops to make our move, but because we don't really know much about the kid, we have to do some digging. Asking around the shopping district gets us some clues. He used to work at Sozai Daigaku, and he has a classmate that shows up in the shopping district sometimes who's showing around his yearbook photo. We meet said classmate and see his picture. His name is Mitsuo Kubo. Going into the TV world with this newfound intel, Risei can now pinpoint Mitsuo's location. Looks like his game of cat and mouse is about to be up. And speaking of games, Mitsuo pulls a "My life is like a video game" with his dungeon. It's called Void Quest, which I'll get into explaining the etymology of in a moment. This dungeon is themed after a classic turn-based RPG, and as you progress through the floors, you hear Mitsuo talking to a narrator about things like wanting attention and stat boosts for killing Mayumi Yamano, Saki Konishi, and Kinshiro Moroka. There's a lot of time-consuming puzzles in this dungeon. I say puzzles with air quotes because you can't really do too much in the dungeon space other than walk and swing, but you do have some things like guessing paths and warping, so it's solid enough for Persona. One of these puzzles leads you to a chest with an item called the Orb of Darkness, which is used to unlock the door on the top floor. This, coupled with the name Void Quest and Mitsuo's upcoming tantrum, shows that he just wanted to fill a void in himself to make himself feel important, whether that be in a good or a bad way, which is exactly why he resorted to killing for attention. I find this little detail a little off though, because in the anime, Mitsuo's mom sounds very caring when she calls for him. She has like one line, but I still could sense some real care in her voice. She calls for him when he rages at the computer in his room and bragging online about being the Inaba killer with no one believing him. This scenario isn't shown in game, but it very well lines up with all that happens. He laughs maniacally when we confront him, but is simultaneously infuriated at his shadow, who refuses to utter anything besides calling Mitsuo nothing. Mitsuo's explosive disagreement with this reinforces the whole void-filling thing that he has going on with him. He hits the "you're not me," and his shadow takes form. A baby with a big-ass head and a ring of code around it. I don't really know, it's gibberish in a blocky font. I can't really understand it, but it fits the gamer theme. The baby forms a giant voxel-based sprite dubbed Mitsuo the Hero, which serves as a shield for the big-headed baby, with a chiptune remix of the normal boss theme and attacks that are straight from an RPG. Attack, which swings his sword, Item, which sets off a bomb that does damage and causes exhaustion, and Spell, which attacks everyone with magic. He's really pulling the video game! I think that Mitsuo's name choice is pretty genius. Let me break down why. The characters for Mi and O in his given name mean beauty and hero respectively. I think that this weighs in on him a lot since it's confirmed that he's been bullied for his appearance, and he can't face the fact that he has no apparent special traits or talents to make him stick out, which rips the void in his heart even wider. For his family name, the character is Kubo, meaning long time and protect. In the real world, you cannot really pick the last name of the family you're born into, but I think as a writer for the characters, it's a pretty genius choice of a name. The way I interpret it is that the protect shows that deep down he really wanted to be a hero, but he couldn't persevere and find any way to really make any positive moves in his life. The long time, once again, according to my own interpretation, is a double entendre for how long the void inside him is built up and for how long he's going to be serving for a murder charge, especially at a young age. I think it's a bit of a stretch, but it could also be completely viable. Kubo is a fairly common name in Japan, so it's more likely they just picked a random name, but I like to speculate. After 3 attempts, I was finally able to thwart Mitsuo's shadow, and he doesn't get a persona. He still can't accept either the emptiness he harbors or the true consequences of what he's done by taking a life. We take him back to Junes and hand him over to the police. Now that Mitsuo's been apprehended, summer vacation can finally start. You celebrate with your friends with a chill post-rest hangout at Junes, where everyone decides that it's best if everyone comes to our house since Dojima will be busy dealing with Mitsuo's case tonight. We phone Nanako and ask her what she wants for dinner, to which she answers omurice. Yosuke is later to hear this because that meal is impossible to screw up like good old Mystery Food X. Before heading home, we go shopping for some ingredients. Chie and Yukiko are already not to be trusted in the kitchen, but they want to have a competition. Rise is in on the idea too, and she ends up picking out some foie gras. The delicacy status that this ingredient has is no surprise to me since she was making bank as an idol. Everyone gathers at our house, and we have a warm, cheery atmosphere as everyone prepares to chow down. The most important thing that happens here is Teddie's promise to Nanako. Since he doesn't know how to cook, he keeps Nanako company while everyone prepares dinner. Teddie gloomily talks about how he has to leave soon since we fulfilled our promise to solve the case. Nanako helps out Teddie by asking him to make a promise to her, to stick around so he can play with her sometimes. Teddie happily obliges, agreeing to her promise. Yosuke and our character end up overhearing their conversation and try to let him know that we don't really care about that anymore because he's a good friend of ours, but we're cut off by Rise finishing up her omelet and pushing Yosuke out of the way. Taste testing time arrives with Nanako as the judge, and one by one she goes through trying the omelets. She says they're all good, but everyone knows very well that Chie and Yukiko aren't to be trusted, so something must be up. When it becomes Chie's turn to be taste tested, Teddie jumps the gun and tries it himself, where he gives us one of the most expertly delivered lines in the game.
How is it?
Wow! This tastes awful!
Rise's cooking ends up not only knocking Yukiko out because it sucks so much, but it's too spicy for poor Nanako-chan. Nanako realizes that her big bro made some omurice too, so she enthusiastically tries out ours and loves it. We easily won that contest. Everyone else complains about not having anything in their bellies though, so Yosuke suggests that we all go to the local summer festival, which sounds super fun, but I don't get the purpose of doing that now, because I finished Mitsuo's dungeon on the first day, July 29th. Even if you wait until the last possible day, August 12th, the festival doesn't start until August 20th. We're obviously going to eat before then, so Yosuke's suggestion does not make any sense at all. It was around now that I believe that I had just finished the mysterious Miss Marie's social link, so time to graze over that really quickly. Marie did not exist in the vanilla version of Persona 4. She was added as a second Velvet Room attendant in Golden. She has no memories, and she's really bored sitting in the Velvet Room all day. I'm not sure if all day is the right term to use though, since the Velvet Room exists outside of time itself. It's a weird existence, and I'm not really sure how it works, but it sucks to be in there. There's a lot of proof in her boredom and all the poems that she writes. She ends up leaving them on the floor, like really often, but never meaning to, which kinda leads me to believe that Igor or Margaret are pulling some strings to make her leave them out, because she becomes a modeled tsundere when you read them. When hanging out with Marie, you show her all the spots in and around Inaba, one at a time, and as time goes on, you start to learn what little there is to know about her. She came to with her only memory being her name, and she has an old bamboo comb. It was with her before she gained consciousness, that's all she knows for sure. Even Margaret doesn't seem to know anything when asked about it, and Igor won't talk at all. Your friends bump into you when you're out with her, and they all think she's your girlfriend at first because why wouldn't they? And Marie slowly becomes integrated into your friend group. Because she was added in Golden though, she never really does anything in the main story with the investigation team, which feels a little weird, but I see why they had to end up making this decision. In the Persona 4 Golden anime though, you see her coexist with everyone in a much more fleshed out and natural way. The Golden animation is basically the Marie show though. There are only 12 episodes and it skips over a lot of things in the main game, only covering new events added in Golden and Marie's social link. If you like Persona 4, then just watching the normal anime is fine, and you can watch the Golden animation after if you're either as deep into Persona 4 as I am, or if you're just a big Marie fan. Either way, I think it's worth your time to squeeze as much out of this game as you can. As Marie meets everyone, we start to get to some interesting topics, like what youth is. Yosuke's answer contains things like not being superficial in relationships, confiding in one another, and things like that. He also mentions facing your true self, at which Marie becomes disgruntled and lost. She still doesn't have any memories, so trying to comprehend that gives her a headache. Another social link event that I thought was really interesting was the one where Marie, Kanji, Rise, and myself all went to visit Kanji's mom and ask about Marie's antique comb. All she was able to tell us about it was that she's never seen anything like it before and that a museum might know something. Something that she taught us all about combs though is that they're a symbol of separation. Marie then asks me later about what museums and galleries are, and that leads us to asking Master Daidara about the antique comb. He says it's completely unique and he doesn't know a single thing about it. He can't even tell what type of bamboo it is. He says, it's almost as if it's from another world. And Marie's brain starts hurting, which puts her back into her little tsundere mood when you try and check up on her. This much tells me that she's okay. A bit later, I meet her at the hilltop again. She confides in me that she feels like she has no real memories and she feels like she might fade away, and that it could maybe be prevented if she could just remember something. She starts to lose track of her own words and takes in the view instead. She recognizes Sozai Daigaku and asks me to bring her back there sometime, to which I told her that she remembered something. It takes her a second, but she realizes that she successfully made a memory of you and her. She becomes overjoyed, flustered, and relieved. A really cute scene. If you choose, you can romance her here by confessing to her and then hugging her, but I obviously did not do that. Marie's the only main character that I didn't have any strong feeling of relation to, but she's a very important member of the Persona 4 Golden cast nonetheless. Spending time with her and trying to help her out was all worth it. Maxing out Marie's social link does more for us later, so I'm going to leave this bit on hold for now. Time for the summer festival. The girls, Nanako-chan included, show up a bit late to the festival. Their tardiness is largely in part to getting dressed in beautiful traditional Japanese yukata. Dojima comes by to scoop Nanako away from us, and now it's time for the stench of awkward teenage confrontation to thicken. Teddie gives a weird third-person depiction of couples at the festival, which confuses everyone. He wants to get everyone into pairs to commemorate the girls getting all dressed up in yukata and make some worthwhile memories. Surprisingly, the girls agree to this. Rise will come on to your character regardless of relationship status, but I didn't know that initially and thought that was a cool little quirk. The girls give us the floor to make our decisions on who goes with who, so the boys huddle up. There's 3 girls and 4 guys. It's uneven. Yosuke excludes Teddie from the equation, which leaves him flabbergasted, and he tries to manipulate Kanji into backing out entirely, but then steps up on his own and says that he wants Chie, Yukiko, and Rise all to be his partners so no one will be left out and lonely. This obviously makes no sense, since it conflicts entirely with the whole pairing thing, plus, me and the boys are just out here by our lonesome. Chie and Yukiko find Teddie's declaration sweet, and Rise is bummed out but decides to comply anyways. The girls get instant karma for going along with Teddie's shenanigans though, all yelling at him for messing up in different ways. Luckily for us though, the game makes up for that BS entirely, with the first real date event of the game. Depending on who you romanced, in my case Rise, will hit you up to go to the festival, just the 2 of you the following day. I linked up with Rise, and she first takes me to the shrine to make a wish. When asked what I wished for, I chose the boldest option, to get closer to you, at which she said she's also wishing for, and she might have grander plans than me in that field. While walking around, a candied apple vendor asks if we would like to get a candied apple. The man says, one for your boyfriend too, which really got Rise going. We got some lottery tickets for participating in the festival. We share some okonomiyaki and play a fish catching game with her as well. We're done doing the activities, so we head to the Torii gate for our lottery drawing. Rise mentions how she wants something super weird so she can remember the day she got it as this one. A take that I really love, because I like collecting weird little trinkets too, and even if the day wasn't particularly interesting, I'm always able to remember it when I rediscover the item in my room. Rise got a foolish looking cell phone strap that she makes fun of, only to realize that the character is modeled after her due to wearing the same clothes that she wore on her tour the year prior. Well, I got a book, and we end off the date by Rise telling our character thank you for choosing her over the other girls today. Very sweet. The next stop on our summertime adventure is a day at Shichiri Beach. Yosuke phoned me up bright and early in the morning, declaring that today would be the perfect day to go to the beach. I obviously say yes, and everyone gets on their motorized scooters to make the trek there. Everyone except for Kanji and Teddie, that is. The beautifully animated cutscene depicting the bike ride shows Kanji working his elbow grease on a normal bike and Teddie on roller skates, and this is all while going uphill. They put so much energy into going uphill that once they plateau, they end up lapping everyone, which Chie turns into a race to the water. Upon our arrival, Yosuke is getting butterflies about seeing the girls in swimsuits, and when the girls come out, Yosuke is in awe, questions his luck, and shows his appreciation of summer. Questioning his luck was a fair choice to make, because by now we all know that Yosuke is always being handed L's. Kanji struts out in a Speedo which traumatizes him and his extremely fragile masculinity. While he, Kanji, and Rise argue about a bunch of nonsense, Teddie invites Chie, Yukiko, and myself into the water. The real fun begins here. Seeing everyone swim around and hearing all their voices overlap each other made for a genuine feeling of going out with a solid group of buddies. I love that touch. Yosuke and I hop out the ocean to grab drinks for everyone, when we overhear the girls screaming about Teddie getting too hands-on. Kanji chivalrously drags the hormone-fueled freak back to shore, when we notice that something is very, very wrong. Kanji swapped his bathing suit for his birthday suit. Kanji is Teddie's only protection as the girls start to make their way back to land. Last second though, Yosuke gives Kanji some seaweed to cover up, with the excuse that we are reenacting the birth of Venus. Quite the clever excuse, but not the one that makes the girls feel any less weirded out, so they scream and run back to the water in a rather rational fashion. Fast forward to sunset and we're having a nice, philosophical talk with Yosuke and Kanji. One thing leads to another, and Yosuke gets way ahead of himself, suggesting a ski trip in the winter, which sounds like a blast to me. While this is all happening, Teddie and the girls are playing in the sand, something that surprises me a ton considering how weird Teddie was just a few hours earlier. Everyone gathers their things, and we ride home. As cliche as a beach episode may be, the execution and atmosphere made for an unforgettable summer memory. After this event, we can now go on bike rides with our friends to the hot springs. You can learn a new skill, or relearn a forgotten one by doing this. I never really had a use for any of the skills I was prompted to get here. However, the biggest game changer here was with Rise. Since she can join in on all-out attacks as an in-battle capability, we get to increase the strength here as opposed to learning new skills. I went there with her the maximum amount of times, which was an insane boost, and I can't recommend it enough. When you see Rise on her bike, go with her. The final big event of summertime arrives, the Fireworks Festival. Our morning begins with a call from Rise, and she asks if we're free for the Fireworks Festival tonight. I suggested that just she and I go, because I thought it was another date event, but after being called the natural-born playboy, she lets me down easy. Her reasoning was because Yosuke wouldn't just ignore a fun opportunity like this, so it would be impossible to avoid a big group scenario. At least she doesn't hate me though. Speaking of people who don't hate me though, Nanako came to our room to let me know that she's going to play to friends, and I bring up the fireworks to her. She tells me that her father's going to bring her by when he's off work. The rest of my day is instantly skipped, and it's evening now. Teddie's nowhere to be seen because he accidentally hit on Hanako somehow, and Yosuke just doesn't care to wrangle him back up because Teddie flaunted Yosuke's adult magazines to his parents at breakfast. Rise calls him out for a lack of social awareness by talking about this in front of some girls, to which Yukiko asks,
Is he not talking about his secret savings?
No, Yukiko, it isn't. Teddie pulls up flattened just as he was after fighting his shadow, but then runs away when Nanako and Dojima arrive out of embarrassment. Teddie runs back into frame almost instantly and brashly makes a move on Nanako for some reason. Before you know it, the fireworks start and we're blessed with another anime cutscene. Time for a micro-Japanese history lesson. Chie yells out Tamaya, which is a Japanese phrase equivalent to an ooh or an ah, but exclusively for viewing fireworks. This originated in the Edo period where there were two firework makers, Tamaya and Kaguya. Yelling their names is a way of showing appreciation for the fireworks. In the Japanese version, Teddie yells Kumaya, mixing his name Kuma, which means bear, with Tamaya. In the English dub, Teddie yells Tedmaya, which does the same thing. It's an extremely clever move made by the localization team. Regardless of which language you play in though, Nanako joins in the parodying, and Yosuke tells her to cut it out because it can be seen as disrespectful. When the fireworks are over, Dojima takes Nanako home, and we all sit at the hilltop reminiscing of our summer memories. It even becomes apparent to everyone in the group that you and Rise went on a date to the summer festival. Yosuke's jealousy has reached a new high. Kanji points out that maybe inviting Naoto would have been a nice gesture, especially since you were working on the same case together. Everyone says their piece about how it's a little late for that, but it would have been nice to have Naoto around. We eat dinner with everyone off screen, and then head home. To end off the fun part of summer, we have a micro event where all of our friends come over to the Dojima residence for some watermelon. Dojima already cut up the watermelon and split it with the neighbors, but everyone else wanted to bust it open together. We realized that summer really is over, and that we'd have to do everything next year if anything. Nanako seems to notice that you won't be a constant in her life at this time. When everyone's gone home, Dojima's in awe of the great friends that we've made so far, and I really like that little acknowledgement. For the last bit of summer vacation, the game forces you to help Nanako with their summer homework and grind it out. I can't really say much more about the summer events that I already have, but I really hold this section of the game dearly. I've made lots of similar memories with my friends over the years, and I think just about anyone would feel like this part of the game is very relatable or appealing. The nostalgia of summertime is something that I'll never get over, and I was given another unforgettable summer experience within just a matter of hours in Persona 4. School is back in session, and Naoto Shirogane is back on screen. After fading in and out for about 3 months now, Naoto has finally transferred to Yasogami High as a first-year student. When talking with Naoto, he tells us that he isn't comfortable with Mitsuo taking the blame. The method of Moroka's death was blunt trauma, and there were Mitsuo's fingerprints on the body. Mayumi Yamano and Saki Konishi were left without any traces, plus Mitsuo is only a high schooler. It's very unlikely that he would have been able to pull off a murder, let alone 2 without leaving any tracks behind, and if it were true, how did he screw up so royally on Moroka? Why wasn't Moroka ever on the Midnight Channel? There were too many inconsistencies lining up, and we then realized that Mitsuo was just a copycat killer. There wouldn't be time to investigate now though. The school trip is coming up, planned by Moroka just before his untimely death. We're headed for Tatsumi Port Island, and thanks to my Twitch chat, I was informed that this was actually the setting of Persona 3, which is honestly a really cool callback. Before we get into the contents of the school trip, I really don't want to do research for this school trip that will spoil my upcoming playthrough of Persona 3, so I might be skipping over a lot of the details and references that I'm unaware of. If you're interested in a Persona 3 video when I complete the game, which I'll probably stream on my Twitch by the way, then let me know. I might do that. If there's anything else stylistically that you think I should have changed for this video, then also let me know. I might do that. Okay, pace-breaking cut-in ends here. Gekkokan High School, the school from Persona 3. The principal's giving some lame speech that no one cares about and is just sleep-inducing honestly, until he passes the mic off to Chihiro Fushimi. She's a third year and the student council president, and also a romance option from Persona 3. Kanji and Yosuke drool over her while she talks about the cultural exchange between Gekkokan and Yasogami. The school is split up, but Chihiro lets us know that she forgot to distribute the schedule for today, so we do it for her. Chihiro tells us about how the speech was actually written by the girl who was the student council president in her first year. I don't know who she's talking about, but this is very obviously a Persona 3 reference. The schedule that Chihiro gave us assigned us to Mr. Edogawa's class, a teacher from Persona 3. He brings up that our school's name, Yasogami, means many gods, or 80 gods if you want to refer to the characters literally. He drops his initial lecture plan and tells us the tale of how Japan was created by the god Izanagi and the goddess Izanami. To summarize, Izanami died when giving birth to the fire god. Izanagi goes to the land of the dead to save her. Izanami says that she'll try to negotiate with the god of the underworld to see if she can go back with Izanagi. But his curiosity takes over and he sets his coma light to look around. Shocked at Izanami's maggot-covered appearance, he ran away. Izanami became enraged since he broke his promise, and she chased him all the way to Yomotsu Hirasaka, the entrance to the underworld. Izanagi seals the entrance with 2 giant boulders and wishes his wife farewell. Izanami threatens that if this were the treatment she would receive, then she would kill 1,000 humans a day, and in retaliation, Izanagi would give life to 1,500. After our lecture-filled day, we head to the Seaside Clamshell Inn. I believe this must also be a Persona 3 reference, but I'm not sure what it was in that game. Now though, it's a love hotel. Most of the crew is unaware of this, and Yosuke breaks character by stopping Rise when she tries to explain what it is. I mean, Yosuke not wanting to talk about getting all down and dirty? I found that pretty curious. What's even more curious though, is Teddie. He used his Juness paychecks to buy a ticket to Tatsumi Port Island, stalked outside of our hotel, and jumped right off the building across to catch up to us. Teddie wants to go on a date with Chie, and Yukiko, and Rise. Rise offers to show everyone around town tomorrow, so it's projected to become just another group hangout instead of a date like Teddie had envisioned. Kashiwagi catches us chatting with Teddie outside, and we convince her that he's a giant backpack. She also says that we should be careful when switching the lights on because we might make our bed spin. I love that this line was referenced in the Persona 4 anime. Day 2 of the school trip is really only just a night. We arrive at Club Escapade in the Polonia Mall, a location, you guessed it, from Persona 3. Upon walking in, we hear mass destruction from the Persona 3 soundtrack blasting, which is awesome. We run into Naoto on his way out, and he snarkishly asks if high schoolers such as ourselves are allowed in a nightclub, but he's here too for some reason. Anyways, everyone begs him to stay, and he eventually agrees. Rise hooks us up with an entire floor of the club to ourselves. She got it completely free since she had a secret show here 2 years ago, which was cancelled by a mysterious power outage. Not sure what the reference here is, but it's a very obviously placed one. Once we all get settled into our seats, we begin drinking, and things start to get a little crazy as Teddie, Yukiko, and Rise start acting all out of whack. Rise said that she told the staff not to put alcohol in the beverages, and she also demands that everyone plays the King's game since it's the adult thing to do. She goes on a mini whiny tangent about being treated differently and things not being fair to her due to her age when she was in the industry. Everyone reluctantly agrees to playing the game, but I think they all secretly wanted to do something exhilarating to remember anyways. To explain the King's game, everyone draws a chopstick and they're all numbered except for one. That one is the king. The king picks a number blindly and picks something for them to do. Teddie is the king the first round, and he declares that number 1 must smooch him. Number 1 being our character. Since he's seemingly intoxicated though, he just tackles Kanji and makes out with him off screen instead. Very clutch, especially if you're in a relationship like my character was. Teddie and Kanji are both out of the game now, and I've become the king. Everyone suggests different things for me to choose here. Resting on my lap, sitting on my lap, a hug, and giving a piggyback ride. I picked having someone rest on my lap, which coincidentally was Risei's option. If you picked sitting on your lap, you would get Chie, a hug from Yukiko, who goes the extra mile, and the piggyback ride is Yosuke, which is very silly. For the next round, Yukiko jumps the gun completely and asks Naoto to confess something that he doesn't want to. He obliges, but only on the condition that we answer something that he asks afterward. Naoto explains his family backstory since he claims to not have any embarrassing incidents. He comes from a long line of detectives, and that's how he manages to attain his position as one at only 15 years old. And as you'd probably expect from a detective, he asked us about the case and our involvement in it. Risei blabs on about how he saved kidnapping victims in the TV world, which shocks everyone, and our secret was out. Before anyone had a chance to react though, Yukiko terribly explains our powers with personas and how he fights shadows. Naoto thinks we're making a fool of him, and he lets us all know that we weren't drinking any alcohol at all. Club Escapade hasn't sold alcohol in over a year, so somehow Teddie, Yukiko, and Risei were all drunk off of the atmosphere the whole time. The final day of our school trip begins, and we only have until noon before we head back to Inaba. The gang eats at Hagakure Ramen, a place which, since they named it, I assume is also another direct reference to Persona 3. We all chat about the food, atmosphere, and Risei's ability to not be harassed in public when in Tatsumi Port Island. The scene is almost entirely full of banter, but Teddie makes it entertaining by snagging Yukiko's meal. We decided to dip and pick up a souvenir for Nanako, and as we leave, Teddie gives us a scare by not budging at all. We worry for a second that it was because he had been on our side for too long, but it's just that his tummy's full. We ditch him, and as we walk out, he whines about not having enough money for a return ticket. We get back home and give Nanako her souvenir. Dojima arrives home at around the same time and thanks us for getting her a gift. He also checks up on Naoto through us, asking us to become friends with him, which I planned on doing anyways. Our new buddy, Naoto, who by the way is voiced by Anna Graves, with Naoto being her breakout and only major role to my knowledge, appears in a publicly broadcasted interview soon after. One thing leads to another and we see Naoto on the Midnight Channel the next night. He is depicted on an operating table and his shadow is taunting the viewers, mentioning how a body-altering operation will soon begin. Our suspicions about Kubo were correct. The killer is still out and about. Angered by this, we try and find Naoto ASAP, but Risei can't track him. We ask around town for clues and get things that I already knew, but what matters is that Risei can finally pinpoint his dungeon, a giant underground laboratory. After breathing through this dungeon pretty quickly compared to any other one, I hit the deepest room where Naoto and his shadow are. Naoto's shadow taunts him about playing superhero and longing to grow up into a big boy. Naoto, like any rational soon-to-be party member, denies any and all claims from the shadow. Shadow Naoto then drops a truth bomb on us. Naoto was born female, which leads us to the conclusion that the body-altering operation was going to be a sex change. I thought that Naoto was a woman from her first appearance because I didn't read the placeholder name they gave her, being Slender Man. I got corrected later into calling her a man, but when the truth finally came out, I kinda popped off. I'm not gonna lie, I knew I was right. After defeating Naoto pretty easily, she lets the truth loose. Her parents were both detectives, which was inferable from the school trip, and they both died in the line of work. Naoto knows about how passionate they both were for solving cases, and she wants to do everything she can to carry on their legacy. Her biggest fear, however, is being treated unfairly due to being a woman. A kid too, but that'll pass with time. While putting all her feelings into words for us to understand her, she begins to further understand herself and realizes that her goal wasn't to change herself, but to strive for acceptance from others. She then gains her persona, Sukuna Hikona. Naoto's struggle with figuring out who and what she aspires to be is really interesting to me. The way that I see it, she so badly wants to be an overachiever and a hero because of her drive to earn the title that her family name carries, as well as fill up the shoes of various reference detectives that lie outside of Persona 4's source material. Her real issues are staying grounded and wanting to earn respect. Struggling with this as a young teen is already pretty normal, but coupled with Naoto being a girl in a game that was released in 2008 and set in 2011, in Japan no less, makes for a really inspiring story. Even with how late you have her join your group, I see a lot of what she has to offer as a character and why she's so popular. She's a great representative of what it feels like to be ready to make big moves, but being held back by things that you can't change. After Naoto's deadline, Yosuke comes to everyone with a scary piece of news. His residence in Inaba is at stake. Kanamine was scheduled to perform a big event in Inaba, but it all got cancelled at the last minute. He begs us all to help him because if this event fails and Junes loses a lot of money, the location could close down and Yosuke's family could be forced to move back to the city. Risei says she'll help, but only doing the bare minimum, and only if we all join her on stage too. Everyone agrees. We can't have the investigation team split up, especially now that we know that Mitsuo wasn't the true culprit. It's time to make a band, and everyone will have a part to play in it, so we gather as many instruments as we can and head to the band room, of which is a gong that Yukiko brought from her inn for Chie, because it sounds Chinese-ish. I really don't understand how this girl is supposed to be in the top of our grade. Anyways, our band consists of Yosuke on the guitar, me on the bass, Kanji on the drums, Teddie on assorted percussions, Chie on the trumpet, Yukiko on the saxophone, and obviously, we have Rise as our lead vocalist. Most of the group has no idea how to read music or play an instrument except for Naoto, Yosuke, and Rise. The practice begins and we're all absolutely abhorrent.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Motivation is lacking on day 2 of practice, but when Rise and I give a little bit of speech, although it was mostly Rise, everyone starts to level up and take things more seriously. The efforts are almost immediately fruitful. A band of wacky teenagers learning how to play instruments and play in a coordinated band in a weekend is probably the most wild piece of fiction in this entire story. Feeling accomplished, everyone is proud of how far they've come. Teddie's excited to be on TV, which gets everyone in a downer mood for a little bit, reminding them of the Midnight Channel and how it displayed things that they didn't want to have shown. The day of the concert arrives, after only 2 practices, and everyone is dealing with some stage fright before a show. I'm not scared though, and as Teddie says,
Now that's our sensei. He's got big brass balls.
which is such a left field comment that the man in the background is scared away. We have an amazing team bonding moment led by Rise's experience and powerful words, and we storm the stage.
You got yourself behind a door deep inside your heart again. You wanna hide, you wanna come out, going round and round. Thinking hard about it doesn't help you one bit. Say hello, you gotta say goodbye to thousand lies, yeah. Shout friends, just those words you really need. And let your voice be heard all over the world. Stand up when you hear a knock on the door. Kids, we come on out. Get ready for your true story.
The song performed is called True Story. I honestly really love this song, even more than a lot of the other vocal bangers that we have in this game. Laura Bailey's singing is amazing, and the message is very simple, but the delivery is excellent. The Japanese version actually has a whole second verse, but it isn't played in this cutscene. You can only hear it on streaming services, on official CDs, and in a remix in Persona 4 Dancing. I really recommend listening to the song in full if you can, or even check out the live version performed by the singers for Persona 3 and 4. It's a real treat. Our performance was impeccable. Everyone chants for an encore, but we only know one song. No one knows what to do, so Teddie just goes Super Saiyan and decides to crowd surf. Yosuke tries to get us all to follow Teddie's lead and escape, but the girls are not down for it. Except Yukiko, but Chie stopped her. You jump in with the guys and they all land terribly. Everyone dodged us. Only my character had a smooth landing, and Kanji was the first man to stand up on his face. With all the random side events that happened in this game, I think that this one was my favorite. The unrealistic standards were reached in such a way that it felt like it was right out of a movie. I saw a lot of people online complain about this event, with the reasoning being that it wasn't realistic. No clue how that's the one thing that you want to point out when you're playing a game where teenagers go in a TV to kill monsters. But whatever. This was the moment that made me know for sure that everyone was going to be friends forever, and it made my heart heavy with joy. The very next day, everyone met up at Junes again for a study session to prepare for our upcoming exams. Nanako and Teddie are here too, because they've got nothing else to do, and Teddie wanted to uphold his promise to Nanako. After a bit of banter, Teddie brings up that he's been doing research about who or what he really is in manga, the internet, TV, and a library. And despite having no concrete leads, he does have a hunch about who he is. He theorizes that the TV world was born from the minds of humans on our side, and he believes that he's a special being over there. Naoto poses an interesting question though. What is Teddie's first memory? Apparently, it's when he approached me and Yosuke in the TV world, and he had no prior concept of time or days. But Nanako just thinks that Teddie's a king, which gets him unreasonably excited. A week or so later, we finish our exams. After returning home from school, Nanako gives us an anonymous letter that was addressed to us. It has 3 words, no punctuation, and no trace of anything. Don't rescue anymore. Seriously confused and threatened by this, we decide to conceal it until we can show our friends in person. As the night passes over into day, an ominous cutscene plays with the man frantically scribbling at his paper as he murmurs to himself,
I'll protect you all from the madness of this world. I'll take you to a place where you can be at peace. Yes, it's much more peaceful than here.
During lunch the next day, we show our friends the letter. Naoto quickly gets her gears going and realizes that the contents of the letter aren't what's important, it's the existence. The killer knows exactly who's interfering with his plots, he delivered it to our address, and the address is also that of a police detective. The culprit's extreme confidence is a major red flag for us. We start brainstorming about how someone knows so much about us. Yosuke reminds us that Teddie can sense if people are involved in the TV world, and that he's been sensing someone watching us when we're on the other side. Since there's no real conclusions to be drawn so far, we all agree to just stay alert and bring the conversation to a more happy point. The school festival is coming up. Our class is the only one who hasn't decided what to do yet, but it's an unforgettable high school memory for anyone in Japan, so this is bound to be great. The last bit of free time before the school festival is when I started the last few social links that I'd get in my playthrough, bar one more that's locked behind story progression. First was Shu Nakajima of the Tower Arcana. She was a middle schooler who's actually an available social link from early May onward. The problem is that you need maxed out understanding to be able to tutor him, which is why it took me so long to get to him. I only ended up getting him to level 3, but my impression of him was that I don't really like him that much. He makes remarks about how he's smarter than everyone and questions our tutoring skills only to be proven wrong instantly. Even when making moves of compassion like sticking around for extra unpaid time, he just makes a weird remark. I don't really like him, and I only got as far as rank 3 for money purposes. I will say though that even though he's in like one episode of the anime, his portrayal there is a lot better, at least compared to what I saw of him. Even the earlier stages of the social link are just a lot more appealing in that way. I'll probably get him maxed out in my New Game Plus run. The final new social link that I got was Naoto Shirogane. I maxed her out pretty quickly, but her events were rather interesting. In order to initiate them, you need both max courage and knowledge. If you meet these requirements, then if you talk to a man in black in the shopping district, he will give you a white card and tells you to show it to her. This social link is about the Phantom Thief, a pre-planned reference to Persona 5 by the name I'd assume. He's broken into the Shirogane residence and stolen a few of Naoto's things. Nothing she cares about too much. However, it doesn't sit right with her that they're just being hidden around Inaba with clues for her to decipher, so she enlisted me to help her on the case. This social link has too many details and one-off things for me to really want to get into and summarize, but Naoto is presented with riddles, she talks them out with you, and you help her broaden her way of thinking by taking things more outside of the box than she already does, getting detective tools that she's crafted in her youth, rewarding you along the way. These don't do anything in-game, and they don't even fill your inventory. It's just to help revitalize Naoto's love of investigation. All a test concocted by her grandfather. The most important event in any Japanese high schooler's social life, the school festival. It really creeps up on you, Persona 4. If you don't check out the calendar, then you don't really know what's going to happen until only a little bit beforehand. Our class is the only one to not have decided what to do yet, so we make a vote in our classroom. The options are break room, video room, study room, and group date cafe. Almost everyone voted for the group date cafe out of curiosity, which shocks everyone. Yosuke submitted the idea as a joke and didn't expect to win. Chie is really annoyed at the verdict, but even more so because it's Yosuke's doing. A few days prior to the festival, a poster on the bulletin board of the first floor is attracting a lot of attention. Kashiwagi planned a beauty pageant for the school festival so she could run in it. Also on the list is Chie, Yukiko, Rise, and Naoto. Our group has a meetup on the roof during lunch, and Chie is livid because the girls can't back out. They trick Yosuke into admitting that he signed them up without their permission, and even then, there's no backsies. Yosuke explains that a popular girl, a detective, and an idol would all make for a fine show, which further angers Chie for not fitting in. This is that one other example that I was talking about way back at Yukiko's castle. Yosuke snitches on Teddie, saying that he's really excited to see all the girls on the big stage, and Naoto is trying to deal with the authorities to get out of it. Really, only Rise is fine with being in the pageant. Kanji aggressively tries to get Naoto to comply with the pageant, but fumbles his words. And this was the first instance that I can recall of Kanji crushing on Naoto. Yosuke is finally getting flack for his group date cafe idea. The male class rep makes Yosuke the head of the event, and he has to handle all the reception and related malarkey for all of those who sign up. No one really takes our joke idea seriously, so I end up being stuck on the committee with Yosuke. While working on the setup, a cross-dressing pageant is announced. Yosuke, Kanji, and ourselves were all signed up for it. A lot of students are openly expressing their disgust for the cross-dressing pageant, and that really took a jab at Yosuke's self-esteem. The boys band together and ask the girls why they signed us up for everything against our consent. Yosuke's fragile masculinity isn't built for anything like this. The girls reassure us that they're going to doll us up all fine and well. Our character actually has some dialogue options that are fine with this, and I picked these because I don't really mind doing stuff like this personally, plus I did something very similar at my own school festival in Japan. The first day of the school festival arrives and we're at the group date cafe. Absolutely zero activity. No one's even coming past our floor. Kanji coincidentally walks in to check on us, so he gets dragged into a mock event to hopefully attract some patrons. Since the only girls in here are Chie and Yukiko, I take stage and play the role of a girl too. We all engage in some seriously awkward conversation, exactly how I imagine mixers really go whenever I've seen them in anime. These sort of events seem too impractical and awkward for anyone to take seriously, and the group date cafe flopped, naturally so. Day 2 of the fest is much more lively than the last. It's pageant day. The gang gathers in an empty classroom together with Teddie sitting around bored enough that he entered himself in the pageant at the last second. Kanji's rocking a Marilyn Monroe inspired getup. Yosuke's got that slice of life anime side character vibe going on. Unlike Kanji though, he can't play the part and has a little outburst when interviewed on stage. The protagonist's look is pretty cool honestly, and Narukami's design works pretty good as a gender neutral one. Switching to the girl's uniform and adding some pigtails really doesn't dampen the sleekness of it at all. Teddie strolls onto the stage and wins by a large margin, with his very fitting Alice in Wonderland look. His little dances show how happy he is to be there and to have won. As a prize, Teddie gets to be an honorary judge for the girls' block of the beauty pageant. His perverted mind declares that the girls will be having a swimsuit competition. The contestants feel pretty varied about things, about as in character as you'd expect. We get a shot of the dressing room where we can see how pathetic Kashiwagi really is, wanting to compare herself to younger girls. She even goes as far as to call Rise jailbait with no brain, guts, and especially no figure. Any remark like that from a teacher should be answered with getting fired. Hanako was also in the pageant for some reason, joining forces with Kashiwagi and talking all that mess to our gal pals. This invigorates our friends to stomp them out in this pageant, which they've already done in the hearts of everyone who's played the game anyways. When the girls take stage, we skip Hanako and Kashiwagi's introductions entirely. Chie completely lies about everything from her personality to her favorite food. Yukiko is too awkward and turns her campaign into an ad for the Amagi Inn, and Rise puts on her idol face which gets the announcer sweating. Naoto can barely muster up enough courage to leak out a sentence. Oh, and she's not wearing her hat. Teddie then comes up for his honorary judging and asks increasingly freakier questions. The weird swimsuit phase is up. Just like last time, Hanako and Kashiwagi are skipped. Everyone ogles over our friends, especially Rise. Naoto's gone ghost though. She refused to participate in this portion of the competition. She does join against her will in the anime though. The game makes you vote for someone. I voted for Rise because of my standing with her, but regardless of what you choose, Naoto gets the victory. Her androgynous appearance gave her an edge that garnered just about all the female votes. Meanwhile, the boys could make up their minds and split the votes between the reasonable choices. Hanako and Kashiwagi have begun to throw tantrums up on the stage, but our buds who did attend the final phase are content with their placements. As the weekend wraps up, Dojima comes to your school to drop off Nanako with you and your friends since he'll be gone for the weekend. Yukiko makes an offer to Nanako to spend the night at the inn, and everyone else hops on board too, an excellent way to close up the great day. The Amagi Inn trip starts off on a weird foot. Teddie complains about being separate from the girls, and honestly, I would not want Teddie to make any strange scenarios at a fun time like this, so I think this is a good thing. Our room is grandiose and fancy. While talking about the quality of the inn, a sudden call from the front desk scares us. It's time for the onsen. We head over and get our social link to level 8 with Teddie here. The screen then fades to black, and we see an animated cutscene of the girls going to the onsen. The sky is drawn beautifully here, and a perfect representation of the Japanese countryside. There's a bit of focus on Naoto, probably because they didn't show her off in the swimsuit part of the beauty pageant, and it's just not anything that was really necessary. Teddie then cannonballs into the spring abruptly, shocking the girls immensely. The girls begin their bombardment of barrels on the male front. Your two options are to stand your ground or fall back. This is one of the only instances in the game where max courage fails you. No matter what, you're unable to stick around. After being chased off, the girls realize that it actually wasn't their time to bathe at all, and we even called the front desk for confirmation. Mauling about the girls being wrong, Yosuke wallows in sorrow in the room. Teddie's got lumps on his head too, and just generally no one's happy with this. Yosuke tries to lighten the mood by asking if we were able to take any peeks, at which everyone says no. We decide to hit the hay, but a very ominous cry is let out. Petrified by fear, we search for a source to the scream. Kanji realizes that our room is so nice because it's the one that Mayumi Yamano was staying in the night she was killed, which explains why we got such a nice room during the busy season and why the talismans were placed everywhere. The cries of despair become even louder, and Teddie wants to go to the girls' room so he can watch everyone's sleeping faces as he drifts off. Weird. Reluctant to side with Teddie, we all end up going to sneak into the room to escape the wailing. The room is dark and quiet. After a bit of snooping around, Teddie and Kanji jump next to some of the girls' futons. Last second though, Yosuke realizes that there's only 2 futons. The girls wake up, and they're not the girls that we're looking for. Hanako Otani and Noriko Kashiwagi, both making unpleasant advances on us for differing reasons. We scram in fear and shock, concluding our hellish night. Back at the onsen, the girls are having a grand old time. Nanako's back in bed, so it's only the members of the investigation team that are around. The next day is Halloween, and I honestly expected there to be another banger event. Unfortunately though, this event was only added in Golden, so it wouldn't be anything too big. Yosuke hits your line in the AM and asks for some last minute help preparing for the Halloween fest at Junes. After a lot of hard work in your vampire costume, everything is set up. Things are looking nice, Teddie's looking a little scary, and a random employee is looking confused. The employee told us that the event got cancelled a while ago. He admires our work, but tells us we're gonna have to take it down. We've got some nifty little costumes, but that's it. I never use any of the costumes personally, but after doing some research, there's a few that give special animations, unvoiced dialogue, and voice dialogue. Another amazing touch of detail from Atlas. November comes, and a few days in, we have a cute night spent with Nanako. She gets the door when knocked, but it's just the mailman asking for someone else. Dojima calls, but it's just him being absent for another night. Since it's getting colder, it's kotatsu time. Our kotatsu doesn't work, so we make a plan to go with Nanako to Junes and grab a new one sometime soon. At night, the midnight channel is on again, an impossibly blurry silhouette this time around. No clues at all. After school the next day, we make deductions about who the next victim could be. The only person who's been seen on TV lately is a politician who came to quell some rumors about the fog and the effects that it had. Teddie thinks that the person is very small, but the facts are debatable, so much so that even the size is questionable. Dojima comes home that night and he brings in some mail. No sender and no return address. You know where this is going. We're forced by the situation to open the letter. Right here, right now. There's one sentence. If you don't stop this time, someone close will be put in and killed. Once again, no punctuation or anything. Completely straightforward. Dojima fiercely takes the letter from us and confirms his suspicions of us being involved in the case. He pressures us and demands we tell him the truth. No matter what we say, nothing changes. Dojima decides that it's best that we head to the police station for questioning. We get a buzz on our phone, but Dojima confiscates it. He begins to ask about the truth and our involvement. No matter what, we have to come clean. Obviously, the old man doesn't buy our story about personas in the TV world. Disappointed, Dojima trails out of the questioning room. Adachi tries to comfort us by explaining Dojima's level of care for us, and then he leaves too. Meanwhile at Junes, we get an adorably angsty cutscene of Yosuke and Teddie at work. Yosuke presents Teddie with his very own cell phone as a demonstration. He calls our phone, which we obviously won't pick up because of Dojima's confiscation. Teddie wants to visit Nanako with some dinner since it's correctly assumed that we're not home with her right now. He calls again, but this time he calls our home line. Nanako gives Yosuke and Teddie the lowdown about our whereabouts and our status with Dojima. Yosuke takes a minute to put everything together, but everyone is contacted. The camera's back on us at the station, and it's just about time for the midnight channel. The silhouette is back, and it's very clear now. Nanako Dojima, our precious little cousin, is the next victim, and we have no way to contact anyone else. A ghastly man's voice is heard next, and he claims that he will save her soon. The preceding scene has Naoto on the phone explaining to Chie and indirectly the player that Nanako's presence was on TV lately, shown but not heard. The politician involved in squashing the fog rumors used comments from Nanako's interviews at her school, and her name was leaked in the local paper. Back at the station, Yosuke, Teddie, and Kanji barge into the questioning room. Naoto's on the phone explaining the situation to Dojima. He gets as emotional as a father should when his daughter is kidnapped. He does his best to rally the police force into getting around town to make sure the kidnapper doesn't get far, but the officer on the other line is being as useless as random members of the police force and media can be. The peons aren't going to do a damn thing, so Dojima storms out and starts the search on his own. The girls get to the station and force themselves in too. Everyone begs Adachi to set us free, and Kanji explodes on him. Naoto calms everyone down and summarizes the events of the night so far. The front door to our house was wide open. Entry wasn't forced, just like with the rest of our friends who were kidnapped. The doorbell was pressed, and she opened it. Nanako said back at the hot springs that she's a good girl and she doesn't open the door for strangers, limiting potential culprits. We realized that it would have to be someone that Nanako or Dojima would be familiar with. Dojima doesn't really have any friends. Adachi would probably be the closest thing, but he's been at the station with Dojima the entire time. Considering how people end up on the midnight channel, the person must be bringing a TV around with them. The only way to do that efficiently and naturally would be in a vehicle, a large one. The large vehicle must also fit the criteria of not being too out of place. Kanji finally recalls that a delivery truck came by when he was kidnapped. and since the delivery company in Inaba is local, it must be a regular delivery man, therefore not a stranger to Nanako. Naoto asks Adachi if anyone fits his profile, and there is. Taro Namatame, a former secretary from the city, and directly involved with Mayumi Yamano by his relation of an affair. Adachi says that if anything happens, he didn't see it. A high-speed chase begins in Inaba, and Dojima's hot on Namatame's tail. The most stressful cutscene thus far ends in Namatame swerving and crashing into the shopping district, Dojima crashing right behind him. Despite being severely injured, Dojima can do nothing but think about Nanako, and he explains how he gave chase to Namatame. Naoto examines the crime scene. A large TV and a diary were in the vehicle. Namatame writes about how he discovered the TV world and how he must save people. A list of the kidnapping victims were all scribbled down in it as well. Namatame notes of Nanako and how he's shocked by how young she is. He's even aware that this would be his last kidnapping. Namatame is our culprit. Almost too anxious, we try and enter the TV on the spot, but Teddie reminds us that we won't know where this TV will send us, so we plan for tomorrow. Dojima is hospitalized. He gives us an emotional talk about how deeply he cares for Nanako and his helplessness. He questions his self-worth as a father and enlists us to save her, as we would do regardless. Seeing Dojima in this position is extremely saddening and real. Before, almost all the kidnapping victims were people that we barely knew at that point. Sure, they've become our friends now, but at that time, they were just another face to us. So now that we're posed with the threat of having our precious little cousin, practically our sister at this point, killed, it's daunting. Everything has become so much more real. Ready for our final venture, with the real culprit being pursued by us now, we have a motivating team meeting at the food court before entering the TV world. The fog on the other side is much thicker than usual. Teddie theorizes that the commotion in Inaba is a factor in this. Rise does a quick scan and locates Nanako. The dungeon is heaven, representative of Nanako's longing for wanting to meet her late mother again. As we climb the beanstalks upward, we hear Nanako's empty words to her mother's spirit, talking about Dojima and the protagonist making her not feel lonely anymore. This is a lie, expressed by the theme playing in this dungeon, Heaven. The song is a surprising banger with beautiful vocals that have a lot of underlying themes about her true feelings and her loss of her mother. I'll throw some of the lyrical references from the Persona 4 wiki on screen, since I don't think I can paraphrase what they said any better myself. Another thing that I noticed on the wiki when researching trivia for Rise, apparently a version of this song plays here with Rise supporting vocals, but I couldn't find it anywhere and I looked for a few hours. If anyone can find it, tweet it at me so I can jam out. Nanako's presence begins to be drowned out by Namatame's insane babbling of wanting to live in heaven with the girl who's later confirmed to be Mayumi Yamano, and on the semi-final floor, Nanako whines out of fear for her mother. At the plateau, we siege the final platform with a crazed Namatame holding Nanako's throat with a tight grip. We're given the chance to interrogate Namatame, and by asking about the Midnight Channel, we're given some new information. His unstable mind makes sorting through his words very iffy. A lot is left up in the air of ambiguity. Rewatching the cutscene for research made it very digestible now though. He thinks that his kidnappings save people, and that we're the killers, which makes no sense if he's believed to be the culprit. This is when I realized that Namatame wasn't the real culprit. Not only for this dialogue, but if we were working on solving a mystery, the culprit probably wouldn't have been a once mentioned NPC. Kanji and Yosuke pummel Namatame as he becomes his shadow self, contrary to before when everyone and their shadows existed side by side. The reasoning for this is shown right after an animated cutscene, where we see his shadow take his form as a boss. Kuni no Sagiri. The Japanese name is Kuni no Sagiri no Kami, a longer name that has a more mythological ties. It's a mythological spirit of fog, and the English name for it is potentially phonetically the same as Fog of the Country, if you were to transliterate it. The spirit was living inside of him like a parasite. This boss has abilities of all the main elements, buffs and debuffs to accommodate for them, and a controlling move that turns your party against you. Design-wise, he has a big head with peace signs that move around like clockwork above him as halos. A TV antenna atop the peace signs, and an angelic white robe that fits the heavenly theme with a shirt that says Love and Peace written purely in symbols. A neat touch that makes this detail understandable to all cultures of the world. His fight for me was a breeze, and his dialogue throughout the battle shows how adamant he is about saving Nanako. Upon beating his ass, Nanako's condition worsens at an alarming rate. The TV world and the thick fog could not have been good for her. We escort her and Namatame back out into Junes. Fast forward a little bit, and everyone is waiting in a gloomy silence outside of her room in the hospital. She's allowed no visitors, not even her father. No one can raise the mood, and everyone is self-loathing or self-hating right now, regretting their courses of action and the speeds at which we got to saving Nanako. Fed up with everything, Kanji yells at everyone, mainly Naoto, to get everything together. We caught Namatame, we've done all that we can, and we have to focus on what we can do now, not what missteps we've taken. An encounter with Adachi in the hall gets us a bit of intel about Nanako's condition. Her and Namatame are both in questionable and uncertain conditions. Yukiko suggests that we reserve Junes after she gets better so we can throw a party for her when she's all better. And with that, everyone leaves on a jolly note as we hit Social Link 9 with Teddie. Everyone, except us, leaves anyway. We quickly stop by our uncle's room and let him know that Nanako is okay. Adachi assures us that he'll keep Dojima company for the night, so we head home with everyone else. Once the 20th hits, the fog rolls in. Had you not saved Nanako, now would be when her deadline hits. The next day, on your way to school, you run into your classmates and they inform you of Namatame being in the paper. The fog is perilous and persistent. The forecast shows that it won't be letting up for a while. And to add to that, the amazing tunes we've been hearing throughout the days and nights has been replaced with an eerie hodgepodge of low-energy moaning sounds. Adachi spots us on his walk and lets us know that starting today we can visit Nanako. He also fills us in about some of the entries of Mayumi Yamano and Saki Konishi in Namatame's diary. He allegedly was making advances on sake, which isn't only illegal, but pisses Yosuke off. After school, everyone gathers in Nanako's room, Dojima and Adachi included. Dojima gets scolded by a nurse for being out and about, especially with his injuries. She seems to understand the situation though, letting him off the hook with only a warning and a time to be back in his room by. Nanako is very feeble, but very pleased to see everyone in the room to see her, especially her big bro. A doctor informs us that Nanako's condition isn't truly known, we just know that it isn't good. We begin to discuss the fog and its effects on everyone outside. No one seems to know why so much fog is in Inaba, why it's so thick, and why it's supposedly giving people some symptoms. On our walk home from the hospital, a conversation between some gossiping housewives is shown to us. It's kind of surprising how this scene is compared to some of the events during the beginning of quarantine. There's gossip about what the fog will do to you, blaming of the government, and ironically enough, there's a man raving about how everyone should be wearing a mask to protect themselves from the poisonous fog. The hive mind grows with this exchange. A normal housewife begins to act up as a part of this, and Rise's poor grandma is not getting any business. As the days pass by, more and more people begin to react more and more rashly from the fog. At the beginning of December, everyone begins grouping up because of the fog's increasing murkiness. While discussing it on the way to school with our friends, Kanji has the bright idea of putting his glasses on, and everything's clear. We come to the conclusion that the glasses should be useless on our side, but Chie blurts out that the fog could be leaking from one world to another, that being the only real conclusion. We make plans to hit Junes after the final day of exams, and at the meeting, Chie brings a newspaper article discussing the fog's potential harmful qualities. The government is going to try and investigate it, but doesn't know if they'll be able to pinpoint anything. Naoto points out that another newspaper article is about the murder so far, recounting that Mayumi Yamano was having an affair with Namatame, Konishi died soon after, and Kubo committed a copycat murder in July. The motive is unclear, and it's now up to the fuzz to build a case against Namatame, and while talking it over more, we realize the harsh truth. Namatame probably can't have a case built for him. The TV world doesn't make any logical sense to anyone else, and there's no real way to prove that it's him to the normal citizens. We randomly remember the promise we made to Nanako about the kotatsu. We all head to the electronics section and look for the perfect kotatsu for her. The mood is dampened by Teddie's self-doubt. He isn't really sure if he's okay to stay in our world. We kept our promise and he feels like he should go back, but he's conflicted about staying until Nanako is all better, at least. We all reassure him that we love to have him around and he's more than welcome to stay. We begin making plans for a welcome home party for Nanako, but amidst the planning, Adachi calls and warns us of Nanako's condition suddenly plummeting. In her room, the atmosphere is terrible. People are screaming about the fog in the halls, and Dojima is furious that the doctors can't really do anything aside from monitor her. We're kicked out into the hallway, and no one's level-headed. Yosuke is demanding that Teddie come up with a solution, Dojima's wounds have reopened, Kanji's mad at the world for having this befall Nanako, and Adachi comes by to let us know that Namatame has a flawless alibi. Kanji furiously strangles Adachi in an attempt to prove that the TV world is real, and that it could stand up in court. His grip is soon loosened as a nurse scrambles out for a family member. Nanako temporarily gains consciousness and asks for her dad, but it's just me there. Nanako fades in and out of reality, telling me that she's scared. All she can muster out is a call out to her big bro and her daddy. Just as Dojima walks in, her monitor falls flat. Nanako Dojima is dead. As the news hits, everyone runs in and is overwhelmed by emotion. The girl's crying, the boy's furious, Dojima is nothing but a husk. Adachi comes back a bit later, shocked by the news. He realizes that Dojima is on his way to Namatame's room. Left with nothing but rage inside of him, no one can trust Dojima to enter Namatame's room. Nothing good can come from that. We demand Namatame's room number, and Adachi won't tell us a damn thing until Kanji chokes him out again. Adachi coughs up the directions, and we all run up, except for Teddie. He's giving himself a monologue about how he's the one to blame for Nanako's passing, since everything happened in his world and because of his world. Dojima made it to Namatame's room on his own, but the police guarding his room won't let him pass without permission. Dojima's response is one of the most raw that I have ever heard.
Permission? Who gave them permission to kill Nanako? Tell me that, huh? The hell with you all! Why is he still alive when Nanako's dead? Give me back Nanako! Give her back! She's all I have! She's the only one in the world.
Dojima's voice actor puts up an amazing emotional display to say the least, but as much of a fight as he puts up emotionally, there's nothing he can do physically. Adachi and the guardsmen escort him away. Questioning the cruelty of the world, we wonder why it had to have been Nanako as the victim and not Namatame, the culprit, who suffers. Our sadness is interrupted by a thud in Namatame's room, so we head in. The crash was Namatame fumbling around in his room trying to escape out the window. The Midnight Channel starts playing right in front of us. Shadow Namatame spawns in and begins to blame us for everything. Namatame never faced himself, so his shadow remains. This scene will be integral later, and in more ways than one. Shadow Namatame taunts us, saying that he's untouchable by the law. He makes the point that killing or sparing the real Namatame won't matter to him. Taking the Shadow's words to heart, we realize that we have a large TV right in front of us. Yosuke, Kanji, and Naoto reach the conclusion that we could throw him in, right here, right now, and kill him. Doing this would ideally prevent further kidnappings and be the only real way to get justice for him. Yosuke is dead set on throwing him in. Now, once you hit this point, you have to make a perfect string of dialogue choices to get the good ending. Anything else, and you get a bad or neutral ending. The proper string of dialogue has 5 consecutive choices, with there being at least 3 choices per option. Those choices being telling everyone to wait, there's something that we don't know, that something is Namatame's true feelings, something is bothering us, we reiterate that we're missing something, and then yell at Yosuke to calm down. The commotion is obviously displeasing to the mentally unstable Namatame, and Risei calls for a deep breath from everyone to assure that we're using our heads in the situation. Naoto says that we've heard just about nothing from Namatame's perspective. Regardless of what we want to say or think, we need to hear more from Namatame when he's mentally sound. Through our rage and tears, everyone calms down completely, and the most pivotal moment of our story comes to an end. The successful navigation through the hellfire that is teenagers deciding whether or not to kill a man, the investigation team is no more. We have become the seekers of truth, the social link of the Judgment Arcana. Adachi and the doctor barge in, pissed off that we're in here with a suspect. Naoto quickly covers for us, saying that we were just watching over him while the guards had their hands full with Dojima. The first step to seeking out the truth begins in a huddle outside of his room. Why did Namatame start killing people? Why would killing his lover save her? He was already separated from his wife, Misuzu Hiragi. His relationship with Mayumi Yamano was already known. There's no real motive for him to murder her. Adachi tells us to pipe down, but before, we can catch an earful from a nurse who calls for us downstairs. We run off, and the camera fades off to Teddie. He's on a foggy road, but the fog here is white and milky, not yellow and thick like that of Inaba in the TV world. Teddie has truly lost himself. He calls out for us, not knowing what to do. What the nurse called us for is Nanako. She's come too. She's all better. This only happens if you get the neutral or good ending results from Namatame's situation upstairs. In the bad ending, she'll remain dead. I got a neutral ending on my first attempt, but I closed the game before I could see the credits. I wanted to see the true ending on my first playthrough. Everyone is overjoyed by the news. We'd ended up not killing a man, and our little Nanako was alive and well. It's nothing short of a miracle. Everyone spouts tears of joy, and how couldn't they? A sweet and innocent little girl was given a second chance at life. Yosuke notices Teddie's absence and wants to present him with the great news. On our way out of the hospital, Adachi gives us a little update about Tojima's condition. As the night passes on, we walk home, only interrupted by a scene of Namatame groaning to himself about failing. We try to phone Teddie by the time we're out of the shopping district, but to no avail. An ugly snowfall begins on our trek home, and everyone is worried about Teddie. We make plans to meet up at Junes tomorrow. Our protagonist reflects on his choices, wondering if what we did tonight was really the right course of action. If you have any maxed out social links with your schoolmates outside of the Seekers of Truth, now is when they'll all send you texts checking up on you. A heartwarming detail, but I only ended up getting a text from Yumi. When you get home, the nighttime theme changes. It's a somber tune, but a nice one. The song is titled Alone, and that's kind of what you are right now. Sure, you have your friends, and a new mystery to solve, and a ray of hope now that Nanako is recovered, but really, you're all alone. You have no one at your house with you. Your uncle and cousin, who have become as close as your father and little sister, are both hospitalized. Their immediate futures are not secured, and it's scary. You could fumble everything and not solve the murder, not to mention that the fog is only getting worse and worse. This song reflects both the positive and the negative emotions perfectly. I don't think there's potential for there to be a better song at this point in the game. Hearing this for the first time was the first time that the game almost brought me to tears. Almost, though. I held back as much as I could, and instead I just took in the emotion that I felt from weighing all of this internally. I was getting there, to the end of my life in Inaba. That night, we're pulled into the Velvet Room during our slumber. We have a one-on-one conversation with Igor about our journey and that the limo may be nearing its destination soon. Igor calls upon Margaret to play more messages from our social link friends, but these include everyone. A true display of the power of friendship. A cliche done infinitely better in Persona than when compared to any other series in my opinion. The limousine then pulls over for the first time. Igor reminds us that now is a better time than ever to stop and reflect. And in his own words, a time for contemplation rather than action. The next morning, we get a rude awakening from Yosuke mashing our doorbell, as we, the player, already know Teddie is missing. The rest of the group went to check in the TV, but he's not there. There's no trace of him in Inaba either. Igor's words come back to us, and we get everyone to begin thinking. We realize that as sad as we are without Teddie right now, that needs to be pushed aside. We only have so much more time before Namatame is transferred out of the hospital, so we need to recount the facts and then find a window to talk to him. Of the kidnapping victims, only Mayumi Yamano and Saki Konishi were slain. The rest of those who were kidnapped were saved, gained personas, and became members of our group. Mitsuo Kubo was a copycat killer. When we think about Namatame's motive, we realize that if he's sane, then there's facts that we just don't know yet. We do know that he thinks the inside of the TV is a beautiful world. Yukiko brings up an amazing detail. If saving equals killing from Namatame's point of view, then why did Namatame claim that he saved us? We weren't really saved, but he did say that we were saved. His shadow did note that he failed to save Nanako too. We know that if there's a culprit, it isn't Taro Namatame. The proof comes from the warning letter sent to our address. If we call back to the wording, the terms don't rescue and kill were both used. This language contradicts itself. Namatame didn't write the letters. Namatame really was a good guy. At heart anyways. The real culprit is the one who killed Mayumi Yamano and Saki Konishi. They remained an observer from then on. We rush to the hospital. Naoto and our character hit the top floor. Naoto has police clearance and we can enter the room. We're granted permission to question him, but under police surveillance. This won't do, as our questions would be seen as off to any normal person. We have to get this guy off of our case. Naoto came prepared though. The officer is radioed about a suspicious object in the lobby, and he runs off. The rest of our buds follow closely, and it's Namatame time, baby. Namatame shivers in fear when we come in to interrogate him. Naoto says that we only want the truth, and he seems to be responsive. For this next bit, I'll just list the questions we can ask and their answers. Who did he throw in first? Yukiko. Did he kill the two girls? No, he couldn't save them. Is saving people killing them? No. He says if they aren't saved, then they will be killed. Naoto begins piecing things together. Namatame is sane, and we get back to the questioning. Why the warning letters? He doesn't know what we mean. Who killed the first two? He wants to know himself. Why did he enter the TV? He didn't know how dangerous it was. Namatame begins regaining his ability to form sentences. Naoto tells him that we're the only ones who will know what he's going to talk about, and that we've been aware of the TV world for a while now. Finally, we get to hear Namatame's first-hand account of all the events. When his affair with Mayumi Yamano became public, he retreated to Inaba to live with his parents. He became an alcoholic, he felt terrible for doing the damage he caused to her image. Not even having the ability to apologize to her, he just stayed shut up in his room. The rumor of the Midnight Channel was something that he remembered as he drank himself down. He then saw it for the first time, and saw Mayumi on the TV screen. Startled by this, he reached into the TV and was able to put his arm in. He thought it was just a drunken episode. But the next day, he returned to the city, only to be fired from his secretary position. At the same time, Mayumi was murdered in his hometown, Inaba. He believed that seeing Mayumi Yamano on the TV was a call for help. Filled with regret, he couldn't shake the events from his brain. He was then questioned by police. On the next rainy night, he saw a young girl on the Midnight Channel. He thought that she would be killed next, and he was right on track. He didn't want Saki Konishi to die, so he kept a steady eye on her. His father gave him a job for the family delivery company, and he recognized Saki when he delivered a package at her family's liquor store. He met with her and warned her to be careful, but she shrugged him off. That night, she was on the Midnight Channel again, being attacked, and the next day, her body was found dead. Namatame blamed himself for Saki's death, and he couldn't handle it. He just felt completely worthless. He then explains that when his wife Misuzu Hiragi, the enka singer, got famous, his relationship with her got more distant. At that time, he met Mayumi Yamano when she was doing some political work in the city. They both hailed from Inaba, and that's why he got so close with her. He was aware that cheating was wrong, but he ended up falling in love with another woman, and that's what it ended up coming down to. Sometime later, he saw Yukiko on the Midnight Channel. He then realized his power of being able to enter the TV. He took the symbolism from the Midnight Channel's smiling depiction of Yukiko as a signal to throw her inside the TV for a while, and then bring her back when it was safe. Looking back, it's a rational train of thought. He believed that his power was a gift from Mayumi to protect further victims from her fate. He then took on the kidnappings as his mission to save potential victims. Namatame claims to have called the police, only to rationally be shut down. He now had a job as a delivery man in a large truck, the perfect cover for his mission. No one else had the potential to save them. But was he saving them? We taught Namatame that the people he had kidnapped would have died if we didn't go in and save them by the time the fog came back into Inaba. Namatame expresses that the first time that he had any doubts about his righteousness were when he fled the police into the TV world and got a real look at the world inside there. He thought that it wouldn't be so bad, considering how everyone he threw in himself was rescued and continued on with their lives. He didn't even know that no exits existed without assistance from Teddie. Next, he mentions that he tried to see us. He was the toothpastey turquoise guy who moved away from us during our pre-concert hype session. This was something that I noticed right away at the top of heaven. His guilt overtook him and he couldn't approach us. The rest is what led us up to this point. He then dumps to us that he just wanted to be a politician to make himself more useful to the world, and after losing his wife, lover, and job, he only had this power. He wanted to be a hero, but he didn't realize how royally he had screwed up. He apologized from the bottom of his heart for kidnapping our friends. The officer rushes back in, catches us all in there talking to Namatame, and questions us. Just before we dip, Namatame begs us to catch the one who got those girls killed, and we assure him that we will and get on with our way. Since we're at the hospital, we decide to check on Nanako. She's out cold, and the police have considered the investigation over since Namatame is in custody, so any and all progression with the case now is entirely up to us to do. The next day is spent wandering around town, asking anyone and everyone some questions to see if they can recall anything. After a long day of sleuthing, we regroup at Aya for discussion over dinner. In reality, we didn't really gain any new information. Naoto does do something big though. She lists the criteria that the killer must fit, and once it was all lined up, I figured it out right away. The criteria are: they must have a connection to Saki Konishi and Mayumi Yamano, they must be someone who has observed us periodically, and they must be someone who could approach the Dojima residence without raising any suspicion. Now before I get into who it really is, we just have a little bit more to sit through. Naoto steps outside for some fresh air, as fresh as the air can be with the fog anyways, and our character decides to join her in this. Yosuke follows soon after. This is it, the most pivotal moment of our story, part 2. We need to consider who fits the criteria for the killer. We recount that the killer must be aware of the TV world and our heroics over there. They must also be aware of Namatame's antics. No witnesses in any cases, and no one unusual was seen around the two victims. Now is time to call out the real culprit. The game gives you the option to accuse anyone, and I mean anyone, from any of your friends to the social links, even Nanako. But the real answer is very apparent. Tohru Adachi of the Jester Arcana. Now before I press A here, I want to note that there were only 2 other potential culprits through my train of thought, but both were disproved once I recounted everything. My other 2 suspects were Noriko Kashiwagi and Teddie. I ruled out Kashiwagi pretty much instantly because while she was able to observe us and such, she was only really around after Morioka was killed, so this wouldn't make sense. I also ruled out Teddie instantly, not only because he was our friend, but since he had been on our side, in Yosuke's room, sleeping when Naoto was thrown in, as well as the fact that he was working at Junes with Yosuke when Nanako was captured. It just couldn't be him. Tohru Adachi had it all. Did he have a connection to the victims? Yeah, he was interviewing Saki about finding Mayumi's body. Boom. Could he have observed us every once in a while? Yep, he would run into our friends every so often, but with our character in particular, he would come over to our house for a few meals. Plus, Inaba is small. If he wanted to lurk in the shadows, he could have. Lastly, he's quite literally the only person that isn't a party member or family member who could be at our house without any suspicion, bar Namatame when on duty anyways. It just had to be Tohru Adachi. This is when something that was added only in Golden comes into play, the Gesture Arcana. Adachi's social link is something that was only added in Golden, and if you got him to rank 6 before rescuing Nanako, it would begin to progress with the story. At this point, if you did this, which I did not, you can decide not to tell your friends about this and side with him. I don't think I can ever follow through with this ending. Much like not choosing to hug Rise because she cries during her social link. It just hurts too much, honestly. I can't betray my friends. That's how powerful this game is. I can't even see the bad ending through my own playthrough, and I had to learn about this through YouTube videos. Now if we come back to the focus of this video, the fact that it is my experience with the game, we will tell Naoto and Yosuke. They don't seem to get it at first, but Naoto knows that things would go through him at the police station, so he could easily use his position to his advantage and hide information. Yosuke doubts Adachi because of his lousy forefront. Naoto expresses some doubt about Adachi's character, but she holds her tongue for now. We bring up our hunch to everyone else, and Yukiko lets us know that Adachi was at the Amagi Inn on the night of her disappearance, since the media was all over the place and he served as some extra protection. Naoto says that she heard when she was on the force that he had questioned Saki multiple times despite her impervious alibi. Yosuke realizes that he'd always played dumb and wrote into us when working on the case. Rise makes the point about Adachi being the only one who could drop a sketchy letter off to us without any flack. This is the perfect showing of the 2 heads is better than 1, but we have a few more heads than that. Naoto calls the police to ask Adachi a question, but he's at the hospital to assist in Namatame's relocation. Things are getting tense, so we go to the hospital. Hostility in the hospital is upon us. We march in confidently as a group, seeing Adachi chat with the nurse about Dojima. We confirm that Namatame was finally relocated. Naoto begins to press him. Why did he want Namatame to be moved so badly? Dojima then stumbles upon us all, asking about Namatame's whereabouts. Enraged by this, Dojima begins yelling at Adachi about Namatame's relocation. He wanted to ask him more. He doesn't buy that Namatame did it. Adachi begins to become pissed off at everyone, and he starts yelling. Dojima's surprised at Adachi's sudden interest in work when usually he's just a slouch. It's our time to interrogate him. When we asked about Mayumi vanishing, he said that his memory is kinda hazy. When we asked about Saki, he said he had to question her since she found the body, and he only asked her once or twice. After asking both of these questions, we can ask about the warning letter. He claims to not know what we're talking about. This is it. This sets Dojima off even more. He angrily asks why he didn't send it into the forensics department, at which Adachi just apologizes for, saying that Dojima's accident was right after so that it slipped his mind. Which is sort of fair, but he did have time to submit it between the time that we were brought in and the time that Nanako was kidnapped. BS. Adachi shrugs the letter off as just a prank to try and protect himself some more. As the silence grows, he begins to yell more and more. This is when he begins to fall apart. Naoto tells Adachi that we know Namatame is clear for the deaths of Mayumi Yamano and Saki Konishi. She asks him one more time if he has any leads, and Kanji accuses him flat out. In a shocked chainsaw defense method, Adachi says,
What? That's ridiculous! We already know Namatame's the one who put them all in!
That seals the deal. By saying, put them all in, he confirms of his knowledge of the TV world. You've got our guy. Dojima realizes this too, and finally starts to believe what we told him at the TV station about the TV world and personas. Naoto brings up one more detail that wouldn't leave her mind. At the scene of the accident, when she mentions the victims that had survived also had their info written down, his response was, wow, so that settles it. But logically, what could that have settled? Adachi just says that he's busy and scrams, with Dojima screaming at him as we chase him. We are led to Namatame's old room, and he escaped into the large TV there. We make plans to enter the TV through Juness tomorrow, and make our way towards the sleazeball himself. We all go home to rest, and I run into Teddie in the Velvet Room. He's the only one here. Igor and his attendants are gone. I don't know why this is. Teddie is surprised to see me, and tells me that he's come to a realization about what he really is. He talks about how he's just useless, and that his realization came to him when he was at the hospital. He says that shadows can't exist in the human world. He talks about his true self, a shadow. Just a shadow who really wanted to be liked by humans. So much so, that he brainwashed himself into forgetting that he was a shadow and took upon a different, more appealing form. He then retrospectively thinks on his encounter with Shadow Teddie and agrees with him. He has no self. Lastly, he asks me to apologize to Nanako for him when we meet her in heaven, to which I let him know that she's alive. Happy to hear that, he feels glad, but very sleepy, almost as if he's fading away. He begins to talk about the nostalgic feeling of the Velvet Room and asks if it's my dream world. He expresses the pure and deepest gratitude towards me for one last time, and his social link maxes itself out. He accepts that he's not supposed to be in the Velvet Room, and then disappears. Upon his vanishment, Igor and the girls come back into their seats. Igor goes on a little rant about how the flow has been restored, and the limousine begins to move again. He tells me that I'm meeting his standards, and then kicks us out in the most polite way possible. The next afternoon at Juness, we squad up, and no one has seen Teddie. Pressing onward, we hop into the TV. Rise's sensory abilities feel horribly hostile aura in here, so she tries tracking him down. She can't quite locate him exactly, and she reiterates that Teddie isn't in the TV world currently either. Rise then collapses, and the camera is back on at the hospital. Teddie is alone in Nanako's room with her, and Nanako comes to for a minute. She tells him that she's heard all of our cheers for her to stay strong, and Teddie fetches the doctor. The doctor has a little chat with Teddie, and his takeaway is that Nanako's condition is unknown. But so is he, and that if he's an unknown being, then what he can do from here on out is unknown too. A being of unlimited potential, his persona then evolves into Kamui, the only instance of a persona evolving outside of a social link event. Teddie reassures Nanako, and the camera is back on the rest of the gang. Everyone begins reminiscing of Teddie and how his quirkiness was always valued. We miss him very much, even though it's only been a couple of days. We decide to fall back for today since Rise is tiring herself out over her inability to track Adachi. Just when everyone's getting hard on themselves at the food court, Teddie waddles on over to our table. Rise begins crying hysterically about his tardiness, and Kanji yells at him for leaving like an idiot. It's very in character for everyone. This is a true reunion that gave me a stupid grin when I experienced it. Teddie comes clean to everyone about the truth of his existence as a shadow. Yosuke hits Teddie with the "we kind of figured already, bro," and everyone else just kind of agrees with him. Shocked by how casually we're taking everything, Teddie seems kind of tilted. We let him know that he's not too different from us, because we're all just a bunch of kids trying to figure ourselves out. A beautiful scene, and it's one of my favorites. Yosuke tries to make Teddie stop wailing by saying he's more than welcome in our band of misfits. Now it's when Rise don't take that label too kindly and point out that Yosuke is probably the only real misfit in our group. And he points out that a detective and an idol have no place calling him a misfit, and everyone laughs. It's great to have the gang back together. We catch Teddie up to speed about the status of the case and Adachi's whole ordeal, and then head home. After school the next day, back in better than ever, the Seekers of Truth take on the TV world once more. This time around, Teddie gives his nose a whirl at finding Adachi. It's a bit tough, but with the pressure of us depending on him, Teddie goes Super Saiyan once more and finds the way that we need to go. It's the room that we first met Teddie at, with the scratched up posters and the hanging noose. To lighten the mood a bit, Chie lies to everyone about Yosuke taking a whiz over there at the beginning of the game. We raid the room and Adachi is there, having a sissy fit to himself about Mayumi Amano being nothing more than a bitch who had an affair and that he noticed her first. We asked him if he murdered her, and he giggled saying it was all an accident, and that it only happened because she struggled. This segues into a flashback at the Amagi Inn, where Adachi questions Mayumi Yamano about the affair out of his own volition. Not a fan of having her business intruded upon, she threatens to call for help. The deranged Adachi threatens and grabs her, and he pushed her into the TV. He informs us that the Midnight Channel was nothing more than a rumor to him, but he didn't expect anything to actually work out. His reasoning for this all was that Mayumi had betrayed him for getting with a man that was not him. What's astounding about this is that Adachi wasn't even on her radar. He admits to being responsible for Saki too. When questioning her, a high school girl, he brings up Namatame and gets a little too close to her. She smacks him in the face in retaliation, and then he just shoves her into the TV off of a power trip. After throwing her in, he sticks his head in and taunts her even more. Adachi thought that the girls were nothing more than pathetic gold diggers. This infuriates Yosuke, and Adachi goes more and more in depth. Saying that Namatame had called him down at the station, he said that he's the only one who believed in Namatame, but because of the nature of everything, he ended up just spoon-feeding Namatame the idea that if he wanted to get something done, he should be the one to save Yukiko. He was pleased to see that we would try and save the kidnapping victims, and that since both the investigation team and Namatame had the best intentions, the game of cat and mouse would never end. When asked what his reasons were, he didn't have one. He did it because he could, and because it was fun. That's it. Adachi, obsessed with the supernatural nature of the case, expresses that there's no way he can be proven guilty. Next, he talks about how he loves surprises, and how the surprise variable of Mitsuo Kubo was exciting. He shoved Mitsuo in when he came into the station to turn himself in for the killings. Since none of the officers believed that he did it, he was just pawned off to Adachi since he's the lowest on the food chain there. It was then that he shoved Mitsuo into the TV. Adachi confirms Chie's random assumption from earlier. Fog is leaking from the TV world into our own world. Our worlds will soon merge, and Rise analyzes that the Adachi that we're talking to isn't the real deal. His body is somewhere else. He does what Kubo did and asks us to come get him. Kanji swings at the fake Adachi and the clone disappears. It's now or never. We have until the end of the year to thwart Adachi's plans to prevent our side from being overwhelmed with shadows. As a tease, Adachi opens up a dungeon entrance in that room. Everyone goes home to prepare for the search, and if you had Adachi's social link high enough, Rise will warn you that his presence kinda seemed like yours. If you choose to see Adachi alone, you can join him and get the accomplice ending. It wasn't a part of my experience with the game, and regardless, I wouldn't do it in a million years, so I won't go into further detail about this ending. The one thing I will say though is that his Jester Arcana turns into the Hunger Arcana. We have until Christmas Eve to catch Adachi. I mentioned the deadline up front because if you day one the dungeon like I usually did, then the days will skip, and I didn't want to miss out on any of my opportunities. On the first day available, I did his entire dungeon up to the last floor, and afterwards I spent my days working, doing some odd-ended social link stuff, and I finally maxed out my stats. The one mistake I made though was finishing this dungeon on the 21st because I thought the 22nd was the deadline, so I missed out on about 3 days of time. Adachi's dungeon is Magatsu Inaba. I'd simply translate this as Dark Inaba. It's a warped version of the Samegawa floodplain, littered with street signs and police tape. There's also a mini-boss that resembles Tokyo Tower, perfect since Adachi's from the city. I think this boss represents his distaste for the countryside and longing to go back. Reach the deepest part of Magatsu Inaba, which is a craggy asphalt platform overviewing a seemingly endless bird's eye view of Inaba. When we try to approach him, he tries to have a "haha, you found me" speech, but Naoto lists his crimes before he can go in too much. Adachi says that what he did isn't a crime, and all he did was put people in here. He believes that the TV world is at fault for killing the girls. He reveals that the only reason he ever joined the police force was so that he could legally carry a gun, and that his transfer from the city to Inaba came from making a single unknown mistake. When he discovered his power, he began shoving people into the TV world to make his life interesting again. His philosophy is that no one really likes the real world, and those who somehow do are just born with a natural talent. To erase this reality, he wants to merge the two worlds. If people become shadows, then their lives won't end, but they will become oblivious to the course of their lives, which I think is a substitute for mass murder in turning everyone into mind-numbed monsters. From his perspective, becoming a shadow would make everything easier for everyone. Taking this matter in his own hands is something that was extremely selfish of Adachi, and no one else wants to be sent into an endless life with no future. Shadow Adachi then takes form. Yukiko calls him out for throwing a tantrum like nothing but a child, and Adachi reacts really poorly to this callout. Naoto joins in on the kid calling, which really sets him off. The last thing he hears is Yosuke calling him a worthless criminal, which starts off the fight versus Shadow Adachi. Shadow Adachi is like two shadows at once, both a boss fight to represent the culprit behind it all, and one to represent what you could have been had you, the player, walked down the wrong path. Not only is his persona just a dark version of Izanami, but he was prompted with the same crossroads as you, only to continuously head straight down his path to doom. He too was isolated in Inaba with only one connection. Coincidentally, it was Dojima. He made no friends, no connections, and no bonds. He loathed being in a small town so much that he spited everyone for it. In his social link, there was an old lady who also has a son named Tohru. He apparently resembles Adachi as well. She does nice little things to him, like bring him stew, but everything just pisses him off. His closed-off, bitter outlook is something that's all too real. His isolation, ego, and intelligence, and boredom are all a perfect recipe for an archetype that I can't really call anything but an incel. While you fight Adachi with your friends and your united powers, Adachi fights you with his god-given power and a pistol. Upon murking the dweeb, Adachi starts to laugh about the matter, and his body becomes more possessed than before. Taking a blackish form and a change in voice, Rise confirms that this isn't even Adachi anymore. The being talks of how the forthcoming of shadows is a reality that humans have inevitably been hoping for. Its name is Ame no Sagiri, meaning divine or heavenly fog. Both Kuni no Sagiri and Ame no Sagiri are children of Izanagi and Izanami, that tale that we heard back at Gekkokan. I believe that this is representative of Adachi's god complex. Ame no Sagiri, taking from its namesake, claims to be the will of all human beings, stating that its purpose is to fulfill human desires. They did long for peace, but they knew that it couldn't be attained, and it claims that the Midnight Channel and the world within it is entirely formed by human desires, and it exists within the unconsciousness of human hearts. They yearn for the truth, but since humans will see things as they see fit, the falsehoods are what take shape instead. It's more engaging to them, because mankind has become less and less interested in the truth of the world. Amino Sagiri was able to cultivate its strength far more than ever before. We're given a warning, our world will become engulfed by the hollow forest. The reasoning for the people appearing on the Midnight Channel is also revealed to us. People wanted to see more of what they saw on TV, and it was all in the minds of the people, proven by Namatame's Midnight Channel appearance. He wasn't the savage-minded man that we saw on the TV, it's just what we wanted to believe. So Amino Sagiri does commend us for one thing, our ability to overcome our own shadows and work towards the truth. As a test, Adachi's body transformed into the giant disco ball creature, Amino Sagiri's truest form. The final boss fight begins, with the theme The Almighty playing. The polarizing intensities of the instruments, specifically the guitar, are a perfect complement to the point that we've reached together. This fight isn't supposed to be easy, especially as a phase 2 of a final boss. However, it was quite easy for me. Rise procced just about every other turn, giving me massive healing, SP refills, and stat bonuses. I almost lost the fight on my first try, almost my whole stream was voting against me. But once more, Rise Kujikawa with the godlike support carried me to victory, despite me being underleveled like I had been my entire playthrough. Upon being defeated, Amino Sagiri acknowledges the potential that the human race has deep within them. It agrees to alleviate the fog, but warns us that it will return at any time that the human race desires. It then sparkles away like the fairy godmother from the end of Shrek 2, and Adachi's pummeled body lay on the road, reluctantly telling us that we can live however we want. He commands us to leave so the shadows will kill him and not us, but we don't take any of that crap, so we take him back with us. If you're friendly enough with Adachi, this is when his social link would reach level 9, and he would acknowledge the similarities between you and him. If you tell him that it's because of friendship, he bitterly tells you to shut up. Once back in the real world, an offer lets us know that Dojima personally requested that Adachi be properly taken care of. This is the only time that we see any ounce of regret within Adachi. Dojima did care this whole time, even if he was treated a bit harshly in the workplace. We all make our march outside. The fog is cleared and the townsfolk are happy. Our goal has been reached. Just a bunch of kids with a collective dream. Chie calls for a team huddle and is the lone cheerer. We cutely have a do-over of our awkward celebration, one of the cutest moments of all, thus maxing out the Seekers of Truth social link. Everyone then breaks out into laughter. The best thing a group of friends could ask for. And we all go home. After a day like that, how could we do literally anything? I'm pretty sure now is when the Persona 4 Golden epilogue starts. A giant chunk of content exclusive to this more fleshed out version of the game. Our true end is now in the middle of March, and some of these events, specifically the ones in relation to Adachi, and I think the seemingly far off Valentine's Day events are in the original. We rest on the 23rd, only getting a text from Rise. She asks if I'm free tomorrow, complete with a creative assy rose. I obviously am, and she knows this as we both just save the world together. So I spend my Christmas Eve that was projected to be a lonely one with Rise. She makes it clear that she's happier to be with me than she is that it's Christmas, but she's still a fan of the festivities, so we exchange presents. Mine being a cake that she's excited to eat, and hers being a silver bangle that she designed and crafted herself. A preciously priceless piece of jewelry. It is an actual equipable accessory that boosts your max SP by 50% as well, so there's no way I'm going to take it off from this point onward. As the night goes on, she asks to spend the night. She brings up that I'll be going back to the city soon, and she'll be returning to her idol career, and we may not have many chances to be together like this, and that's why she wants to make a special memory out of Christmas. On Christmas Day, we all meet at Junes, finally realizing that we've closed the case for good this time. Adachi has confessed to his crimes, and now all we have to do is wait. Dojima called us while we're at this hangout, and he says Nanako's getting better, and so is Dojima. Dojima only needs to regularly check up with the doctors, and Nanako will get a little bit of time off before having to go back for some more testing. Teddie and Rise cry tears of joy and hug it out, until Teddie gets a little too handsy. The girls decide that it's time to prepare for a Christmas party, and they're all ready to bake a cake together. And knowing how good their cooking skills are, this sounds a lot more like a scary Halloween event than a lovely Christmas one. Fast forward to the evening, and everyone's home, Nanako and Dojima included. Nanako, not learning from the horrors of last time, takes a leap of faith and has the first bite of the cake, scaring everyone, especially Kanji. She surprisingly vouches for it, and everyone else gives it a try too. It is great. Naoto leaks that this delicacy was the third attempt and that they relied on a cookbook. The other girls just throw a hissy fit despite improving. A real display of character development if you ask me. I'm joking. That's like my favorite thing about this game, joking with everybody. Teddie presents Nanako with the Teddie doll, made by the man himself using real teddy fur. Dojima doesn't really get it, but he appreciates Teddie's gesture. Dojima finally begins to somewhat open up to the idea of the TV world existing, but he said that he won't ever really believe it. The conversation leads him to thanking me for all my help. This is the first realization of how our time is soon to come to an end, and nobody wants me to go back. I don't either. This scene pulled at my heartstrings so much more than it was intended to, because it reminded me of a much similar conversation that I would repeat with multiple friends over the latter part of my exchange in Japan, and I got a little bit emotional here. Free roam and the epilogue has begun. In a sense, it feels like I'm starting everything fresh again. I had so much story crap going on for so long that it felt like I'd never be able to wander the streets of Inaba again. A little bit after today, which is really just a closing ceremony that we don't even get to see for school, is when we get to fill those shoes in again. Just before bed though, we check the Midnight Channel. Yosuke calls us up, and nothing is there. The Midnight Channel is truly gone, and we've done it. We don't have to worry anymore. We spend a bit reminiscing with Yosuke over the phone, then hit the hay. The day then skips to New Year's Eve, and we get a text from Yosuke. We're all going to gather at the shrine for New Year's. I'm the only one that's there at first, despite the fact that it is directly next door to Kanji's house. He's the second one there though, soon followed by Yosuke and Teddie, who are a bit overworked due to an error on Teddie's part. Teddie complains about the lack of feminine presence, which reminds the guys that the last time this happened, the girls dressed up in fancy yukata. Everyone got really excited about the girls in kimono, and the girls show up in casual winter attire instead. Disappointing our overthinking oddballs, everyone's excited about having the freedom of enjoying New Year's together as friends. A gorgeous animated cutscene shows everyone suffering in the frigid air until we count down for the new year. The first snow of the year begins to fall as well. Kanji asks if it's called a White New Year's, akin to a White Christmas, and Rise calls him Moranji, an extremely clever insult that works in both English and Japanese. Bakanji, combining baka, idiot, and kanji in Japanese. And we all begin to laugh into the night.
5, 4,
3,
2, 1! Happy New Year! I'm glad we're here together. Year's here!
Finally, the New Year's here.
Let's make this year a great
Happy New Year,
this
both
year
of you.
too, partner. Thank you.
It's not your celebration.
Nope, none for you, Rise.
What?
And the same goes for you, Yukiko.
Oh, come on, just let it go. Oh, it's snowing. Wow.
Oh.
I told you it was cold. Do you think the snow will pile up?
This is what they call a White New Year's, huh?
No one calls it that.
It's a new year, but you're still Moranji.
What?
Moranji. Oh.
Hey, what are you nodding for? Shut up!
The New Year kicks off with an osechi meal with Nanako and Dojima. Osechi ryori is food specially prepared for New Year's in Japan. I honestly do not like it at all, and I feel guilty for admitting this. But when I ate it for the first 3 days of 2020, I would go straight to the convenience store and scarf down some curry bread right after. Next is my semi-final day with Rise, Hatsumode. Hatsumode is the first shrine visit of the year. She walks up to me in a deep purple kimono. Kinda reminds me of the purple hoodie that I wear all the time. Pretty stupid for me to draw that conclusion frame one in my mind, but oh well, it's just the conclusion that I drew. Her hair is also up. A good look, but one that deviates from what I'm used to seeing from her, so I can't help but see it as out of place. Rise makes a flirty comment about not being just a child anymore, then we begin our Hatsumode visit. Rise's confidence is all over the place with her outfit, but she's glad with the reaction that I gave her. We make our New Year's wish, that we will grow closer together this year. After tossing our coins in, we make our merry way to the Omikuji box and check our fortunes. I got a medium blessing, and Rise got a small one, just like what happened at the summer festival. Despite getting a small blessing, Rise is optimistic about it being bigger than that. We finish walking past the teeny tiny Tori gate, and realize that we've done all there is to do here. Rise gives me a choice, her house or mine. I suggest that we go back to my house, and she mentions that her grandma isn't home right now. Rise, once again, being the mover of situation, asks,
If you're thinking of something naughty right now, raise your hand. Huh? I'm the only one?
and turns beet red when I don't join her in doing so. She's a little annoyed by us not reciprocating, so she makes us go to Juness instead, apparently. But regardless, we spend a long time with her that day. The next day, we spent some family bonding time with Nanako and Dojima, making a snowman through collaborative effort. Not just any snowman though, a snow teddy, or as Nanako likes to call it, a teddy man. The rest of our January 2nd is spent going around Inaba, giving our New Year's greetings to all of our friends. This is the second time that I almost cried, this time with a few actual tears, but I forced them down. Crying is such a hard thing for me, even when I'm alone. The song that plays, Snowflakes, is perfectly and carefully crafted for this scene, and it plays for the remainder of the game's winter days. The slow mood of the song and the heart-wrenching lyrics just did it in for me. Snowflakes falling on your face can be interpreted as just a starting line that makes it fit the winter theme, but to me, it's so much more. The snowflakes floating down from above are a new experience, the last one that nature gives us. We've now seen all sides of the natural Inaba. A cold wind blows away laughter from this treasured place. The cold winds of winter are going to bring the last season of our short stay in Inaba. Our laughter will soon become sorrow, as we can't experience it all for the first time again. In the second verse, Shihoko Hirata's beautiful delivery of the line, "This is where we say farewell," fully realizes the claims from the last verse. This is where we say farewell. Once winter ends, spring will come, and we must leave Inaba, our treasured place. And the wind, it feels a little colder now, to me is a way to show that the wind changing is a reminder that we've changed along the way too, alongside all of our friends. Here, time has run out like a spell, but laughter's our vow. Need I even explain this? My time is up, and had I played the original Persona 4, I wouldn't even have these last few months. It all felt so quick. I binged Persona 4 Golden over the course of 9 days, technically 11 if you count the 2 days that I was in Las Vegas, but I wasn't able to play during that time. Laughter being our vow was symbolic of the bonds I had built, and the experience I had created alongside my viewers on stream. This was a special experience, and anyone who spent any part of it with me, especially in the latter parts, got to see my attachment, and probably now sees me in a different light. To start off the last verse, this is where we saw it through. Thick and thin, this friendship, it was built to last. This part really got me thinking back on my life. Not only of my time in Japan that this game so frequently reminds me of, but my friends from my small town here in America. As little as I would open up to them about anything, we saw a lot of the same ups and downs together. And even if I would be away for a long while, we're friends forever, and nothing can change that. And finally, the last line. Here we swore that we'd be true, to bonds that were forged in our past. This final line, I fully associate with the investigation team. The last line, and the last experience in my life chronologically so far where I've grown so close to someone, even if they're just characters in a video game. I don't typically have a definitive moment with people where I become friends with them. I'm just outright friendly and normally. But in Inaba, every bond was set in stone from the get-go. We've gone through so much, we've made so many genuine connections, I can never, and I mean never, go back on them. I even said so earlier, doing the accomplice ending would genuinely hurt my heart so much. I love these characters so much, and I doubt that any other characters will ever be able to take the spot from them. The last thing that we do on New Year's is greet Margaret, who informs us that Marie is gone. Perhaps her role in the Velvet Room has been fulfilled. Margaret offers to try and locate her for us, but that's about all we can do for now. Just wait for her to do that. The next morning, Yosuke and Teddie make a surprise visit to our house. They bring up the ski trip, which sounds like a blast. It's a local ski lodge where we'd be staying for a few days. Nanako and Dojima walk in on our conversation, and they're off for the hospital again, expecting to return from Nanako's testing by the middle of the month. Just as the fam fades out of view, Teddie forces himself on us. He'll be spending some days with us, and Yosuke says that if he annoys us at all after a day, we can just call him up and he'll come retrieve Teddie. Good old reliable Yosuke. What isn't reliable though, is our own health. On our way to bed, a sudden dizziness befalls us and we crash onto the floor. In our dream, we're met by a saddened Marie, alone in a forest. She's telling me so many things. She's saying farewell, she's sad that she'll be missing out on the peace in our world, and that she loves me. Without much else to say, she says goodbye and is on her merry way. We're bedridden for about a week or so, and our friends come by to check on us while we're out cold with the cold. On the last day of break, we recover, but Teddie's swamped after taking care of us so diligently. Margaret calls letting us know that she's still searching for Marie, and that she's not in the realm of humans, and that we should prepare for our meeting with her. It's January 10th. The sickness ate up a considerable chunk of our time, but if you want to be optimistic about it, I guess you could say that it never really was our time and it was just an event to pass by. We're back in school, and the ski trip got postponed for a bit later in the season. Now, if you've paid attention, you may have noticed something. I've shafted someone very important. Someone that I like. A lot, actually. Kanji Tatsumi. I never did his social link beyond just getting rank 1. In order to go on the ski trip, you need to get the entire investigation team's social links to level 10, and then do another, level 11. So on the days where he's available, I start to grind his social link out. Kanji's social link, like Naoto's, isn't initiated through a story event. Instead of needing to max out stats, for Kanji you just need to talk to a specific girl, Yasuhina Bahai, and then talk to Kanji. She's heard rumors of him bullying other students, and confronting him about this, and then having an incident with the cops at Aya shows how fed up Kanji really is with being misunderstood so frequently. On his third social link event, a quick chat with him is instantly interrupted by Aya. Kanji's mother is in the hospital. We rush over to see her, just to be bamboozled. She's all fine and dandy, she just took her boy in. Kanji is quick to rush out of the building, and Kanji's mom fills us in on his doting comments of us and his fear of hospitals. His father died in the hospital here, so he has every right to be worried about his mom coming in as well. Had I known this, the scenes where he was pent up with rage over Nanako's temporary passing would have been much more impactful, so I regret not touching his social link earlier. She tells us a bit more about how her son seems to be a lot happier now that he's involved with us, so she asks us to take care of him for her. Next time we hang out with him, Kanji notices the boy from the hospital, and he's crying. The boy lost a cute little bunny that a girl in his class had lent him. Kanji instantly identifies with the kid, being the odd man out who loves cute things, and dedicates his time to helping him find it. Kanji goes the extra mile though. He goes from checking the river, to making even cuter replacements, to selling them at his mom's shop, to teaching people how to sew. A few more misunderstandings with the police, hesitant thoughts, and good deeds later, and we've maxed out his social link. Kanji's confusion and stubbornness are extremely relatable traits. His struggle to be comfortable with who he is because of the people around him is all too real. Had I not been too comfortable with my party setup, Kanji probably would have been right there at the forefront. I wish JRPGs would allow you to use everyone in a single party, or have a standard for inactive party members to just gain XP on the side. Even though I didn't get Kanji's level 11 first, I just wanted to cover all that real quick. He asked for advice on what sort of present to get someone. A woman. A bit of teasing let me know that I had the wrong idea. It's intended to go to his mom, and not a girlfriend. He wants to get her a present to commemorate her recent checkup at the hospital going well. His mom told him that she and his late father are very proud of him, and he feels guilty for this, acknowledging that he's just been a punk for a chunk of his life, and that his mom is so unbelievably strong for putting up with him and raising him well despite all the trouble that he's caused for her. This is a moment of realization that I think is extremely admirable of any child, especially a juvenile one. Risei's level 11 starts off on a sad note. Her old #1 fan sends in a letter saying that she's going to quit being a fan of Rosette over a dispute with a friend. I let her know that I'm still here as her friend and fan. She spirals into a talk about social circles. One-on-one relationships are easy for her, and too many people make things chaotic, and everyone just ends up hurting each other, even if they didn't mean to. Her mood warms up a little bit after this, telling me of her resolve to keep on going, to protect and motivate those who are important to her. A short but sweet scene. What's next, though, is her persona evolution. This is one of the funniest things to me. Going from Kanzeon to Kozeon, a crazy satellite thing, to a giant-ass telescope with multiple arms and the whole solar system rotating around it. I had some explosive laughter after this, and I couldn't get over it for a few minutes. Things like this are just so bizarre to me, but I love them. Just like I love Risei's outlook on life. She's now filled to the brim with excitement for the future. Even though hardship and sadness are inevitable, she can channel that into the power to take a step forward. I felt that exact feeling when I beat this game. I channeled all of my emptiness into writing this script. For the first few days though, it was hard to even get out of bed. The fruitfulness of dedicating all my time and energy here isn't fully apparent yet, but there's a lot to look forward to with it. And that's just like Risei's optimism towards a long-distance relationship. She plans to channel her loneliness when on set to push herself harder and harder, and that whenever I see her on TV, to know that she's smiling for me. Next, I believe I got Yukiko's level 11. She calls me over and talks about Customers Day, a day where the innkeepers take turns checking the quality of the inn service firsthand. She then updates me about her status on figuring out her future. She told everyone that she wants to leave Inaba, and everyone laughed at her, and told her that they already knew that. She realizes that she almost severed all of those ties for no reason. Running away would have made her alone, and she wants to use those bonds that she's made with others to have her grow as a person so she can support them back. Chie's scenario starts off back by the river, training as usual. She ashamedly admits that she's begun studying, which is hurting her shoulders. She takes an unexpected and extremely interesting turn. She started studying because of Adachi. She goes on to say that if her life had been even a little bit different, she could have ended up just like Adachi. Anyone could have. Her deep line of thinking helped her realize that everything in the world is related to her, even things in ancient realms overseas or puzzling nonsense like math and physics. Everything influences everything. And I thought that this philosophical turn was something that was out of character, but really, it's the greatest display of her development. Yosuke starts off on a reflective foot, acknowledging that it's been a while since it's been just us bros alone together. He's been beyond busy with work, and he even apologizes for a mess at Jeunesse, and I haven't a clue what he's talking about. He playfully assumes that I'm just being modest, and then talks about his feelings some more. He used to feel like he was being used, or had a lack of shame for always being the one to help others, but by spending time with everyone, he realized that helping people is just something that he loves to do. He reflects more on Nanako's kidnapping and solving the case in the beginning. He did care, but initially, he just thought that our character was just going through a lot. And depending on who you, the player, are, this could be true. Talking about making those around him happier is a huge morale booster for Yosuke, and he says that out of all that's happened over the past year, the best thing was meeting you, the player, and I could not agree more. Naoto's outlook is simultaneously very optimistic and cynical. She talks about how the mood of Inaba has boosted and the longing for connection has seemed to increase. At the same time though, she knows that all things fade with time, such as memories of the mistakes that caused the sorrow and hardships. She thanks me for helping her find an answer to everything. Having just that one thing that you strive to protect and cultivate can be something that makes you feel very alive. The last one that we have to deal with here is Teddie. On a trip to Shichiri Beach, he asks about the ocean and why it's so large. He expresses his deepest gratitude to everyone for helping him learn about things such as the world, feelings, and the ocean. My favorite comment here is when he acknowledges that he took a scary step to come over to our world, but he's glad that he did. He begins to ugly cry about our upcoming departure, but he doesn't want to rely on us so much anymore, dubbing it the independent Teddie chapter of his life, so he can soon become our sensei instead of us being his. On the night of the 17th, as you go to bed, you begin to have more flashbacks of Marie. The next morning, Margaret phones you just to remind you that she's still searching for her, but it's proving to be difficult. On the 20th, directly after school, you have to go home. Nanako and Dojima are going to be back today. We are welcomed home by an overly enthusiastic Teddie who begs for a welcome home kiss. If you choose to act on this though, he will just scream and scram. Just after being so scared of being up close with us though, he asks us what a glomp is. It's a running hug, by the way, and if you choose to follow through with this too, then Dojima will come home and make an awkward situation out of it all. The Dojimas return with sushi, so we all chow down together in celebration, and our home life has returned to normal. On the 22nd, we have a welcome home party planned for Nanako at the Jeunesse food court, her favorite place on earth. An adorably wholesome event where everyone is more than happy to have her back. We congratulate her on her strong recovery, hovering over the topic of her being kidnapped a bit too much, but Nanako doesn't remember what happened to her. And honestly, that's a great thing. I can't imagine the trauma that she'd have if she remembered everything vividly. We asked Nanako if she'd like to play any games. Tag is a no, but hide and seek sounds like fun. Nanako said that one of the things that she did remember is us coming to find her, and how cool we were while doing it. Yosuke says he'll ask if we can play hide and seek in Jeunesse, which we do, and while it all happens off screen, this is yet another time where I'm just overjoyed by everyone's togetherness. On January 25th, we get another update from Margaret. She's closing in more on Marie's location, and her disappearance has something to do with her jogged memories. As the end of January closes in, so do the exams. Nanako coincidentally has tests at around the same time, so you and Dojima help Nanako study every night before bed, but Dojima has a bit of a disconnect here. It is now February, the last full month that we have in Inaba. This is even more bittersweet knowing that it's the shortest month of the year. This surge of sadness was instantly drowned out by Yosuke announcing that we'll finally have our ski trip after the upcoming exams since we'll have a small break. On the 3rd, we learn that Margaret is located in Marie. She's not in the realm of man, and exams roll around and are a breeze as usual. Easy as they are though, they reap away about a week of our precious time. Even on the day of completion, the game just forces you right home after school.
Too. Is this really your first time snowboarding?
Just gotta keep your balance, right?
Whoa!
Senpai! You're too fast!
gotta open up your stance. Do you get it? Come on.
It's easier said than... Huh?
Whoa! Damn, that hurt.
Oh, so sorry! Sorry.
You owe me a date!
You won't win!
Jeez, you two.
February 11th, the ski trip, starting off strong with a gorgeous animated cutscene, with Chie and Yosuke racing down the hill on some snowboards, Rise jittering while trailing me, and Kanji doing his best to teach Naoto how to ski. Truly the epitome of awkwardness. Teddie and Yukiko are racing too, and a date is on the line for Teddie. He does a majestic flip over me and Rise, forming a giant snowball on a fumbled landing, which smacks right into Yosuke, right on schedule. The cutscene ends and we have a group discussion, and I must say, everyone here is dripped out. The talk of dinner at the ski lodge is a fierce one. Chie raging about a lack of meat being served, and Yosuke and Rise going back and forth about the girls' cooking skills are just a bit of what's going on. Even calling back to the cake that Naoto helped with. I love when friends pull a "hey, remember when?" because those always make for the best laughs. Our room for the duration of this trip is a co-ed one, so our communal area is pretty amazing since it's great people. At a loss for what to do for the night, Kanji suggests that we tell ghost stories, which freaks out Chie and Rise, and as enthusiastic as Yukiko is about telling them, hers kinda suck in my opinion. They make Naoto shiver out of fear though, which is a nice change of pace. Seeing Naoto in different positions, like fearful of the ghost stories and inadequate at skiing, is really interesting, because I like to see when the stoic characters kinda crack, even if this isn't anything very serious. Yosuke's up first with the story. A friend of his from the city had a sister who was involved in a mass bullying thing. Her and all the girls who were bullying ended up in the hospital for a myriad of reasons. The girls showed up one by one, unconscious by the school gates. The girl they had been bullying is believed to have been dead, becoming a spirit and haunting the bullies. Naoto calls out that the story has inconsistencies, but then recalls that she's heard a similar story before, and I think this might be a Persona 3 reference since it's in the city. Then it's our turn to tell a ghost story. With the dialogue options, you can tell everyone about the Velvet Room. Just when things get good, the lights are cut out and everyone starts crying, but our character just gets up and turns the lights on. Teddie's the culprit here, and he turned off the lights to punish us for eating snacks without him, since he was out stalking some girls in the hot springs like the freak that he is. Day 2 of the ski trip. Some teenage banter ensues about the guys eavesdropping on the girls' late night talks. Rise kinda just tells everyone to shut up and enjoy our time. She calls for me to go with her, but Chie angrily butts in about her hogging habits. Rise's defense for it is honestly perfect, with no bias from me. Yosuke and Chie are on snowboard, Teddie and Yukiko are zooming, and Kanji is doting over Naoto. Chie kinda just admits defeat, but Naoto reminds everyone that we're all here to savor some of the final days with me. Everyone fighting over me feels so good, honestly. I love my friends here, but making choices is rough. Luckily, we don't have to, because Yosuke calms everyone down and says that we should all just enjoy the slopes together. So we do just that. Kinda. Everyone just defaults back to what they were already doing. Rise keeps inserting ways of flirting with us while we enjoy our time with Naoto and Kanji, and I think this happens regardless of romance choice. The day goes on a bit more, and before the sun sets, we decide to hit the slopes one last time. I picked to have Rise come with me. She brings up a sad part of her past, where her last New Year's was spent alone. We start to realize that we don't know where the lodge is in comparison to us. Rise jinxes the fact that we won't be getting lost, because we totally do. An abracious blizzard blows in at a blistering rate and temperature. Rise is on the verge of knocking out, and we miraculously find a stray cottage to take shelter in. No one's actually in there when we banged on the door, and it was luckily unlocked. Now that we're not as cold, I check my phone, but I don't have any service. The blizzard isn't showing any sign of letting up, and it looks like we're stuck here for the night. Desperately looking for a way to stay warm, Rise notices a hearth in the center of her room, and we burn some newspapers to start a fire. She inches closer to me, and she optimistically talks about the fun that she's having in light of the dire weather. Just then, a light flashes, and we check it out together. Some crashing and banging occurs, and just when we were going to find out what happened, all of our friends barge in screaming at us to stop. Surprised that we're still clothed, they jump to the worst, silliest conclusion, and Yosuke and Teddie's comments in particular are hilarious here. They say that it would have been awkward had they came in any time before now, The flash's source is now revealed to the player as a TV that was left in here, and Rise tried to stop me from heading in. That's what the crashing and banging was. Nobody buys that was the noise though. After saying our piece, we set the TV upright and go under fire from our friends again about the heat of the situation. Apparently the shed we're in is right behind the lodge, and the blizzard wasn't blowing on the other side either. So we've got our Yosuke style luck going on right now. No one wants to buy our story, especially because the case is over. Chie says that everyone should listen to us because we wouldn't have any reason to lie. So they finally check out the TV and the screen ripples. Chie teeters by the screen and we all try to pull her away, but an arm reaches out and yanks us all in. We all end up in a bamboo forest with various haniwa scattered around us. Margaret is then revealed to be the body behind the hand. That is, if you couldn't tell from the little animated cutscene anyways. Margaret introduces herself to everyone, and it's her first time that she's interacted with anybody outside of the Velvet Room. Everyone is confused and not sure if she's trustworthy, but I reassured them that she's cool. Turns out that this is the Hollow Forest, the place that Ame no Sugiri had referenced and the place that Marie had shut herself off in. According to Margaret, Marie had regained her memories by opening her heart up to me, and it was something that she was content with. We explained Marie's amnesia situation, and it didn't cross my mind that no one inferred that from before. Margaret assures us that she came here out of her own free will and it's not a kidnapping. She's also able to do this because she is from this side, something that surprised me. The Hollow Forest is typically a sealed off location, and we only have a brief amount of time to save Marie before this place is sealed forever. If we fail to save her, or give up, then she will vanish from our memories forever, and the Hollow Forest is a completely separate existence from the TV world that we were able to access from Junes as well. We decide to head back and prepare to save Marie. We discuss the existence of the TV realm, the Hollow Forest, and Marie. We realize that Marie is essentially trying to kill herself, and Teddie chimes in about his similarities to Marie. Not that she thinks she's a shadow, but that she bears a similar way of coming to a realization of what she really is and feeling like she shouldn't exist. Everyone starts to come together over our inner struggles, and we now know that since we have a solid friend group and that everything is okay as long as you don't tackle it alone, we need to show Marie this truth. We head back to Inaba on the next morning before school. Impressive since we actually showed up on the same morning that we left the ski lodge. We have a meeting on the school roof where everyone establishes that this incident is not connected to the crimes in any way, no rumors or anything else. Teddie and Rise tried to locate the Hollow Forest from Junes, but to no avail. This makes sense since the TV world is plotted in tandem with the real world, and Yukiko brings up an excellent detail. The Hollow Forest is something that we've heard before, from Ame no Sugiri. This entices us more. Nothing else left to do other than save her ourselves now. Back at the shed, we have a group huddle, and the fox is even here too somehow. Upon entering the Hollow Forest, this dungeon's quirks are made extremely apparent. Instead of the floors being numbered, they're labeled Memories of X, in reference to her memories and the poems that she writes throughout the game. These poems are only seen upon entering the Velvet Room before this dungeon. Marie's voice will be heard echoing them out on each floor. Another condition of this dungeon is that all of our weapons, armor, accessories, and consumables are gone. We can get new items throughout the dungeon, but it's rough getting things too strong. SP is also reduced each turn, with each battle having whatever remains. This is why having such a high leveled Rise is nice, because she will restore some HP and SP after every battle. To counteract the consistent drop in SP though, the only accessories that you can get in here regain some every turn. I won't lie that I'm a bit salty that I couldn't use my silver bangle in a dungeon like this though. On floors 1 and 7, enemies will spawn when you break a seal, which is essentially just opening a door in this dungeon. They also spawn more frequently from chests. 2 mini bosses are in this dungeon instead of 1, and most enemies resist everything except for like 1 or 2 elements, so you're forced to use your SP every turn. Overall, this dungeon just loves to chip away at you. My strategy for counteracting this was just letting Rise's boosts after battle get me started, and then stall out turns to gradually gain SP on some of the easier enemies once I got a bigger SP regain per turn accessory. Running into Marie in the dungeon is a sad scene indeed. She's seen in a ghastly cloak and one of her eyes has become green. She's dead set on accepting her death here. When we try to calm her down, she anxiously replies that we can't, because she's our enemy. She remembered everything. Her real name isn't Marie, it's Kusumi no Okami, and this is her grave. Probably why all the haniwa are scattered around here, since they're buried with the dead in Japanese culture. She's of the same ilk as Kuni no Sagiri and Ami no Sagiri, and her whole role the entire time was to inform the others of what the will of humans were, essentially making her a spy without being aware of it. If she doesn't die, then our world will disappear. Disappearing seems to be a trend here, as Marie vanishes deeper into the dungeon. Once we reach the top of the dungeon, we have a long straight walk into a hollow sphere where Marie is at. Confused by her actions, she can't seem to wrap her head around why we're dedicating ourselves to her so much. She just wants to end it all, and we're just trying to tell her of her newfound freedom. Marie can't accept the fact that the Sagiri are defeated. Her underlying mission is to control fog, and she's the one controlling it subconsciously. When we defeated Ame no Sagiri, all the fog absorbed into Marie, and that's why the fog cleared. Wanting to save our world, she locked herself away in the Hollow Forest, keeping the fog in the TV realm. She doesn't want to see us anymore because she just doesn't want us to hurt each other. She's happy with the memories that she's made with us already, but she can't bear the pain of seeing us anymore. Battle with Marie begins now. Her fight is quite easy. After getting her to half HP, she makes some frustrated comments and then falls over. She doesn't want to believe that we can save her, because she doesn't think there's a way out. Full of pain, Marie then has a little monologue that I can't do justice with an explanation, so I'll just play the clip.
Huh? How's that, you punk? Now are you gonna listen to us?
Why? Why? It doesn't matter what happens to me. You're stupid. Hurting yourselves like that. If my death keeps you from being happy, what am I dying for?
Don't say you're going to die. Don't worry, it'll be okay. I used to be just a shadow too. But even I could change. Emi-chan, you have to believe.
What good comes of belief? You save me, and your world is gonna disappear. Is that what you want? That's what it means when you tell me you want me to live. I look so stupid. Afraid of living off borrowed life. Afraid to disappear. Thinking that maybe I could remember something, and then I'd have a life worth living. It's funny. I remember now. I already have a role. And it's to disappear. I shouldn't have ever remembered. It would have been better if I'd never remembered.
Marie-chan.
Amidst her scattered emotions, her voice abruptly switches up. Kusumi no Okami's big reveal. Marie then says that she wishes that she never met us. Naoto does something really intelligent here. Since the dungeon is in the TV world will reflect the human mind. Things here do resemble a grave, such as the scenery in the Haniwa. However, things like signs from Inaba businesses, electrical poles, and school desks are things from Marie's memories that she held dear enough to create in this world subconsciously. Marie's tough shell cracks here, but she still thinks that she has to die. We devise a plan on the spot to expel the fog from her body. We wait for her body to become controlled by the fog, then we can defeat the monster and hope that the fog will leave her body behind. It's the only shot that we've got, so we have to jump at the opportunity. She begs us not to die in the process, and the true battle begins. Our SP is halved again here, and this time we have to fight the boss all the way through. Kusumi no Okami is kind of similar to a shadow, but at the same time the opposite. She's denying everything. She hates the truth, and her truest desire is a peaceful lie. Her fight was a lot easier in comparison. Managing the dungeon on the way here was much more difficult to me. Kusumi no Okami's form fades away, and Marie's lifeless body falls into our arms. Spooked for a minute, half the squad starts bawling their eyes out, but Marie awakens when Teddie gets too close, and she just shoves him off of her. Marie gives our character a hug, which pisses Rise off, and our happy moment and happy music are interrupted after only a few moments. The hollow forest begins to crumble since it isn't necessary for Marie to die anymore, so we split. Once we're back in the real world, the TV shatters. Marie says something about the TV never having been a TV in the first place because the hollow forest doesn't have a reason to exist anymore. I don't know what the never having been a TV part means. Does that mean that it's like an otherworldly deity spawned as a TV-shaped entity? Are there other models of this TV out there in the wild? I don't know, it's a dumb thing to get hung up on. Marie thanks us for saving her, which breaks character. I want Marie to get to know us all better, and Rise brings up that she should know of the world more through things like Valentine's Day. Rise claims to have reserved me already, and Marie doesn't really care, and thus, the Rise versus Marie beef continues. We make plans to grub and leave the shed. Marie brings up that she heard a voice when we defeated her. It's the same voice that she heard when we awakened Ameno Sagiri, and the fog flowed into her. We're lagging behind, so the homies throw some snowballs at us, and then we start a snowball fight. But Yosuke just gets singled out by everyone. I just love how unlucky he is. God bless his soul. We then fast forward to the Amagi Inn, another hot spring scene, this time with Marie. The other girls are just talking about Marie's nice skin, while Teddie and Yosuke try to pull off a kanji-assisted peeping session. Our character is kinda just chilling on the sidelines watching the chaos. Teddie and Yosuke's towel falls off their groins, and the girls are justifiably screaming. Then Marie uses some crazy electrical powers to zap the guys, and life is back to normal in Inaba once more. Today's the day that Yosuke's been waiting for, Valentine's Day. I start my morning off with a good morning text from Rise, the most natural texter in the game, I think. I mean, compared to Naoto at least. A lot of the other NPC students are loitering around the school in hopes that a girl's gonna bless them with some chocolate, or any smidge of attention really. Kanji doesn't really get the festivities though. Yosuke's confident that he'll be getting some chocolate from his coworkers at Junes, and then he calls out Yukiko and Chie to pass their chocolates out. Everyone gets a little bit of it, and then I hit the beach with Rise. He presents me with a daintily wrapped package with some funky smelling chocolate in it. She added durian and habanero to it. Absolutely mind-boggling decisions. We're able to dodge eating the chocolate on the spot, which is good, because I don't want to spend my Valentine's Day out cold on the sand. We move to the stairs with Rise, where she tells us her dreams. She wants to go to college and work hard, because she thinks she's capable of it. She wants a serious boyfriend, a beautiful wedding on a tropical island, and a nice house with a dog, and to live happily with her husband until her olden days. This is a textbook example of a normal life, but it's kind of endearing. She lets me know that it's me that she wants to make these dreams come true with, and I oblige. After a pause, we gaze out to the sea, and she talks about how humans were born from the sea, which makes me think of Spore, but that's not what she meant. Rise starts talking about Adam and Eve, the first humans, and how Adam was Eve's wife and how they were exclusive to each other. I spend a long time with Rise, and my Valentine's Day date ends. My Valentine's Day event doesn't end though. Marie was camping outside of my house, forcing a second Valentine's Day event on me. She gives me a chocolate, but it's really chunky and smells awful and is literally shaking. I have no clue what this crap is supposed to be, but she forces me to try it out, and it's surprisingly good. The jittering unsurprisingly carries over to my stomach, and Marie's tsundere traits really shine through here more than anywhere else. We head inside, and we have time for just one more special girl on our Valentine's Day, Nanako-chan. She gives us a chocolate bar and explains how her teacher said that Valentine's Day isn't just for love, but to express thanks to the people in your life. She even tells me about how she boasts about us and her father to everyone at school. This is all just so adorable. Lastly, Nanako brings out a slime-shaped chocolate creation. The girls taught her how to make this, so you know it's going to be disgusting. With suggested ingredients like bell peppers, bacon, iced coffee, vinegar, fish, fermented squid, and more. As repulsive as it is, when Nanako hit us with that,
Big bro, thank you. I love you.
there's no going back. We're locked into this death trap, and just one bite knocks us out. From here on out, there are no more special events. Valentine's Day marks the end of the new story content in the game. Kind of. From then on, we have about a month of free days to do whatever we please. I don't even really remember what I did, but I was sad. I realized that nothing special was going to happen anymore, and my mood dropped a lot. I didn't want to accept this beautiful journey would come to an end so soon. I do recall spending some time with Rise, trying to cram Nanako into Jima's full social links and failing, and just taking in the music more than anything. It was a beautiful experience. Skipping ahead to March 20th, my last full day in Inaba, the game makes you spend your day saying goodbye to everyone. But as we head out, Nanako gives us a letter. Without much time to waste, we go and say our farewells to everyone until we finish up and feel like heading to Junes. All of our friends come by gut feeling. We grab a bite to eat and talk about all the good times that we've had this year. Writing this now, while rewatching this scene not even a full month after beating the game, is making me teary-eyed. I don't like how this feels at all. Mid-shebang, Yukiko says that it all started for her when Chie told her about the Midnight Channel. And now that we think about it, we can't put our fingers on the origin of it. Where did the Midnight Channel come from? Even though we've caught Adachi and slayed Kusumi no Okami, the fog still exists on the other side. Naoto calls back to Ame no Sagiri, mentioning how it gave powers to people who braved the Hollow Forest, meaning the persona abilities, but everyone else had to face themselves first, and I didn't. Our character is an exception to this rule, but Adachi and Namatame also had the ability to enter the TV. No personas for them though. This gets really puzzling for us. Just then, we remember the letter that Nanako handed to us. Let's open it. It's from Adachi. He says that he will indefinitely abide by the rules of this world and serve his time, but he wants us to clean up the mess if we can. He learned of the Midnight Channel only when coming to Inaba. Namatame had a similar thing written in his diary. The power was definitely activated upon arrival. Now is the time to connect the dots. We need to figure out where the source of the rumor came from. The person who told Adachi about the Midnight Channel is the mastermind behind all the catastrophe that has occurred this year. We think about the context of everything that's happened thus far, and we recall that we were told that we did well in playing our parts. Namatame and Adachi were also players in this game, a game that's end goal was to bridge the gap between the worlds of the humans and shadows, and we're on the case for the last time, for real. We scour around town, and when we ask Nanako and Dojima, Nanako reminds us that we stopped at the gas station. The attendant there was being a real weirdo on our way home that day. Dojima never recalls seeing him again, and we did feel a bit woozy after shaking the attendant's hand. The gas station is definitely our next goal, so returning to the shopping district is the move here. Nothing's going on there right away, so we enter the Velvet Room and tell Igor of our suspicions. He turns our feelings into the Orb of Sight, an item that can always seek out the truth despite all that opposes it. Marie goes a bit more in depth about her existence here. Over time, the Marie that wanted to succeed in her goal, finding the truth, and the other Marie, the one that we know, couldn't exist as one anymore. She realizes that she had a role to play in everything as well, and she tells us to go after her. Her being the conductor behind everything that we've undergone this year. Igor sends us off, and that's that. Once casted out into the rain, we can see the gas station attendant outside. We can interrogate them on things like Adachi and Namatame. They ask to be left alone, but there's no way in hell that that's going to happen. After enough pestering, they said that all they did was welcome those two to town, and the same to our character as well. The attendant then asks why we're asking so many questions, and begins to be honest. They awaken the power within all three of us, Namatame, Adachi, and myself. The attendant begins to mock Marie's existence, calling her a stunted dwarf of a life. A niche detail here is the attendant's mentioning of the bamboo comb that Marie gave me. The attendant gave it to Marie as a symbol of separation, just like what Kanji's mom had suggested. The attendant said that she saw potential in me, and that's why she awakened my power, but she never expected this. She reminds us of our awakening with a flashback, where she shakes our hand, thus giving us powers. We detest her motives of messing with Inaba and killing people, and she finally reveals herself as Izanami, the wife of Izanagi. This is a really cool detail, considering how our persona is Izanagi, and if you recall the lecture from our school trip back in September, you'll see why our opposition here is so tense. Worn out and lying in the street, some of our friends catch up to us. We fill them in and begin to prepare for our final fight. We link up at Juness for the last time, Rise scans the TV world for the last time, and everything is just too nostalgic. In all the togetherness, we rally up as energetic as possible in the name of having a peaceful send-off tomorrow. Our final dungeon is Yomotsu Hirasaka, the path to the underworld. The dungeon felt pretty short and easy for me, and on the 9th floor, we began our final showdown with Izanami. She informs us that the Midnight Channel's contents were always up to the humans who saw them, exactly why the people who had been appearing on the local news were the ones that were showing up. Curiosity of man was the causation of everything, besides the power gifted by Izanami. Izanami drops a really interesting line here. Only by comparing yourself to others can you define yourselves. This is one of the most true, but under-recognized things that I think I've ever heard. For example, you can't know if you're a nice person unless you know what a rude person is. Little truth bombs like this make Izanagi as a villain much more compelling, because she has a lot of truth in her words, but her manipulation and abuse of her godly powers is what puts her at fault. We all take a stand against Izanami, vehemently stating that we will be the outliers, we will be the trailblazers, and we will live differently. We won't succumb to all the crap that she believes humans are destined for. Izanami transforms into a larger form, and then the fight itself actually begins. She blames us for becoming too involved by being drunk on truth, but we know better than that. We deserve to live out our lives as we wish. We are determined to fight for that right. Izanami's first phase is a difficult one, but me and my squad are able to hold it down. The last few turns of her fight has the message, Izanami seems impervious between each turn. Igor and Margaret's words come back to us. The Orb of Sight is our key to victory here, and by tossing it into the air, Izanami becomes overwhelmed and takes her final form, Izanami no Okami. For the most part, this fight is just a harder version of Phase 1. She's immune to electricity now, and her health is restored. As we get closer and closer to the finish, Izanami uses the move 1000 Curses to instantly kill our friends one by one, only because they shield our protagonist each and every time. When no one is left but Rise as a spectator, 1000 Curses successfully takes us out. Lying in an endless misty void, now is when all of our maxed out social links would come together and give us some encouragement. I wish I had more of them completed for this scene. All the investigation team members alone were great enough though. I really felt the emotion in the words as they cheered for me to get up. Everyone's words awakened a new persona within me, Izanagi no Okami, the first time in dozens of hours that I've used any persona besides my beloved Pyrojack. Izanami has no clue how to react to the power of our few strong bonds overpowering the will of the rest of mankind. Her powers are useless on me, and there is now but one choice, the skill Myriad Truths. It instantly ends the battle, and Izanami is in disbelief and disappearing. She tries to lull us with the appeal of ignorant bliss once more, but we give her the finger. We've successfully cleared the fog, Izanami is dead, the case is completed, and the evil is thwarted. The journey ends here. And as great as that is, this is where I began to feel my chest become heavy. After being bamboozled a few times about the status of our case resolving skills, it's finally happened, and we're really done. When I left Yomotsu Hirasaka, I'm pulled into the Velvet Room to talk with Marie. I finally beat all of the other hers, and they've all become one again within her. Her truest name is Izanami no Mikoto, and Igor congratulates me and tells me this is the last time that I will ever see him in the Velvet Room. He gives very strong, proud grandpa vibes here. Our contract is fulfilled, the limousine stops, and it is now time to see the world that we have warred over. A stunning cutscene plays. The fog is gone entirely, the gorgeous nature begins to show, and I take it in with my friends by my side. This beauty is the true world inside of people's hearts, not that shadow bull crap that we've been seeing this entire time.
The fog is all gone. Wow.
It's nice. It feels kind of nostalgic.
I know this place. This scenery. A long, long time ago, everywhere in this world used to look like this.
So this is the world inside people's hearts. It feels nice. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
March 21st, the last morning in Inaba. I started the day off already at the train station. All of my dearest friends are here to send me off. Rise, Kanji, and Nanako all cry in varying amounts. Dojima lets me know that the case against Adachi is going swimmingly, and he thanks me for everything that I've done, and that I'm a true family member. And I'm not crying now while recording this, but when writing this, it's 3:27 in the morning, Friday, April 22nd, 2022. Almost a full month later, and I've barely touched any video games since completing this one about a month ago, and I'm crying now. And I don't know why. I haven't even got to the part that got my tears rolling out initially, and this is not how this is supposed to work at all. I know what to expect this time around, but I guess that's just another testament to how powerful this game has been over my emotions. Anyways, I'll get back to what's happening in Inaba now. Teddie vows to be the stalwart defender of the other world. I'm not sure if I'd call it the TV world anymore, but I wish him the best regardless. Naoto teases that she might ride the train back with me to the city. Yosuke says that he doesn't feel like saying goodbye because I can come back whenever I want, like over long holidays. This message feels to me like it's meant for the player to acknowledge that you can replay the game whenever you'd like and spend time with your best friends again. Nanako and Rise begin to cry again. I walk towards the station and I say farewell to my other school friends. So for me, I only said goodbye to Yumi. Next thing I know, I'm on the platform with my friends and family. Everyone wishes me well. I turn around and I board my train. Everyone runs after my train. They ask that I never forget them. They proclaim their love. They disregard the distance, and it's all too real. Once again, I've started crying while writing this. My last day in Japan was very much the same to this. I overslept, so I didn't really have any time to say farewell to my friends at the train station, and I'm always going to regret that. I was crying so much that I could barely muster up the strength to even begin to compose a sentence. Just another example of Yu Narukami making a memory of mine feel all too real again. It honestly was just too much for me to bear the first time around, and my hands are shaky now. I don't know why it's so hard to deal with. And I wish it wasn't so hard, because I love this scene so much, and I appreciate everything.
Doing well, that's okay. But back to a serious note, she should have at least shown up here since this is the last time we'll see you.
This isn't the last time, stupid moronji!
Why do you have to say things like that too?
It's almost time. You better get on the train.
Well, see ya.
Good luck over there, too.
If anything happens on your end, we'll come running.
Until we meet again, Senpai.
Senpai, I'll be waiting for you.
See ya. Take care.
I'll be looking forward to seeing you again.
Well, be careful.
I'll see you, Big Bro. Bye-bye. Thank you for everything. Stay well until we meet again someday.
You'll always be my sensei forever!
Please don't forget about us over there. I love you, Senpai.
I'll do my best! You better not run away too, Senpai!
I'll always remember our time together.
Distance doesn't matter to us! Even if we're separated, we're still friends!
Take care.
See you again, Sensei! Bye!
I'll miss you.
He's really gone.
It's sad that he won't be around, but we will be okay, right guys?
Doesn't matter how far apart we are. The bonds we've made will remain strong. Everyone's heart is connected to the people they know and trust. It's those bonds that let us all search for our purpose in life. As long as it's a purpose you believe in, there will always be someone who can help you fulfill it. You, me, and everyone else, there are no barriers. Our hearts are one. Right, Sensei?
Months and months pass by, and I'm back in Inaba again. By this time, a whole year has passed. I get off at Yasu Inaba Station and see Taro Namatame, holding a small political rally. He's trying to better the town, and I'm really happy to see him running for mayor so passionately. Since no one is here to pick me up, I make my way to the Dojima residence on my own. There's no response at the door. I call Dojima, and he's currently too busy to come by. No answer from Yosuke when I phone him either. Walking around Inaba a bit more, the people of Inaba are working on a local festival. The people seem to be getting out of their old ways of thinking. The local businesses have finally made their peace with Junes, and they'll start selling some local products there. Overhearing this reminds me of Junes, which entices me to go back there. My friends are finally in view. Teddie and Yosuke are anyways, the worst hiders ever. Everyone else jumps out, a terrible attempt at a surprise party, but a lovely and endearing scene nonetheless. Everyone looks so different, new hairstyles, outfits, and character portraits. Kanji in particular has taken his look for a complete 180. Rise, Yukiko, and Naoto kinda look like moms now. She has grown out her hair a bit, and Yosuke cleaned himself up. Teddie just changed his shirt though. Dojima phones me and asks how the surprise went. He was in on it, but he sucks at lying, so he's glad that everything went alright. We bring everyone back to the Dojima residence for some chow time. Everyone's all here, eating together, and it's beautiful. Except for Nanako anyways. She's at some piano lessons at the moment, taking after her mother. Dojima's finally getting some leads on her killer too. Everything is looking up from here. Even Adachi's a model prisoner, not causing any problems behind bars. Nanako runs in, and she's changed a bit too. Really only her hair length though appearance-wise. We all continue to eat and watch TV together. Marie is the new local weather lady, under the moniker Mariko Kusumi. She even acknowledges my visit, saying that we can't have any rain during my special visit. Rise is a bit jealous of Marie's fast come up on TV, scoffing at the network execs and their decision to push for her so hard. Marie sends a personalized message for me. I'm doing just fine. Love you. This solidifies Rise's saltiness. Everyone's taken aback by this, and Dojima can't seem to buy that the message was meant for me. Nanako's adopted Marie's catchphrase, the more you put in, the more you get out. It's a nice change of pace from the Junes theme. A final cutscene plays. Nanako whispers to everyone, and on the count of 3, they all welcome me back. Although Kanji butchers the phrasing. Everyone laughs, and the credits roll.
Your cooking is barely food, Chie.
Hey, shut up! What about mine?
That's cold, Yosuke.
I could have made something too.
Please don't.
What was that? I can cook if I put my mind to it. So can I. That's...
Gotcha. Got it?
Oh yeah!
Well then. 1 and...
It's good to see you, Senpai!
Kanji, it was welcome back. How could you mess that up?
Hey, just shut up, alright? I just got stage fright, that's all!
I figured someone would blow it.
Now for the scene that broke my floodgates, the credits. I really finished it, the greatest journey that I've ever had the experience of playing. The song playing, Nevermore, is one of the most tear-jerking compositions that I've heard in my entire life. I don't know a sadder song. I'm being shown the names of all the wonderful contributors on the left, and on my right, a slideshow of memories with my friends rolls by. I cried so much here, and I haven't cried at any piece of media since I was 6 years old. It felt kinda good, but embarrassing since I was live as it all happened. Just like when I cried on my last day of school in Japan, I was so emotional that my brain couldn't function in Japanese. I tried so hard to understand the lyrics of Nevermore the first time around, but I couldn't. The song is so emotionally moving that Meguro Shoji, the composer, cried himself when he was working on the song. On my last day of school in Japan, I had a going away party thrown for me at my school on my last day. Everyone begged for a speech, and all I could muster were these two short sentences. Boku no Amerika no jinsei wa meccha sabishii. Karitaku nai. Koko made arigatou gozaimashita. Or in English, my life in America can be really sad at times. I don't want to go home. Thank you for everything. I proceeded to bawl my eyes out and drink juice with my friends for about an hour until we were kicked out of the school and headed for dinner. I feel so privileged because I was smart enough to chronicle every single day of my experience in Japan. Every day, I posted pictures and videos on an Instagram account with detailed writings of what happened on those days. I have the privilege to revisit my Persona 4 story too. I'll never forget the wonderful memories of my youth. And while I firmly believe that youth can be everlasting so long as you maintain the attitude, the truth is, I'm not really a kid anymore. My birthday is on May 14th, just over 3 weeks from me writing this, and I'm forced to start growing up. Persona 4 Golden could not have been a better send-off for my childhood. If anyone is curious about my experience in Japan, I'll throw the Instagram account name on screen now. Feel free to see what my life was like. Now, just before I get into the full final conclusion, I'm going to have a lightning round of my opinions on every single social link character. I'm going to be going in this order: the characters that I never touched, the rest of the social links, then the investigation team / seekers of truth. They'll be combined into one category because I think that it's just easier to do it that way. I completely ignored Naoki Konishi of the Hanged Man Arcana and Hisano Kuroda of the Death Arcana, so I never even initiated their social links. I also didn't form a social link with Ai Ebihara of the Moon Arcana, mainly because I didn't go to basketball club enough. I only found out she existed when I hit the voice option, which shows other players did on that day, for the first time in the last week of the game. I was like, what button did I hit? Who is I? Huh? Other than that, I did touch up on every other social link character, at least a little bit. Ko Ichijo of the Strength Arcana. Ko was cool. I thought he was pretty sleek looking, laid back, a guy I could see myself hanging out with in real life. I just never did. I think a big turnoff was the fact that his social link was glued together with Daisuke, the one I picked him over. I saw that the link was for both of them and thought, that's kinda lame. Like, why did they even make me choose at that point? I wouldn't have minded another multi-person social link, but because my choice didn't seem to matter and I had so many other more appealing options, Ko just kinda ended up getting left in the dust. Eri Minami of the Temperance Arcana. Eri Minami was an admirable figure. Nothing about her stood out a ton, but sometimes normalcy can be a charm. I did not get far in her social link at all, but I don't dislike her or her son. Other things in Inaba just enticed me so much more. It's like moving to a different town and going to the same chain store that you've always gone to. She didn't enrich the palette of Inaba much, so I kinda just let her and her son sit as they were. I'll probably give her another shot in New Game Plus. Yumi Ozawa of the Sun Arcana. Yumi Ozawa was the poor girl who undeservingly had too much on her plate and didn't know how to handle it. Were it not for my character stepping in to be by her side when everything was falling apart, I don't know how I would have felt once I learned her story. After getting only a few social link events in, I knew that I couldn't leave her hanging. She sprouts into a very strong and committed girl by the end of it all, and on my last day in Inaba, she told me that she wanted to branch out and get into all sorts of other activities aside from drama, local politics, other school clubs, and a job. Her plethora of attainable goals after all that mental anguish showed me how diligent Yumi really is. The Fox of the Hermit Arcana. The Fox was a pretty cute fellow to have around, and he gave me some tedious side quests I just gave up on after a bit. No idea how or why he can heal my party, or why we brought him into the TV world, but I'm sure that if I maxed out his social link, I would have gotten information about this. I hella appreciate the healing that he gave me in the TV world though, even if it was pretty expensive. Sayoko Uehara of the Death Arcana. Sayoko Uehara is a weird case. She changes a lot, but in some unexpected ways, from flirty, to depressed, to selfless, to grateful. She really does interest me. As you leave Inaba, you learn that she went to Africa to volunteer as a nurse. She's learning English, as well as some African languages, and she still wrote to me. I didn't even do too much, but my impression lingered. There are a few people like that I know in real life. I don't think I'm doing much other than just existing as a decent and normal human being, but they don't forget that. Sayoko Uehara is a good reminder that doing the right thing will always lead you to some form of reward, even if it isn't tangible. The feeling of being held dear in someone's memories is priceless. Shun Nakajima of the Tower Arcana. Shu Nakajima, during my playthrough, did not leave a good impression on me at all. He was overconfident, on his high horse, and not willing to have a little fun. Even when I made choices like staying for a bit of unpaid overtime to help him learn, he would just give me a little remark about not being paid for it. He seems more likable in the anime, but that's mainly because he's crammed in used social link hodgepodge where he makes a lot of the side characters look really cool. Margaret of the Empress Arcana. There really isn't much for me to say about Margaret. She's cool, she's helpful, and she's there. I spent infinitely more time with her dealing with personas and skill cards than I did dealing with her as a character. She did serve as a cool personality during Marie's whole self-hatred arc, but that's the extent at which I saw her. It only happened because I spent time with Marie. I also know that she has a secret post-game boss fight that's really hard, but obviously I missed out on that as well as a ton of other little things. She's definitely someone that I'll look out for in my New Game Plus run, but for my blind experience with the game, Margaret had a lot of unanswered questions that I didn't even bother to ask. Nanako Dojima of the Justice Arcana. My biggest regret for my playthrough is not finishing Nanako's social link. I tried to. I really did, but because I had to get everyone in the investigation team to rank 10 and then later 11 in the epilogue to unlock the ski trip and Marie's dungeon, I just didn't have time. I regret spending time with Shu for money when I could have been kicking it with Nanako-chan. She is beyond precious, and like I mentioned in the beginning, I had a host sister in Japan that I see a lot of in Nanako. Making a lot of money in exchange for missing out on this girl's last 2 social link events was totally not worth it. Nanako is an extremely strong and beautiful soul with a lot to offer, even as a grade schooler. I've never seen a character, let alone a child character, unanimously loved as Nanako is. She had to put up with a lot of hardships in her time on this earth so far, but she still is that little ray of hope that everyone needed. Her love for something as minor as the Juness jingle alone shines a light on her purity. The Mega Mall is her Disneyland. She's fine with these things because she just wants to have a happy little life in Inaba with her dad and her big bro. She's everyone's little sister. I don't know of any other situation where someone's grade school sibling is able to hang out with a bunch of high schoolers in such a fitting way, or at all even. It just doesn't really happen. But it isn't unrealistic because of how perfectly Nanako really is. Persona 4 Golden wouldn't be anywhere close to where it is without Nanako Dojima. Ryotaro Dojima of the Hierophant Arcana. You know, for a dad character, Ryotaro Dojima looks a little bit too much like my real dad, and with how caring he is at his core, it was a nice change of pace for me. Dojima really did just what was the best for everyone. It's admirable. And just like with Nanako, I wish I maxed out his social link. When he said that the best thing about Inaba was how quiet and peaceful it was, that's what told me that all he wanted was to make the world better for Nanako. Not just the general safety, because, you know, serial killers are whack, but also he could just spend more time with her. Whenever he'd mention that she trusted me more and that I was closer to her, or something of that sort, I felt kinda bad. He didn't have the courage or the mental capacity to get better with his daughter on his own. I had to ask him about putting pictures of his deceased wife back up. I had to pick Nanako up when he found her. He just couldn't do it. The emptiness that he feels constantly from a culmination of unfortunate happenings is staggering, but he never truly crumbles. He might have become colder, but he's an honest man who makes good efforts, and his heart is always in the right place, even when he tried getting me to spend the night at the police station. Tohru Adachi of the Jester Arcana. The sleaziest and scummiest, but simultaneously the most realistic and understandable villain. Tohru Adachi was someone who I could see myself being friends with in real life. Pre-murder, obviously. I like to figure people out, and I love making unlikely friends. I feel bad for Adachi, really. I wish he had taken the proper routes to a much happier and peaceful life instead of an empty one filled with resentment and hate. But without that, everything wouldn't have strung together as well as it had. So I guess I'll just thank him for taking the hit for everyone else then. Marie of the Aeon Arcana. Marie's social link and existence as a whole is all over the place, and I really don't understand her at times. As the tsundere who transcended the Holy Realm, and with how major a part that she had in the epilogue, you'd expect that I'd have more to say about her. But I don't really. I always enjoyed having her around, and her weird mispronunciations and her little arguments with Risa over me will always give me a grin whenever I think back on them. But I only wish that she blended in with everyone more naturally pre-epilogue. Other than that, there's really not much that I have to say. Yosuke Hanamura of the Magician Arcana. My partner, my brother, the biggest complainer, and the unluckiest man alive. Yosuke Hanamura. What else is there to say about him? He's a good guy with a good heart. He lets his hormones get a bit ahead of him sometimes, and some of his takes are a bit too old-fashioned, but he's a good guy, and everyone knows it. That's why everyone's constantly on his ass about being a weirdo. We want him to do better, as all good friends should. Nobody's perfect, but if all you're looking for is a friend, then Yosuke Hanamura is as close as you'll ever get. Chie Satonaka of the Chariot Arcana. Little Miss Hothead Chie Satonaka's growth was immeasurable. I loved seeing her development from the fiery femme who liked to kick stuff to the girl who started to speak her mind more and became more well-rounded. It's really cool and inspiring. It's something that can go under your radar too if you don't pay enough attention. She struck me as very normal at the beginning, but she's anything but that. I liked her so much that I kept her on my party over Teddie, the better ice user. Her loudmouth personality always made for a great situation when we were confronting a bad guy, goofing off, or if she was just going after Teddie for peeping. Definitely one of the brighter colors in our cast. Yukiko Amagi, of the Priestess Arcana. Yukiko, at face value, is a typical perfect girl in the small town, and while she does have a lot of good qualities like her looks, intelligence, and amicability, because of how the Persona series executes itself, she's very human, as she should be. She's kinda daft at times, her laughing outbursts can be taken as obnoxious, she's very finicky, and her cooking sucks without any sign of improvement. Her design isn't overly extravagant or anything that stands out too much either, but I think that all these attributes make her a geniusly executed character. She's obviously a staple for the investigation team, and a character of her archetype does a perfect core to have for any friend group. Her dainty aloofness and proper speaking manner make all of her contributions to any conversation worth listening to. Even if she doesn't have as many memorable lines as the feisty Chie, goofy Yosuke, or numbskulled Kanji, you just can't have the investigation team without Yukiko. We wouldn't have had our fun times at the inn, Chie wouldn't have got her persona, the ball wouldn't have had a proper way to get rolling. I also think that having her as one of my 4 unchanging party members added an extra layer of sentimentality to her character too. Going to her castle and being the first person that I successfully saved from the killer is a big moment for me. It's when I really began to feel like I was a part of something special in this game, and I'm a big fan of Yukiko Amagi. Kanji Tatsumi, of the Emperor Arcana. Kanji Tatsumi is one of the most caring guys you'll ever meet. My favorite underrated nice guy Kanji moment comes right before the school trip, when wondering about the popularity of the murderers outside of Inaba. He stands up for Mitsuo a bit. Everyone in the media writes him off like he's always been scum, but Kanji knows different. I think he's the one who really processed Mitsuo's emptiness better than anyone else. Having lost his father when he was young, being scared to death of hospitals, but still being there every time to check up on Nanako is very telling of his character. So much more goes into Kanji than, dang, the tough guy likes cute stuff, and it really shows in the writing. Rise Kujikawa, of the Lover's Arcana. Rise, like I said when I introduced her, has become my favorite character of all time, hands down. Not only is she an adorable character who is perfectly casted, or the most fun and badass support that I've ever seen in any game I've ever played, but she's also just so relatable and endearing. Her personality is just very appealing to me. I found that even when I had everything maxed out, I would still enjoy talking to her when I was out at night. It always brought a smile on my face, which is something that a single player game can usually only really pull off with humor on my end. I found her dilemma the most relatable out of everyone's. She wasn't sure which part of herself was the real her, only to realize that she's so much more than just one thing. It's something that I won't say she made me realize, since I've been pretty comfortable with who I am for a long time now, but it really reinforced those feelings within me. I want to be someone who can pull off anything I put my mind to, and Rise is one of those people too. She really put that to show in helping get everyone together for the concert Jeunesse. She was the only one who was truly prepared for the concert, and banding everyone else together was just one minor display of her dedication. When she dumped her feelings to me on the Valentine's Day event, she says that she wanted to go to college because she thinks she's capable of it. That really resonated with me, because I know that a lot of people would fully be content being a celebrity and just do whatever seems like a lot less work for a lot more money and fame. She's not your typical ditzy flirt character though. She works hard. She puts a lot of effort into the people that she cares about. She's very analytical, even outside of her role as a navigator. She's very self-aware and reflective. It was just really cool to see these polarizing sides of her. This is a big part of what actually inspired me to get back into making videos, since my last one was over half a year ago. It's something that I wanted to work at, but getting that push really helped me. Even if the game didn't end how I did and literally make me cry, the relationship that I formed with Rise would have been enough to motivate me to put effort into making this video. I did say that this segment was going to be a lightning round, so I'm just going to leave it here for now, but for what I covered, and for so much more, thank you very much to Rise Kujikawa. Teddie, of the Star Arcana. Teddie is an oddity. His existence is a shadow that just wanted to be liked by humans so badly that he took a unique form as cool, but I don't really get how it works. I really don't understand how he's so pervy with the girls and they never gave him more than just a slap on the wrist. I assume it's because he's barely been alive and barely been in contact with any conscious life, and even less of that time has been spent in society. Besides that, I think that Teddie was extremely charming, calling me sensei, being very curious, and having such an emotive voice, a crazy sense of humor as well. I could go on. I got the impression that a lot of people don't like Teddie, but he really made every step of the journey as silly as it can be, and I think that his jolliness is the reason that he was absent when we decided to spare Namatame or not. His energy just wouldn't be able to work in that scenario. I have a sweet spot for goofy little characters like this that somehow make their way into games, and I appreciate that his social link was handled through the story. I don't really think it would have made much sense in any other way. He's a great mascot, and honestly he just pulls off everything he was set up for by the writers extremely well. The only time that I don't love this silly little guy is when I see him on my screen at Persona 4 Arena. Naoto Shirogane, of the Fortune Arcana. Naoto's intelligence, intuition, and stoicness are all very vital traits to who she is, and they really are the driving forces behind any progression in solving the case later on in the story. Without her, I kinda doubt that we'd even become the Seekers of Truth. I think she was designed with the intention of being more of a last piece to the puzzle than a larger-than-life individual. Her personality, playstyle, and social link events all make me think this. That's no jab at her though. She's still an extremely lovable, well-designed, and very relatable character. The epilogue of Golden gives her a lot more to work with, and I think that had I played the original instead, she probably would have been my least favorite of the investigation team. That's only really because she wouldn't have had as much time to show me what she's really made of. I feel like sometimes she's a little shoehorned into the events leading up to figuring out that Adachi's the culprit, but I don't really mind it. I still really like Naoto Shirogane. The investigation team of the Fool Arcana and the Seekers of Truth of the Judgment Arcana. The investigation team is, like I've been saying, the best group of friends in any video game that I've ever played. But one thing about them in particular that I want to touch on is their social link. It's of the Fool Arcana, and I love this choice because as the story goes on, you become the Seekers of Truth of the Judgment Arcana. Fool represents the early stages of the story a lot. Not only are we far from the truth at the time, but we're a lot more immature and all over the place. As we become the Seekers of Truth, we become a lot more clean-cut and calculated, thus making the Judgment Arcana yet another perfect fit. I loved absolutely every single moment with the investigation team, and I doubt that any other cast will ever emulate how I felt spending my time with them. I just want to be part of something special, no matter how small or grand of a scale. Influencing the lives of others is something that means a lot to me. I don't care too much for the credit or rewards that I could gain from being an influential figure. Seeing the smiles, changed opinions, new friendships, these are the things that matter to me. Persona 4 Golden made me feel like this, and so much more is achievable, with the way that the investigation team grew up alongside each other and they always stuck to the right path. I have a good friend who I used to spend long nights talking to over Discord about things like what it means or what it's worth to be a good person. I've always done my best to be true to my feelings and be as good of a person as I can be. Despite the rough patches in the past I regret deeply, I'm so proud of who I am and what influence I've been able to make in my life so far at only 19 years old. I have so much more to see and do. Persona 4 brought me back to those late night talks, pondering everything that my friend and I have recovered. Whenever I was asked why I acted the way I did, I didn't really have a solid answer. Now, I think I do. To avoid saying anything too triggering or too personal, I'm going to keep some things here really vague. After going through a lot of dark things in my life, such as losing an important person that I looked up to and abuse, I'm thankfully past all that now. But as it was happening, everything was really tough, especially for how young I was for a lot of it. Those things, like I said, are in the past, but I know more hardships are going to pass. I've been lucky enough to have made some really great friends and even more beautiful memories with them. Persona 4 taught me a lot about how the little things with the people you treasure can stack up and mean so much more than that. And that was the answer that I knew deep down in my heart all along, even when I was bawling for hours every day because my 5th grade teacher passed away. Making comic books with my friends kept me going. Even when I was coming home to an abusive father every day, I could sleep well enough at night knowing that in the morning I'd be able to enjoy the presence of my friends at school. My answer as to why I've stayed in this positive light so long? Little things just mean that much. In a setting like Inaba, or my real life hometown, where at face value there isn't much of interest, you really come to appreciate what little excitement you can squeeze out of everything. Even though I never enjoyed being in this town too much, I made things work to my advantage. I found some fun things to do with my friends, and I made the community-oriented aspect of it work to my advantage when I was raising money to move to Japan, and overall, my outlook has just always been very optimistic. Had I not done the little things like go to drama club, go on dates with Risei, hang out with my friends, and wander around the shopping district, this could have just ended up as only another fun RPG to me. Had I not grown up in the middle of nowhere, I don't think I would have diaried all those days that I spent in Tokyo for my friends and the internet and back home. I wanted them to feel everything with me, from the excitement of trying new things or a sense of independence to the belittling feelings like feeling like you're nothing but someone's responsibility. That's exactly what youth is, just like Yosuke said. And as long as you don't give up on that feeling of wonder and joy for all the little things that life throws at you, then you'll never really grow old. Sharing these experiences is something that's so uniquely human, and I wouldn't have traded it for anything. I'm really taken aback by Persona 4 Golden. I've never thought I'd be so deeply affected by a piece of media. I cried at the ending of Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Time when I was like 6, but that's it. I've almost always been a pretty emotionally closed off person, particularly with showing off anything other than my jolliness for a very long time. But I cracked here. For some context, here's what made me become an exchange student in Japan during my junior year of high school. My grandpa grew up there and always raved about how he would love to bring me there, apparently. He died when I was very young, and I remember looking out the window one day on a car ride to school telling my mom that I wanted to go and be an exchange student because I was tired of where we lived. She wasn't initially on board with it, but I worked really hard and made everything work. My year in Japan was the greatest, most fulfilling, and happiest time of my life. I made so many wonderful friends, not only Japanese, but from all over the world, and knowing damn well that my wonderful life was on borrowed time was one of the most daunting feelings imaginable. I loved living in Tokyo. I loved having my freedom. I loved having reasons to get up every day and be excited. When I left Japan, I cried. I cried of sadness for the first time in years. Both my first and fifth host families are some of the most loving and genuine people on the planet, and I am forever indebted to them for their patience with me. Something as simple as seeing the teachers call out my character as All Good Kun for a question in class was enough to bring me back to my days sitting in the back of the classroom, where my only worries were how I'd manage the hangouts that I wanted to do after school on that given day. Yu Narukami, even though this game came out before I went abroad, paralleled my experience way too well. So much to the point that I felt like his character was meant to be me, as cheesy as that sounds. We were even both in class 2-2 as transfer students. This was the one time where relating to a story really amplified my emotions, though online public diary that I kept really affected my feelings towards this game. The in-game calendar was a constant reminder that my time was always getting shorter, just like seeing that post count go up by 1 every day. Listening to Nevermore play as I rode off in the train and tearing up was a painful feeling that was more than familiar to me. It's a feeling that haunts me with the most beautiful nostalgia. I want to relive those memories with all my friends and go on fun adventures again, but I can't go back in time, so I'm glad that I was able to cherish each and every moment as much as I did. I only wish that I took more pictures. Persona 4 Golden is an 80-hour experience that feels like it's meant to be binged over a short period of time. You never want to stop your current session. It gave me the perfect substitute for everything that I needed at the time. A beautifully perfect cast of characters to be my friends, a lively little town, entrancing mysteries. Everything. Everything was just so perfect. The game truly feels like it was specially made for me to play and treasure. Even aside from all the things that pulled at my heartstrings, the combat was fun and strategic, the side activities were a fun time sink, the soundtrack is quite possibly the best I've ever heard in any video game. Had I played it any time before going to Japan, I think I would view it a lot differently, but even then, it holds up to a perfect 10 out of 10 experience. The only two things that I'm not head over heels for in this game are the theme in Yukiko's castle, which is still good, just not something that I'd go out of my way to listen to, and the fact that if your party leader knocks out one in battle, then you lose. But that ends a small sense of challenge to it. Realistically, I am never going to shut up about my love for every little thing that this game has to offer. I've started working on lots of videos on and off for months now, but I never really got through with them. I wanted to know that I'd get immediate reception, but here, I don't need that. The satisfaction comes from my love of the game alone, and I feel like my tongue has been running in circles this whole ordeal, but that feeling is a great thing. My biggest advice to everyone watching this is this: treasure as many memories as you can. Even the little things, such as going to the grocery store, are some of the times that I had the biggest smiles in Japan. The same is true for Persona 4. Doing things like going to hang out with my friends or singing the first part to Time to Make History are some of the things that I treasure the most about my blind experience in the game. And after completing it, it made me feel emptier inside than I ever have. But that's just a consequence of playing Persona 4. The game heavily revolves around this concept of consequences. Get intimate with one of the girls? Consequences are some cute one-on-ones and a nice item down the line. You can cheat on your girlfriend, attend summer school, make tons of money, hit level 99, the choice is yours, and the consequences will follow. The only limiter is time. All I've ever wanted in my entire life was to touch as many people's hearts as possible, and I'm really striving to do so now more than ever. I hope that I left some semblance of a positive impact in your hearts today, whether that be me pushing you to get into Persona 4, study abroad, or whatever. I'm beyond thankful for everyone and anyone that is involved with the creation of Persona 4 Golden. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for changing my life for the better. I want to once more express my deepest gratitude to the writers, developers, designers, localization team, voice actors, and anyone else I may be forgetting over at Atlas. You truly made the most raw and beautiful piece of art out of video games or any form of media that I've ever witnessed, and it isn't even close. The love that you put into this series is so strong, and I'm glad to see it present here of all places. I've seen recordings of the live concerts, and I wish to attend one someday. The venues seem like they're about to burst with positive energy. I hope that streak of positivity remains unwavering for the years to come. And if anyone at Atlas sees this, I hope that this video helped me touch some of your hearts too. I've worked tirelessly on just the writing alone for this video for about 3 weeks. The script is about 115 pages, and I've never felt like it was a chore to write this. I want to give back to the Persona series in the future someday, hopefully by fulfilling my own dream of voicing a character in a future installment. I want to evoke emotion to the level that I've felt to as many people as possible. Persona 4 Golden will forever be the greatest video game that I've ever played, and the memories I've made will be forever treasured in my heart. Thank you. Very, very much.